Fuck. That's not what I want to do. Ugh. Hold on. There we go. Took a while. All right. Ugh. Absolutely. Okay. Okay. Reacting to. We got a lot of videos to get through. It's 7:20. I don't think we're gonna get through them all, so we're gonna watch on 2x speed to get through as much of it as possible. We're starting off with Charlie Kirk debating college students, which seems like that's. Well, I'm not sure why a majority of conservatives seem to only debate college students. I'll say this: I didn't know shit in college because I know I don't know shit now. Why would you debate college students, especially when you're like at this point they have to be like in their 30s, and you're debating people ages 18 to 22 who. Okay. Okay. Yeah. Sure. All right. Play.
My question to you is, do you believe that there's a direct link between Christianity and conservatism?
So that's a good question. So let me answer it differently first. I get the question, Charlie, can I be a conservative?
Yes.
Of course you can. Yes. You're welcome aboard as long as you believe in natural law, liberty, and freedom. You believe in our core tenets. But I do not believe you can have a cogent conservative worldview or philosophy without at least first theism, and definitely without some sort of biblical view. You can. Because
You can't. Hold on. I have a lot to say. We just getting started, bro. We just getting started. You can't have a worldview without biblicism or Christianity. You cannot have a worldview without Christianity or biblicism. I disagree. If you want to get really, really technical, what is your definition of worldview, Charlie Kirk? And then what is your definition of worldview? Because it's just like, okay, let's define what a worldview is. Does this other thing fall into that definition? Like I feel like you're special pleading at the point where it's like, nope, every single other worldview is not a worldview because it's not. It's like, so Judaism isn't a worldview, or oh well, there's a lot of overlap between. Okay, so Islam isn't a worldview. Hinduism isn't a worldview. Buddhism isn't a worldview. So all of these other things are not worldviews because it doesn't have the Bible in it. It doesn't have Christianity. That's what makes it not a worldview. That and only that. I didn't hear anything else like, oh well, Christianity and this other thing. Nope, just as long as it's not Christian, it's not actually a worldview. Jesus, what a statement. How stupid is that? Shit, hold up. Stupid.
you're always going to be deriving it back to what standard, what moral worldview, what basis. Now, said differently, you can be an atheist. You're an atheist here tonight. God bless you. Glad you're here. And no, seriously, I mean that. And you can believe everything that I believe politically. I would just probably say you derived it from a theistic Christian worldview, if that makes sense. So do I think they're linked together? So let me say this. I think if you are a Bible-believing Christian, you should be a conservative as well. Conservative, the good, the true.
Yeah, you can't say that either. Well, if you do have type of morals, it must come from the Bible anyway. It's like, that's bullshit. Way to cover your fucking bases. Like, if you disagree with me, it's not even a real worldview that you can ground in reality. But on anything that your quote worldview does lead you to that I agree with, you just got it from Christianity. Okay, how fucking dishonest.
True and the beautiful, protecting the vulnerable, those that can't protect themselves, using strength to protect the weak, not the strength to crush the weak, all these things that conservatives believe. At the same time, I do believe in a movement that is not only for Christians, because we live in a pluralistic society of differences of opinions. I'm always going to own the fact that I'm a Christian, as evidenced by inviting Frank right up, to just witness for you at the beginning. He did a great job, didn't he? That was great. He really did. But it is a movement where we are trying to fight for liberty. You might think liberty is just an accident of evolution. I think liberty is God's idea, not man's idea. Does that answer your question? Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, so honestly, I just wanted to ask how your wife and baby are doing.
Thank you. That's very kind. Baby is 9 weeks today, praise God, and we're very happy. She's doing wonderful. Thank you. I think they're watching right now. So, and it changes your life in every way possible. Highly recommend. 10 out of 10. You should do it. So, God bless you. Thank you.
Hi. To address your previous assertion that race means nothing, critical race theory is not being taught in schools. It is a academic theory that's pretty much delegated only to higher academia. They're not teaching it in schools. Your explanation of it was an oversimplification. You address the real history behind it, unlike most people. And why, if race means nothing, does it affect our history? Say 1921 Tulsa Race Massacre. Why is there such evil history with something that supposedly means nothing?
Okay, so first of all, you're wrong. It is being taught in elementary schools. I'll give you an example. Not only is it being taught, it's being enforced. So in Denver.
Oh, okay. I don't know any of them. I mean, he could be completely correct. But when I hear not only is it being taught, it's being enforced. First of all, what does that mean? He'll probably get into it, but what does that mean? It's not being taught. Not only is it being taught, like, first of all, what is critical race theory? Understand, looking through the lens of history and events and experiences of peoples, and governments and cultures with a lens on how race was a factor involved. There are different types of critical theories. There's like for class, like how does money be involved? You could argue that, excuse me, class race theory, critical class theory could explain why back in the early days of the United States, only the wealthy were able to vote. And it actually took some fighting to get the common man. I don't think it was until President Jackson that was the case, because he started from the bottom. Now he's here, right? So I feel like you need to say more than just they're teaching critical race theory. It doesn't tell you anything unless you're saying every single thing that could be learned from critical race theory is bad. Which, just tell me you're partisan without saying so.
There is a playground where they say white families not allowed. Would you support that?
That seems like a ridiculous edge case.
So,
No.
for another example, actually in the National Education Association's
that.
training manual, which is the largest teacher union in the country, they had a seminar on how to teach critical race theory to kids. That sounds like it's in our schools, doesn't it?
What that is it's literally just common sense. It's saying that this is real history. This is what is happening.
Wait, hold on.
That
What?
sounds like it's in our school association. Would you support that?
That seems like a ridiculous edge case.
So I'll give you another example. Actually, in the National Education Association's training manual, which is the largest teacher union in the country, they had a seminar on how to teach critical race theory to kids. That sounds like it's in our schools, doesn't it?
What that is it's literally just common sense. It's saying that this
They had a seminar on how to teach critical race theory to kids. Let's say you wanted to teach kids to not do drugs. If you held a seminar on teaching kids how to not do drugs, yeah, okay, hold on, yeah. I'll focus on that later. If you want to hold a hearing or a committee or whatever, or a council on teaching kids not to do drugs, are you enforcing it? I suppose so, but that still doesn't tell you that it's wrong or that it's right, or doesn't tell you anything. It's just there's an effort to all you're saying so far. There's an effort to get this taught. That's all you're saying.
this is real history. This is what has happened in the past.
Wait, so
that matters.
Okay, got it. So, for example, would you say that black-only dormitories is wrong?
It certainly creates a sense of community. I don't see any problem with that. We have sororities. We have male-only dorms.
Right. So racial differences are irrelevant and immaterial. Chromosomal differences actually do matter. But let me ask you a question. Are there differences between races?
No, not biologically.
Then why would we have different dormitories for races?
Culture.
Segregation is what you're arguing for, my friend.
No, sir.
How is it not segregation?
I guess if you're okay, sure. How about this? Let's say even then, segregation doesn't tell you if something is bad or not. I hate like what Charlie. I'm sorry. Maybe I'm sitting here thinking you should be smarter than this. You need to explain why the segregation is wrong. Like for example, if there's a because you agree with segregation in other areas. How would you feel about a trans person walking into the wrong bathroom? You would be furious with that. Okay, so on the basis of sex, you are in favor of segregation. So you would say, yes, I am in favor. Okay, so segregation in and of itself doesn't tell you if something is wrong or not. But you're not going to talk about that. You're not going to have the deep conversation and actually enlighten young minds. You're not here for that, are you?
Segregation to have blacks in their own dorm.
You've
Stupid as fuck.
You've essentially just like You've distracted from my original argument.
No, you did that to yourself. Let's reemphasize. So Ibram X. Kendi argues, who is one of the leading thinkers of critical theory, race theory, discrimination today to atone for discrimination of yesterday. We have black-only graduation ceremonies at Columbia University, black-only dormitories across the country, for example, at Western Washington University. Can you join me?
Even that idea, discrimination of yesterday. So now the answer is discrimination of today. In what way? If we found out there was a whole bunch of green people that we just stabbed every Wednesday for no fucking reason, and then we're like, hey, you know what? We're just gonna do like people who are green people. We're just gonna waive 20% of their medical issues or medical bills for the next 100 years or something. It is a racial way to do it, but is it wrong? Is it to compensate for a wrong that was specifically targeted against a certain race? Are these the questions that Charlie's going to bring up, or is he just going to go down a conservative talking point?
Me today and saying black-only dormitories are evil, wrong, and it's segregation.
You still haven't answered my question about why does this history simultaneously mean nothing?
Well, I'm happy to answer that, but the fact you're dodging segregation in America, why is that?
I'm arguing against segregation.
So you're against black-only dormitories?
Yes.
Well, you said it was a force of community, and then you're not for critical race theory.
That's an option. We have choice.
Oh, so you could choose to segregate.
That's a pigeonhole.
What do you think of white-only dormitories?
What?
Would you support white-only dormitories?
Everybody has a choice.
So I think white-only and black-only anything is evil and wrong. That's why I hate critical theory and critical race theory, because when it's put in practice, you start to discriminate people based on.
It doesn't have to be. So you're saying because when something is put into practice, that because it has negative outcomes when it's put into practice, that learning about it, period, must be wrong. Okay, so I shouldn't learn about murderers, I shouldn't learn about rape, I shouldn't learn about thieves, I shouldn't learn about anything bad, because that must mean I'm in some way enforcing it. The fuck?
Race. So we're now south of the Mason-Dixon line in North Carolina. We did a lot of work to get rid of segregation in this country. Why are you trying to bring it back?
What work?
The Civil Rights Act of 1964.
In this state?
I'm sorry, maybe I'm in the mood today. I'm acknowledging I'm running down every single point of why are you trying to bring it back? Has this person said that specifically at all? Has this person said, yeah, I want to bring it back? He literally agreed with you and said, I disagree with black-only dormitories, whatever. He said that, and then for you to you're not listening to him now. You can't be. You have to be pushing an agenda at this point, because he said, yeah, I think that's also bad. I disagree. And then you go, why are you trying to bring it back? It's just obviously you can't be listening to this person. You can't be listening to this person at this point. You're not here to have a conversation.
Yeah, actually, in this state. Are there black-only bathrooms out there I'm unaware of, or white-only bathrooms?
Nah.
Right. A lot of work was done in the state.
Fuck you, your face is small.
Well, thanks for being here. They always do insults when they lose the argument. God bless you, my friend.
Your face is small.
I don't have an edgy race question.
Okay.
But my question
Your
is,
face is
63% of
small.
Americans are living paycheck to paycheck, not even able to afford a
Why?
home, car, or even basic necessities. When wages have only increased 15% since 1965, while the cost of a home has increased 118%, how does free market neoliberal capitalism address these issues when free market capitalism breeds these very issues?
So I probably agree with part of that. I would reject the neoliberal because I'm not a neoliberal. I believe
The economy is neoliberal. You're not neoliberal.
Well, no, actually, the economy is partially neoliberal. So you
How is it not neoliberal?
part of our trade policies have recently.
Yes, we're globalists. We are globalized. We embrace.
Jesus, bro, let Charlie at least answer the question. Jesus Christ.
You're getting way out of yourself, dude. You're like a 10. You got to slow down to like a 6.
Okay, I'm here. I'm talking. Listening.
Okay, good. All right, so how would free market capitalism fix part of this? Well, the answer is that there are externalities of free market capitalism. Markets should serve people. People should not serve markets. I would say generally some of the facts that you cite are totally correct. I talked about the destruction of the American middle class. Some of that can be attributed to bad government policy. Hopefully you and I can agree that the government being able to create money out of thin air crushes the American middle class and creates a tax called inflation, where every single working person in this room is 1 month poor despite working harder this year. That is because of government, not because of free market capitalism, that inflation is running out of control. We spend $5 trillion we don't have on pet projects that were silly and awful and terrible. To your point, though, I actually can agree, and I'm not a neoliberal, is I actually think that our economic policy needs to be done prudently, not ideologically, in the sense that we should make more stuff here, we should protect the muscular class, we need to have our own industrial base, immigration should serve the American citizen, both legal, and we should have no illegal immigration, we should have
Wait, hold on. Did you say, hold on, before I respond? You said a lot there.
harder this year. That is because of government, not because of free market capitalism, that inflation is running out of control. We spend $5 trillion we don't have on pet projects that were silly and awful and terrible. To your point, though, and I actually can agree, and I'm not a neoliberal, is I actually think that our economic policy needs to be done prudently, not ideologically, in the sense that we should make more stuff here, we should protect.
We should make more stuff here. That's the thing, though. That sounds good, but let's say I'm manufacturing iPhones, and it takes me $2 to create an iPhone in Mexico, and $1,000 to make an iPhone in the United States. But it only takes me $200 to ship an iPhone to the United States from Mexico. I'm going to build my iPhones in Mexico to save money. That is capitalism. So your first point does not address this guy's question at all. It just sounds good. Next point.
The muscular class. We need to have our own industrial base. Immigration should serve the American citizen, both legal and we should have no illegal immigration. We should have a moratorium.
Well, explain to me why there hasn't been any for the last, I don't know, decades. I've heard about how terrible immigration is, and no one has come up with a solution to it. You're telling me a huge problem, and this is a problem that Republicans have been talking about for the longest time. Immigration is a problem. Immigration is a problem. Immigration is a problem. You're telling me Republicans, y'all haven't? It's taken y'all what? The biggest immigration acts were back in the '60s. It's taken y'all about 60 years to pass. It took y'all 6 decades to pass something as far as immigration. Y'all just couldn't do it that whole time, or is it the same excuse Democrats have? Well, Republicans are the ones that are in the way. It seems like laws can't get passed to help people because there's always somebody in the way. I'm getting tired of hearing that excuse from both sides. So there's somebody in the way. There's somebody in the way. There's somebody in the way. It sounds like it's.
On legal immigration until wages go up and American workers and students are put first and given a preference. But I would say this though, there are some market forces that could be generally really good, okay? And just throwing away all markets in kind of one sentence and just kind of dismissing it, I think would be a catastrophic mistake. I'll give you some examples.
I'm not anti-market.
Okay, good. I'm glad you clarified that. But I'd say that generally the ability to be able to trade across state lines for small businesses to start new products, for family-owned business to pass down one family to the other without these crazy taxes and estate taxes, these are things I would support. Does that answer your question a little bit?
Yeah, but that's not free market capitalism then.
Okay, well, it depends how you define it, right? So do you mean laissez-faire, no government interference?
It doesn't have to be laissez-faire. It's just that's not free market if you're only restricting jobs to America. It's not free market.
Okay, well, actually it is, because Adam Smith, the author of Wealth of Nations, is a protectionist. Abraham Lincoln was a protectionist. Okay. So the original free market thinkers of the 1700s and 1800s, including Alexander Hamilton, they were free markets, but they were also nationalists. They wanted their country to be able to thrive and succeed because markets should serve people in the country. People in the country should not serve markets. So that's my position economically. Markets are a general good for society. We should only intervene prudently when we see externalities that start to harm people or wages go down or there are results that we don't like in that regard. Thank you for your question and thanks for being here tonight.
Hey Charlie, first of all, I wanted to say thank you for being here tonight. Thank you for speaking, and thank you for giving other people a chance to speak. The question I wanted to ask was actually on something you said earlier. How you said the question of hierarchy is not necessarily that to get rid of elites, but to just have better elites. The argument I would counter, I just want to know your thoughts, is the way I see hierarchy is you can have terrible people at the top, theoretically, people that are working in their own best interest, people that are corrupt, and yes, that will affect the people at the bottom. But the way I've always seen hierarchy, especially in America and some of the stuff I see today, kind of goes back to what he said with low wages. I'm sorry, I'm rambling. What is your opinion on the idea that hierarchy should be designed more so around just making sure the people at the bottom benefit, regardless of whether or not the elites are necessarily corrupt?
Well, yeah, that's a nice goal, but that didn't really work well in the 20th century.
Well, I was gonna comment on that, in that some of the most prosperous points of America, a lot of people like to think back to it. Things like the 60s and 70s.
Sure.
You had a very corrupt American elite. You had an American elite that was starting foreign wars. That was after World War II with the defense industry.
I would disagree. I think Eisenhower was a pretty ethical president compared to the gang of criminals we deal with now.
I'm not saying an individual president can't be a non-ethical person.
Yeah, but would you agree the 50s economic policy was more focused on the middle class than the lower class, right? Because it was about an industrial base. It was about making stuff here abroad. It was about having trade policies that allowed us to be able to flourish and succeed. So the question, you're always going to have, you agree, we're always going to have hierarchies.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, unavoidable.
Yeah, okay, good. Because pure Marxists would say we.
Yeah, but I feel like at the time it's just I don't understand people that can't view time. Why can't you view time as far as back then in the 60s, 70s, Europe was destroyed in World War II. They had to take time. It takes time to rebuild shit, right? So throughout the late 40s, where you're so clean, you're not even building in the late 40s at this point. You're cleaning up the trash that was left over from World War II. So in the 40s, I'm not even going to count the 40s, the 50s and 60s, you're probably just building things back up in that part of the world. You're building things back up. You're not at a state to where you can run your economy in a way to where we're producing you can only do one huge thing at a time. So you can't manufacture all these products and then at the same time rebuild the factories that were bombed, rebuild the infrastructure, all of that takes so much time that the only country in the world that's strong and powerful enough and has a decent enough economy that's not destroyed after World War II to continue to do stuff is going to be United States of America. It's not surprising that throughout the 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, the dollar is going to be strong. Economies are going to grow and expand. We're going to be we're emerging as the world. Well, I think at that point we probably already were a world superpower. But now, the solidification of us as like the number one spot on the world is what's happening. We're not in those times anymore. So like to be like, oh well, I want to go back to the things of the 60s, 70s, and 80s. Well, the rest of the, even if you go back, the rest of the world that was around at the time isn't. It's not like it's like you like the decisions they have to make open up doors for the United States back then that allowed them to flourish in a way that we've never seen before. Now that those doors are closed, you cannot expect the United States to be able to do the same things they did in the past. That's what I'm saying.
Eventually can get rid of them. I think that's woefully utopian. But the question is then, when you design a system, who should it serve? Aristotle would argue the middle class is everything. I totally agree, right? It's the people that don't commit crimes, they pay their taxes, right? They're not going to get fabulously wealthy in their lifetime, but they should be able to have a commitment to retirement, see their life improve, their kids should be able to get well educated and live a nice and normal life, and the society should be stabilized around that, right? When that middle class disappears and you got a permanent government addicted class too much on the bottom, or you get too much of an oligarchy on top, then I think the entire system starts to shatter. So I think we're saying the same things in some ways, but my argument is that you're always going to have hierarchies, and I would love to be able to see leaders in the top of the hierarchy, the billionaire class, if you will, pander less to the needs, wants, and interests of some esoteric climate change propaganda from the World Economic Forum, and instead say, hey, I have a lot of money, how am I going to use that money to benefit people's freedom and liberty and middle class potential, not trying to turn off our energy supremacy or superiority, which is the dumbest thing and actually hurts middle income Americans and make your energy bills even more expensive, if that makes sense.
So I guess you would probably agree then that kind of the difference between the 50s and now is that the middle class has kind of been ground down on the
intentionally, I think.
Okay.
I think it's the right thing.
too.
The policy, I think Wall Street's taken over our government, but also I will say this, I don't agree with libertarians on a lot of stuff, but they are totally right on monetary policy.
Absolutely.
Our monetary policy has been a robbery campaign of the American middle class, of destroying the American dollar, of depleting our purchasing power since the 1950s. So for example, in the 1950s, your dollar just went further than it does now. It did. And that destroys middle income earners and is a rigged game against working people. That gets the next question. Thank you, appreciate it.
What's up? So my question is, given that 97% of scientists agree that man-made climate change exists and that it will cause negative impact in our lifetime, from more severe storms to droughts, how do you as a conservative deal with that fact, and what do you want to do to address it?
Sure, I'm really curious about the 3%, aren't you?
Yeah, I guess like, I don't know, like 3% of people think that they can fly, but they can't. You know?
But it's 3% of scientists. Why do they think it's not anthropogenic?
I don't think about the 3%, I think about the 97%.
Is science
Just like how
democracy?
we think about, 97% of people who are struggling day to day. We don't think about the 1%.
Well, hold on. That's not the way science works. We take an up or down vote on Newtonian physics. Just who thinks force equals mass times acceleration? It's irrelevant because we can prove it.
Yeah, but there's still like 2% of scientists that are probably nuts who don't agree with that, right?
No.
No? I mean, if we poll them, we can always find a nut. Why do we have to...
You think 2% of American physicists would say that force does not equal mass times acceleration, or would reject it?
Okay, I wonder if this would see when Charlie is making this argument. He's literally saying, as long as his argument is, as long as there are some sciences that agrees or disagrees with the prevailing narrative, I can go along with that scientist. Okay, two questions, Charlie. If 97 or 98% of scientists said gender and sex are, linked, but they're not the same thing, and that gender is an entirely different thing, that it is real within people's bodies, and there can be differences between that, would you accept that? If your answer is no, then shut the fuck up. Let's say there were 97% of scientists, 98% of scientists that said that no, gender is not a real thing. It's all just like social and environment stuff. There's only men and women, but 2 or 3% of scientists said that that gender was a real thing, irrespective of what your sex is. Would you be like, oh well, 2 or 3% said it, then I must agree with, we would have to acknowledge that. Would you do the same thing? I don't think you would. So I don't understand what this argument is. It's incredibly dishonest. Finding 2 to 3% of the scientists that agree with you, and then say, if you took that approach to everything, at the very least it would be consistent, and I could understand it. But if you're just like, I don't think you're I don't think you're going to do that, because most people don't. It's not anything against you. Most people don't have that level of intellectual integrity.
Newtonian physics or the second law of thermodynamics?
2 or 3% of people think that they can fly. They're
not scientists.
insane.
And I don't think 2 or 3% of people think they can fly. I don't think that's exactly right. The point is this: science is not a democracy, is it?
No, absolutely not. So where do you think that 97% comes from?
Well, first of all, the study is flawed in itself. It's government funded. It's way overquoted. Let's pretend it's right, though. Okay, you go through this. People are incentivized to come to certain conclusions. But I'm fascinated by the 3%. The 3%, the 2%, the 1%, the dissenter in science is always given a platform. That's what the scientific method is all about. In fact, prior to Galileo, we thought that the Earth was the center of the universe, and then Galileo was like, no, actually, it's a heliocentric theory. You know what happened to Galileo? Try and put in prison out the pasture because he dared disagree with the status quo and the scholastic belief. History is not very kind to the overwhelming tyrannical nature of scientists that say 97% of us agree that lobotomies work, until we realize they don't. Now, you might be right, might be man-made, might be anthropogenic, but that 3% has a lot of credence. You should look at them. Read their...
And as long as you're consistent with this, that's my biggest thing. As long as you're consistent. If you want to take the approach, well, science is wrong sometimes, fine. But when it comes to areas that you agree with, I hope you keep the same fucking energy and be like, well, I agree with this thing, but hey, science is wrong sometimes. Like, hell no, you would not fucking do that for everything that... I'm just not even going to listen to the rest of this part, because I'm already, you're dishonest. You don't have an argument. You don't have an argument. your argument could be, and if that's the case, why not cite the reasons? You're quoting, or not even quoting. You're relying on 2 to 3% of those scientists that say, well, hold on, it's not anthropogenic. What do they say? What are those 2 to 3 say? Well, the reason why it's not this is because X, Y, and Z, and that's the discrepancy. Until those points get debated, or at least until we find like a conclusion on those points, we can't say for sure. That's my position right now. We can't say for sure because these other 97% of scientists have not addressed these issues. That's how you target that argument. You don't say, well, 3% of them agree with me. So, who knows? Like, bro, you would not do that for anything else. You fucking dishonest piece of shit.
They're journals. They argue that there's thousands of other explanations for rising global temperatures other than just carbon emitted from human beings. Sunspots, global tilt, natural cooling and heating patterns, and just say it's all human beings all the time. Also, it begs the question, to what extent, what do you do about it, and what are you willing to then sacrifice?
So real quick, you can actually check charts online that show you the graphs of how sunspots tend to affect temperatures in the United States. Sunspots, volcanic eruptions, all this stuff, and all of it doesn't account for the amount of difference that we've seen recently. So what do you say to that?
Depends on what scientist you talk to. That's what
no, it's not the scientist, it's just the science itself. Like if you check graphs on any website.
So show me a single scientist that can tell me without a shadow of a doubt, empirically proven, that man-made carbon emissions is solely to blame, and to what blame, and what is the equation, and then what can we possibly do about it? So
solely to blame. Look at dude like loading like, hey, can you prove this very precise? Like, look at Joe like really like, yeah.
the question, right?
No, again, I'm not saying anyone is solely to blame. I'm just saying that humans are a big factor, and that's what most people
Define big. What's the number big?
I couldn't give you that exact
Well,
number.
then maybe we shouldn't shut down the entire economy and change our energy sector over a number we can't define.
Or maybe I'm just a call.
And now he's saying shut down the economy. Yeah, I don't know if I can listen to
Right?
this,
I mean,
bro.
we're talking about Europe.
So I
That's
can't
fine, but
take
then we're talking about shutting down
hacks.
Europe and having an entire green energy obsession.
I'm not saying that.
No. What you are saying is when you start engaging in green energy fantasy or climate change fanaticism, let me call it that, you're going to have serious ramifications. The United Kingdom could be a net energy exporter. Instead, this winter, they're going to have rolling blackouts. They're going to have people potentially dying from blizzards and from incredible cold. Why? Because they've had this entire green energy propaganda campaign that is making themselves intentionally poor because of a community of scientists that are saying we must shut ourselves down because anthropogenic, human-made, man-made cause climate change. Ask the question, wait a second. What if the premise itself is faulty? And by the way, 97% of scientists were also saying, yeah, the COVID vaccine is the best thing ever. Ivermectin is awful and terrible. So excuse me while I'm just the dissenting contrarian voice, which says the scientific community, whether it be in climate alarmism or in COVID vaccines or in epidemiology, I won't trust Anthony Fauci in epidemiology, nor will I trust his equivalent in climate change alarmism. In fact, I've grown accustomed to believe there's probably an agenda behind a lot of this stuff.
Yeah, for sure. You should never trust. For sure, you should never trust just one scientist, and that's what I'm saying. We should probably trust the 97% who say that.
I'm really glad science is not a democracy. Otherwise, we would be in a very dark place. Always listen to the dissenting voice. That 3% is well researched, it's in the minority, it's been suppressed, and that 97% figure.
Okay, yeah, would you say the same thing for like any science related to trans people? Would you even bring up these arguments? Would you even consider them? I don't know. I don't watch Charlie Kirk like that. But I have a hard time believing that would actually be the case. But hey, who the fuck am I, right?
Has been used now to really restrict Western energy dominance. It's making us poor and making the elite stronger because of it. Thank you for being here tonight. Appreciate it. Thanks.
Okay, I just wanted to real quick ask you, can you clarify your definition of critical race theory?
Yeah, Derek Bells. So he wrote 1991 Intro to Critical Race Theory. What's in that book?
The whole book is your definition.
How about this? The one I used. Call everything racist till you control it.
Oh, so wait, but then that literally means that critical race theory can mean basically anything you want to do, right? Like,
Only if you're calling it racist till you control it.
Exactly. You see how you understand how a basic question, hey, how do you define this thing that you're so against? This whole book. Bro, the whole book? Bro, you gotta give me something better than that. Oh, okay. Call anything racist until you can control it. You're not even engaging. You're not engaging. I might skip this video because I can't fucking do it. What I cannot stand are people who I feel so strongly against this thing. I feel really strongly about it. I swear to God I do. Can you define this thing that you're so against? No. I can't define. I'm so mad about it. I think it's destroying my country. But if you ask me to define it, I can't give you a fucking answer.
I mean, I'm defining critical race theory in the modern American context is that. We can go back to Herbert Marcuse, One-Dimensional Man, or Jacques Derrida, Michel Foucault, but the most agreed upon academic theory is Intro to Critical Race Theory, 1991 by Derek Bell.
Yeah. Wait, but
Are you familiar with that literature?
well, yeah, I read the book, but I don't remember anything about it. It was for like a college class. Like, let's be honest, nobody remembers the books they read in college.
Sounds like a great value proposition to go to college.
No, it is. Trust me. But like, well, but you didn't go to college, so I guess you wouldn't know.
It's true, I didn't.
So
let me ask you though, does that mean that I'm not able to have this conversation with you? Because I actually remember the book and you didn't. You paid for it.
This is why. There's another reason why I should get into. Why I shouldn't be watching grown men debate college students, because in a lot of ways, 18 to 22 You're still a child. Shit, I'm only 28. I'm still a child now, actually. Uh, it's just, you see how this just devolves into a dick waving contest? I do not give a fuck about that. Yeah, I just don't give a fuck about that. I don't give a fuck about none of that shit.
So, first of all, I didn't pay for it. There's these things called scholarships.
Oh, so somebody else paid for you not to remember the book that you're supposed to read. Oh, some wealthy donor attacked.
And okay, so you're against scholarships. You will remove all scholarships. That is that what you want to do? You want to remove all scholarships. That is, or are you just saying that to win a rhetorical point? Like, it might seem like I'm coming down on Charlie Harder, but it's just like, you're the one. This is your fucking job, bro. Your job is to research. Your job is to report. Your job is to be a pundit. This is your livelihood. I expect better from you, and you're a grown ass fucking man. These kids are 18 to 22. They're not kids. They're of legal, whatever the fuck, bro. If you wanna say that 18 to 22-year-olds are just grown ass adults that have like the full capability of all the decision making, sure, yeah, go right ahead and say that. Yeah, sure. Yeah, right. I guarantee you, for all these conservatives that have kids that are 18 to 22, I'm pretty sure they're not going to have this whole, they should understand 100% of every interaction they get and know 100, they should have like God consciousness when it comes to the ability to be able to determine and suss out and analyze a situation and be able to understand the full ramifications of everything going, like, that's like, yo, miss me with that shit, dude. Miss me with that shit.
Taxpayer paid for you to not remember the book.
I have a question. Who are your wealthy donors?
Many of them are in this room. Thank you guys for your wonderful support, by the way.
Interesting.
We have over 130,000 grassroots donors at Turning Point USA. 130,000.
So okay, so which is it? Do you like? Oh God, you're gonna acknowledge the. Well, I'm pausing too much. I'm never gonna get through this video. You're gonna say, yeah, I do have wealthy donors. Who gives a fuck? And then immediately pivot to the grassroots donors. It's kind of like you're saying, yeah, the thing that I wanted to criticize this other thing for, yeah, I have that too. But anyway, look at my grassroots support. It's just like, then why the fuck are you criticizing something that you benefit from? What is the... This is why I don't get involved, y'all. This retarded ass shit.
I think we have some people in the back that chip in $5, $10, $15. God bless you, God bless you, God bless you, God bless you, God bless you. We are a grassroots funded operation. But let me give you another example. I'll give you 5 things that critical race theory believes. Number 1, the notion that racism is ordinary and everywhere. Number 2, the idea of interest convergence, otherwise known as intersectionality. Number 3, the social construction of race, meaning that there is a social construction around race in our society. 4, idea of storytelling and counter storytelling. Number 5 is that no matter how hard you work, no matter how hard you do, you cannot remove racism from your society. Those are 5 pillars of critical race theory based on Derek Bell's intro to critical race theory. Does that ring a bell?
Yes, but like, okay, so let me stick with this. What do you think? Oh fuck.
We'll edit that out.
My turn. Oh my bad. Wait, am I not allowed to?
It's not encouraged.
Oh, okay, sorry. What was the third point? My mind is dying.
The social construction of race?
The social construction of race. Do you not think that race is at least partially socially constructed?
Depends how you define it.
So, like, what defines where one race ends and where one race begins?
Depends who you're asking. I think race is completely and totally irrelevant. Do you think race is relevant?
No.
Okay, then why are we talking about race all the time? Why are we talking about critical race theory?
Well, you brought it up at first when you were doing a speech.
Remember I said it was a lie from the pit of hell that we should repudiate and stop talking about all the time? You're on scholarship?
Sorry, what?
Nothing. Sorry, go ahead.
So, to answer your question, I don't think that race means anything, and I guess you don't either, right?
Yeah.
Right, so then
No.
why do you keep bringing up race whenever you're on stage? I am not speaking on a stage bringing up critical race theory. You are. So.
This is so... Oh, God, I'm so... The thing is, saying that race doesn't mean anything is a really convenient way to just, like, dismiss all the social cues and stuff and all the social learned behaviors about human beings. Race is actually absolutely real, and depending on where you go in the world, you will be treated differently. If you're a black person, if you're a darker skinned person in South America, Central America, the United States, in Europe, you're gonna experience, in Asia, you're gonna experience like more prejudice just because of that. If you're a white person in certain other countries where it might be way more brown people or black people, you might experience something. Where is this coming from that like we can't acknowledge that, yeah, people are fucked, and they do this. This is how people respond to race. And it's not a wokeism. That is not a left-right thing. That is how human beings. It's almost like saying I can't acknowledge that humans eat food because the left has talked about how food is like. Food should be like very like health oriented, so I'm not even going to acknowledge that food could play a part in how health works. It's just like it would be like that level of like I'm not going to acknowledge it. What happened to all the conservatives facts over your feelings shit? So it's not so if I go anywhere in the world, I would be treated like no, not even in the world. Let me be more accurate. If I go anywhere in the United States, my blackness will not have any impact on how I'm treated anywhere, is what you're saying. And I swear to God, the next answer is going to be, well, can you prove that your blackness was a... Shut the fuck up, bro. Shut the fuck up.
I'm bringing up how critical race theory destroys society, and how we shouldn't talk about race all the time.
When it comes to pretty privilege, and there are ugly people in the world, would you ever say to an ugly person, well, you can't prove that the person was treated better because they were pretty? Or do you just accept that one? Because that's not political. Because your side isn't fighting for that. Like, I might skip this video. How much longer do we got?
Okay, but you're bringing up race.
Critical race theory, not race.
Okay, so
shit, I might let this...
It's race, but it's a theory of how to view race, which is a mind virus pathogen destroying America, of which I said again, just to re-emphasize for those in the back, we could replay the tape. We throw the red...
A mind-destroying pathogen or something like that destroys a country. It's so... Why this language?
Flag. We'll watch it over again. I said that what? Race means nothing. I care about your actions, your character, and most importantly, your soul. Thank you for being here tonight.
Glad you do, Charlie. Tell all the other people to do that, and then we'll be at the place where you think we are.
So I'm not really asking much of a question, but I'm looking for advice. I want to run for Congress in a few years when I become of age. And I'm just wondering if you have any pointers or direction you can help guide me.
You should run. We need more young people to run. We have Turning Point Action, which is not represented here tonight, which is our political arm that would love to help you and train you and pour into you. It's an amazing organization that's doing such awesome things. Knock on more doors than your opponent. Have a message that resonates to voters. Respect your elders and talk to people that have been in politics for a while and listen to them. I don't like when young people run for office and they don't listen to people that have been around for a while. They've really cut their teeth. They've been through a lot. It's something that I had to learn the hard way early on. Really be like, okay, what did you learn through this? What happened in this cycle and all that? They have a lot of wisdom to pass down. And I think you're going to be very welcomed and well received as a younger candidate. I mean that.
Thank you.
God bless you. Thank you.
Hey, Charlie. My name is Dylan. I'm actually the president of the chapter at University of South Carolina. So I was actually at CLS this summer, where you said chapters change the world, and I wholeheartedly agree with that. I was just asking you, so we had our fall semester come by, it's October now, and we had a big crop of freshmen come in the beginning, but little by little, some peter out and some stop showing up. So how would you sustain, what would be your advice on sustaining membership?
Yeah, just have events, be publicly out there. I'm always trying to invite dialogue and discussion. And look, our Turning Point USA chapter deserves a lot of credit for what they've done here tonight. You guys do such a great job. I was just there a year and a half ago, 2 years ago, 3 years ago. I can't remember, everything's a blur post 2020. It all just kind of comes as a blur. But you guys stay engaged, you gotta make it interesting, and then try to invite as many speakers as you can to campus, and then everyone loves a good debate. When you're looking for something to do, try to have a debate. Dialogue, disagreement is always the best thing you can do.
And we'd love to have you back.
Okay. I'll put it on the list. I went to Clemson last year, so I got a tone for that, right?
Sounds,
so
yes.
I know you're shocked.
Hey.
I won't do that again anytime
We're
soon.
gonna beat them this year. We are. Mark my words.
Hold on. What the hell?
Hello. I just want you to answer this one question. Do you understand that as a white man, you do not have to apologize for being white? You just have to acknowledge the racism that happens around you. That is all.
What racism happens around me?
Jesus
let's
Christ.
say that a racist police officer
y'all. I'm
shoots
sorry,
me,
I just realized the game wasn't on here.
For you to be a white man and you see that and don't say anything about it, I believe that my community would be upset about that. Now, all you have to do as a white man, you don't have to get on the internet or on Twitter and say, I'm sorry for being white, but you should at least acknowledge the racism that happens around you.
Okay, well, yeah, if an individual act of racism happens.
That is just taking accountability for what happens around
Hold on a second. First of all, I don't have to be accountability for a whole race, do I? Why do I have to be accountable for the white race?
For yourself.
Right, so I'm racist, I'll take responsibility for
You
that.
probably are not racist.
Well, thank you. So then why do I have to comment on somebody else's racism?
But what you should do is take accountability for the racism around you. Not pretend that it doesn't happen around you. Like, again, the example I gave, if I was shot by a police officer and you found out that person was racist, right?
Yeah,
now,
just
How
force
can I take responsibility for somebody else's
what you
actions?
should do is just take accountability and say, hey, yes, that was racist, instead of saying, no, that officer wasn't racist.
Well, hold on. You gotta show me an instance and example, but we're talking about such a micro problem that doesn't exist. Do you know that a black person is 18 and a half times more likely to shoot and kill a police officer than a police officer is to go and shoot an unarmed black man?
But is that the question that I asked you?
No, you asked a hypothetical about if I'm going to take accountability for a racist police officer.
So again,
but I mean, do you understand? If I inverted on you, would you take accountability for the blacks killing police in America?
That was funny.
No, would you? No, why don't you take accountability for the blacks killing police in New York?
I wouldn't take accountability for it, but what I would say is, yes, there are a lot of black people in my community who do dumb things to other black people and to other white people. What I would not do is just pretend that it doesn't happen. So that, like I said, you as a white man has to do the same thing.
I acknowledge it happens. I also acknowledge it's rarer than lightning striking you when you're outside.
That's it.
But let me ask you, who is Tony Timpa?
That's all I wanted you to do. Thank you.
I acknowledge it's rare, and I'm not going to have to take responsibility for an entire race at all. It's wrong and it's terrible. I wish we could have continued the conversation. Hello, how are you?
Okay, sorry. I would like to say thank you for coming to UNC Charlotte. I do have a question about you about cannabis. You probably don't get many questions about cannabis. So I would like to ask you about your stance on cannabis and then follow up with a following question.
Probably in the past overly policed, but should not be legalized.
Should not be legalized. And is it what is the reasons why you don't believe or you believe it should stay illegal?
You know, so we have an overwhelming amount of data to show when it's legalized, states get more dangerous, it gets messier, more homelessness, more vagrancy, more overdoses, more kids going on drugs, more heroin overdoses. It is a gateway drug, regardless of what people say. It's laced with chemicals, with fentanyl, with hallucinogenics. Colorado went from the 10th in carjackings to first in carjackings, fourth in arson to first in arson, third in rape to the second in rape. I mean, I could go.
I wonder, and this is the answer that, this is the answer that every conservative gives when asked this question. The question is gonna be, when it comes to guns, it doesn't matter how many negatives there are. It is your right, and they won't even have the conversation. So I wonder if every conservative that has, or every person that has a disagreement with having weed legal, as long as it was a right to be able to smoke weed, all of your issues with it, you'd be like, oh, well, it's all right. I can't say shit no more. You would just stop arguing immediately. There would be no arguments against it whatsoever anymore. I doubt that. And number two, there's another area where conservatives are in agreement that the federal government should have more power. The federal government should have the power to tell you what you cannot put in your body. This is one of the areas where don't let them fool you. Be like, well, I hate big government. I want smaller government. I want smaller government. Unless it comes to drugs. And that's one area where they don't give a fuck about big government at all.
Go through every statistic. Every state that has legalized weed has seen more crime, more vagrancy, more dropouts, more kids on the social outcast of society.
Would you say that when you legalize marijuana, you can see the lab tests, you can see all the toxic chemicals inside of the cannabis plant, you can see how much THC is in there, how much CBD, what terpenes, if it has limonene, pinene, myrcene. There's a lot of cannabinoids inside.
Sounds
of
terrible.
No. It's actually quite unique because there are different strains with different types of benefits. Some people take it recreationally, some people take it for medical purposes. So why not we legalize it so it's safer for our community, so people know what they're consuming, and also we take marijuana off of the schedule. The drug, yes.
Make it federally legal.
Federally legal.
Let me ask you this. So you say, why not? Can you give me an example of any state that has legalized weed and it's gotten safer?
And it's gotten safer? So my knowledge is basically based on, not necessarily, my question is not basically about about that statistics, but
you
based
said safer. I mean, that would be probably critical,
well,
right?
safer in terms of consumption, in terms of what you're consuming. If it has toxic chemicals.
Yeah, but guess what? You know, people still buy illegal weed despite the fact there's weed dispensaries on the corner in Vegas and in Denver. You don't get rid of the illegal drug market. You only enhance them to go to harder drugs and things they can't get in the store itself. There's more drug use in America than ever before, and we've legalized more drugs than ever before. It's been the great failure of the drug project the last 10 years. Every promise they've made is wrong. Oh, it's gonna weaken the cartels. No, it's not. They're stronger than ever. Oh, we got this drug revenue. Actually, not really. There's more need for revenue because of the services that we can't even facilitate because of all the drugs. Or how about this one? They're like, oh yeah, it's better because kids are passing drugs in school. Yeah, now they're passing fentanyl in school, no longer weed in school. And so not only that, the crime, the vagrancy, the homelessness, the defecation, everywhere it's legalized has gotten more dangerous. Period. So why do we want to bring that to our communities?
So it's not so that's not what I'm asking. That's not what I was basically talking about here. What I'm talking about is basically the consumption of the safetiness of people who consume cannabis, and also there are lots of good benefits too in terms of there are a lot of good terpenes in terms of limonene, also pinene. Actually,
yeah, can I ask, when was the last time you did weed, man?
Huh?
When was the last time you did weed?
Well, I may not answer that question.
Yeah, I think rather recently.
Hey. Well,
first of all, that's not even an argument, dude. That's not a. Hey, instead of engaging with the positives of the argument I'm making, you're just gonna ask me if I smoke weed myself. Bro, I might skip this video. It is incredibly dishonest at every fucking level.
Thank you for being a walking commercial to not do drugs. Thank you for being
here. It's so dishonest, bro.
Don't do hard drugs.
It's fucking wild.
I know you were all thinking it too. It was dishonest. I could feel it. All right.
Why am I listening to this shit, bro?
I would love to be in your field one day, kind of doing what you do, as well as the other guy that was talking about running for office. I think that one thing that makes it very difficult a lot of times is that we live in a society that doesn't promote doing things differently. Like, you didn't go to college, and you're very adamant against the college scam. But as well as different aspects, as we live in a world that is just very aggressive towards a lot of those different things. And like for me as a high school, the last steps I take, to kind of get in that field, whether it be doing council meetings or doing podcasts, different things like that. What would you say that whether it be a piece of literature or maybe social networking cues to pick up on that would really enhance, maybe not enhance, but help you kind of beat that system?
Yeah, so look, you're talking about how to get into politics, basically, right? In some ways.
Yeah, socially.
Here's the cool thing about politics: it's meritocracy. You show up early, you stay late, you're gonna get rewarded. And I know there's some people running for office here tonight. Glad you guys are here. They're always looking for volunteers. They're always looking for people to help them. They're looking for people to show up early on Saturday to go knock on doors. Be eager and willing. So, the kind of overgeneralized story of Turning Point USA mentioned that in high school I knocked on 100,000 doors for some candidates in Illinois. That's got Tucker routine, right? You got to knock on doors. You got to make phone calls. You got to get in the grassroots. And in politics, the cool thing is no one cares about the school. No one cares your degrees. No one cares about that stuff. They care about how much work you put in. That's the best advice I can give. You will move up so quickly in politics if you get in early, stay late, and don't complain. Those three things. Get in early, stay late, and don't complain. That's the best piece of advice I have for you. Thank you.
Which is clearly not what you want.
And if you disagree, you guys can get preference on
There
our
are
Hi, good evening. First of all, thank you for saying yes to the call to action.
but that's going to significantly compromise your video quality. Sure. If you do not have those under sources, you can go ahead and click add, and then you can display capture, or you can add game capture. Then there's the video capture. All right, so what we'll first do is right click on display capture. And then the positional alignment is top left. Right now we have no bounds. So what we want to do is select alignment, and bounding box should be the center. The bounding box size is 1366 by 768. That sounds about right. We close out of that, and we'll go to game capture. For bounding box type, we want to always stretch to bounds. And then video capture device will transform, edit transform, and then we stretch to bounds. All right, guys, thank you so much for watching this video, and have a wonderful day.
Jesus. I'm gonna figure this shit out. Hold on. That's not gonna work. How do you do this? This is so stupid. Why is this? There we go. Jesus. Stretch to screen, apparently. Okay. I figured it out. Stretch to screen is what I need. God damn. I'm so sick of this, Charlie. I might skip. Yeah, you know what? I'm gonna skip this because this is so fucking retarded. It's so dishonest that
I'm gonna go brother right here.
can't
You know
make
who's
it
the advocate,
through
and he
the
says that you can be pro-black and outside.
Impossible. You cannot. Marriage is a business. When you get married, you commit your mind, your body, your heart, your soul, and your pocketbook, your savings, your estate, your wealth. You commit that to that person you're married to. See, when you marry, you don't marry an individual. You marry into a race. You marry into a community. So I didn't marry a Jewish woman. I married into Jewish society. I didn't marry an Asian woman. I married into an Asian family. There's no way you can claim to love black people, especially as a black man, knowing that only 1 out of every 4 black women will get married in her lifetime. We have the lowest female marriage rate in the country, 25%. That means 75% of black women will never ever know what it feels like to be proposed to.
Okay. Jesus.
All right, welcome back to another episode of Daily Wrap Up Crew. No booker, by go by the name of Eli. As always, we got Ace with us.
Yes, indeed, you know who it is. It's the only podcast that's relevant. We got Umar on the show. It's Black Excellence, you know what I mean?
Okay, I respect that. Last but not least, we got Jew.
What to do? I'm here with my crew, Dr. Umar too. And if you don't like, share, subscribe, 100 lashes for you. You know what I'm saying?
Yo, I keep prepared. Y'all was brainstorming.
I had to rank today. You know, Umar's pulled up.
Listen, we got special guests in the building. We got the Prince of Pan-Africanism, King Kong Consciousness. See, I know the man, man. Dr. Umar Johnson.
Glad to be here, fellas. Thanks for inviting me.
And real quick, can you let the folks know that sleeping under a rock that might not know who you are?
Absolutely. Dr. Umar Ifatunde, certified school psychologist, doctor of clinical psychology, founder of the National Independent Black Parent Association, Team Pan-African, the international movement for the independence and protection of African people. I'm probably most known for helping black parents learn how to protect their children from the special education crisis in the ADHD to prison pipeline. Author of 2 books, Psychoacademic Holocaust of Special Education and ADHD Wars Against Black Boys, as well as Black Parent Advocate, The Art of War for dealing with America's public and charter schools. I'm also a Pan-Africanist, a Garveyite, and I'm currently putting the finishing touches on the first school in American history to be funded exclusively by the African diaspora, and that is the Frederick Douglass and Marcus Garvey Academy. If all goes well, we'll probably be having our community grand opening during Kwanzaa 2023.
Listen, before we get into these topics, you gotta make sure you get an invite, man, so we can pull up.
For sure.
Before we get into these topics, make sure you hit that like button, subscribe if you're not already subscribed, join the YouTube membership, man. We got some exclusive behind the scenes footage, access to early
early episodes. And they cop the merch, man. DailyRapUpCrew.co. Make sure I go support. Listen, let me get to this first. I got no shirt for me. Oh, definitely do. Definitely do. Like something no bra. I told you. See, I did. I appreciate it. Listen, get to this first topic, right? I know you're very big with the Pan-African community. What is your ultimate goal that you have in mind for the overall Pan-African community? Great question. The vision, the mission, the goal of Pan-Africanism is to unite all African people globally into one unified and organized system through which we can protect ourselves politically, economically, socially, culturally, spiritually, academically, so forth and so on. So unity is the foundation, and independence is the elevation. That's the goal of Pan-Africanism, to make sure African people are not dependent upon members of other races in order to protect our lifestyle, our culture, and most of all, the destiny of our children. Do for self is the heart and soul of Pan-Africanism. So when we win, we will be in charge of our lives. We will control the banks. We will control the hospitals. We will control the criminal justice system. We will control the economy. We basically want a parallel world that is under our authority, because whoever controls your institutions controls your life. Got you. So a big word that I heard was unity, right? So what is your overall thoughts? Obviously, you can see that we have this gender war going on, this diaspora war going on. What's your thoughts on those overall wars that's going on within the Pan-African community? I would not be surprised if we learned 20, 30 years from now that the domestic gender war was inspired by the FBI, just as the FBI gave birth to COINTELPRO back in the 70s and 60s to disrupt and destroy the credibility and success of black liberation movements. I could very well see where COINTELPRO or something similar to it could have also been invented to turn the black woman against the black man and the black man against the black woman. If you look at this, it looks just like COINTELPRO, except it's not Stokely Carmichael fighting Huey P. Newton. It's not Dr. King, and Malcolm having differences. You understand? It's you and your baby's mother having differences. It's you and your fiance having differences. It's you and your wife having differences. And the family is an institution, no different than SNCC, no different than CORE, no different than the Pirate Panthers, no different than the Garvey movement, no different than the Freedom Riders. So I'm keeping an eye on it, but I really do believe that at some point we're going to find out that the U.S. government had a hand in the gender wars and the promotion of it, because I don't think it's a coincidence that this black male versus black female gender war is being initiated at the very same time that the U.S. government is pushing transgenderism on elementary black public school children. So is that a coincidence that while you're trying to disintegrate the black family through non-traditional forms of life, through black on black crime, through police genocide, through poor nutrition, poor healthcare, all these weapons, the snow crisis, along with that, you see so many commercials now where it's the black man with the white woman.
I don't know how you tell the difference between it being only against black children and just it being more taught to all children, because I see plenty of white parents upset about this shit too. So the black woman with the white man, clearly there's an agenda to brainwash our children into either being with someone of the same sex or someone of another race. And I think the gender wars coming at this time plays into the hand of the government's agenda to destroy the black community. On the other side, when we look at the diaspora wars, I think that's a CIA-inspired situation. One is within the states. And FBI doesn't have a charter to operate internationally. So if you want to disrupt locally, it's the FBI. CIA has no charter to operate domestically. So when the CIA interrupts, it's internationally. So the CIA is outside of America, FBI is inside of America. If you're a Pan-Africanist like the Honorable Marcus Garvey, El Haj Malik El-Shabazz, Malcolm X, Stokely Carmichael, Kwame Ture, you're Pan-Africanist, you're automatically going to be watched by the FBI domestically and the CIA internationally. And I think the diaspora wars plays right into the hand of America's foreign policy initiatives. There was a security memorandum that came out, I think it was in the late 70s, early 80s, where the U.S. government, in a private security memorandum that has now been published, now said the greatest threat to American foreign interests is what? The operational unity of Africans in America and Africans in Africa. This is the government. Our biggest threat is if we let the blacks on that side of the Atlantic Ocean organize. It's a memo. It's a memo. Oh, absolutely. Okay. I could probably get you the numbers. It's not on top of my head right now. Absolutely. Some people have even published it in books. It's definitely on the internet. People have referred to it. So they basically said, in essence, Pan-Africanism is our only problem. They don't care about nothing else. People pushing religions, people pushing socialism. They don't care about that. Pan-Africanism is the only threat to white supremacy. So what would you say about, obviously when we talk about diaspora, there's a sense of, African people, Caribbean people using the word, well, I'm not black, I'm Caribbean, I'm African, whatever the case is, and they kind of associate negativity or negative stereotypes with black Americans per se, and they feel like they don't want to identify as black because black usually is the term that black Americans call themselves. So I don't want to be identified as black, so I'm Caribbean. But it's like there's separate people over there. You know what I mean? So what's your thoughts on that whole, that divide and just that whole blatant negative stereotype that some Africans or Caribbeans or other black people feel towards black Americans?
Well, the white man's original tactic of divide and conquer, separate and rule is still his most cherished weapon against African people. You see, understandably, when people look at America up until now being quote unquote the most powerful country in the world, if you want to get down with the most powerful country in the world, you're going to have to despise who they despise. And since America has done such a great job despising African people, anybody who wants to come to this country, even if they are African, are going to seek somebody else's company other than ours, right? That doesn't make what they do right. But we have to look at the fact that we as African people in America haven't done a whole lot collectively to make ourselves the power base we should be for all African people. With our education, with our income, being the richest group of African people in the world in terms of take-home pay, we should be the power base for African people throughout the world. Y'all need institutions, we're going to fund them. Y'all have a problem with your water, we're going to fund that. You understand me? You got a medical crisis, we're going to take care of that. We have the resources, we got the personnel, we got the expertise, we got the money. We should be the power base. So when an African comes to America from outside of this country, they say, well, wait a minute now. If I align myself with the African American, what is in that for me? Because I don't even see the African American doing anything for themselves on a collective basis. We have success, but it's all individual, right? There's very few institutions that we run and control independently. Let's take the Little League. When you go for the Little League,
it is something to think about. Like when you think about systemic injustices, a lot of it is who are the people in those institutions. A lot of it is who are the people who fund those institutions. A lot of it is who founded those institutions. And I feel like those types of things will affect the type of outcomes. And Jesus, what is on my screen right now? What is this? Those types of things will affect who are the beneficiaries of those institutions.
a football team or a basketball team, do you go try out for the team that's losing every year, or do you want to be on a championship team? Most children want to be on a championship team. So when Africans from the diaspora come to America, they see two teams: the black team that has lost 157 straight Super Bowls since the end of slavery, right, and the white team that seem like they still winning and doing great. I want to align myself with the white team. Now, the mistake that Africans in the diaspora are making is that if you do not link up with us, your national homeland will never be free either. See, what they do to African people anywhere, they do to African people everywhere. So if you come from Nigeria, you come from Ghana, you come from Jamaica, you come from Turks and Caicos, you don't associate with African people, you go get you a snow bunny, move up on the west side, you can do all that. But understand, your life is only as sacred as white people allow it to be. At any minute, they can turn you into a Breonna Teller, whether you have a U.S. passport or not. You see it happen here in New York City years ago with the Abner Louima and Amadou Diallo cases, where the police, abused African immigrants right here in New York City. So when it comes to white people, we're all African. They know who we are. But they will use one group against the other as long as it is in their best interest. And once they're done using that group, guess what they do to that group? They destroy them too. It's no different than looking at the black community compared to black celebrities. They use Bill Cosby as long as they could. Then when they no longer needed him, they turned on him. They'll use Whitney Houston as long as they could. When they no longer needed her, they murdered her. Michael Jackson, they murdered him. Prince, they murdered him. Jimi Hendrix, they murdered him. Kobe Bryant, they murdered him. You understand? So all of us are nothing but tools in the hand of white supremacy. We have to wake up from that nightmare, from that imaginary illusion of inclusion that has black people thinking, if I come to America, but stay away from African Americans.
I don't know enough about the circumstances of death around these celebrities, but if it is the case that they only happen to have died after they talked about, like, I don't know, hey, there's a it's not even just black people that this happens to. Like, you'll hear celebrities and big names and influential people talk about, hey, there's something going on here, y'all. It's weird. There are people who are, like, trying to control people to get people to do certain things, and then within 6 months to a year, they all died. How does that happen? How does it happen that all these people who are talking about this die? If it's some bullshit, you would think there would just be the crazy person on the side of the street. The end is coming, but they end up actually dying. Each one of them. It's just like, it's a little bit too coincidental, and there's some who say there are no coincidences.
I'll be given probationary white status. You'll never be given probationary white status because you are not white. And when they're done using you for your intellectual knowledge, when they're done using you in the labor market, when they're done using you helping to perpetuate the myth of a multicultural colorblind America, they'll bust you right back to the country you came from. All African people in America who are not practicing Pan-Africanism are simply tools that are being used that have an expiration date. And when your utility to the white power structure expires, you will too, and they will send you back home. And this is why they hate blacks in America so much, the white power structure. We're the only non-white people in the country who cannot be sent home. You cannot be deported. Slavery destroyed your cultural, psychological, and intellectual connection to your ancestral homeland. If the Ghanaian get on your nerves, you go back to Ghana. If the Puerto Rican gets on your nerves, you go back to Puerto Rico. If the Afro-Cuban gets on your nerves, he or she go back to Cuba, right? If the Chinese get on your nerves, send them back to China. If the East Indian gets on your nerves, send them back to India. If the Arab gets on your nerves, send them back to one of the Middle Eastern states. But when American Africans get on your nerves, where do you deport us to? You can't deport us. Slavery destroyed that connection that they needed in order to remove us. Most American Africans are so brainwashed, they think they're American. So you cannot deport them because this is what they identify with most. So in other words, the white man created his own problem, which makes it almost impossible to deport us. So the only way to get rid of us is a systemic system of racial genocide, and that's what they're using.
So what do you think about people, because the conversation or argument that I have is with, some Africans or Caribbean.
Typically speaking, when it comes to genocide, it's usually the intentional killing of a certain group of people or race. So when I think about genocide, it's like, it can't be, but maybe this is me and my lack of sophistication. If there's a way to genocide people without just intentional, direct, let's just go round them up, kill them, sterilize them, stop them from being able to reproduce, kill everyone you can. Like, most people would when they hear a genocide, those are the types of things that are associated in their head. But that's the thing. Associations with what is in your head limit your mind into thinking, well, as long as it doesn't look like this, it can't be that thing. And that is, I would call that destructive, because it's just like, as long as I could have the same exact goal, but as long as I don't make it look like the thing that you want to call it, then I'm pretty much scot-free. You can't, because there isn't another word for it. What are you gonna say I'm doing? You know what I'm saying? Yeah.
Is that they would say that Black Americans don't have any culture, right? Or they'll say that racism doesn't exist because I was able to come from my country and I was able to be successful and provide for my family. Y'all just using racism as an excuse, to hold y'all back, whatever the case is. But what's your thoughts on?
Well, number one, they're politically ignorant, socially inexperienced. They know very little about the experience of the American African, and they also don't understand racism. In order for racism to succeed, some blacks must be successful. You need a LeBron. You need an Oprah. You need a Tyler Perry. You need a Sean Carter. You need a Beyonce Knowles. You need a Sean Paul.
Ooh, and that hits toward the other thing. Well, if it was systemic racism, wouldn't 100% of black people not be able to make it? And I guess he's addressing that argument here.
Puffy Combs. You need a Robert Johnson. You follow? Why do you need successful black people if you want to destroy our black people? Because in order to brainwash the other ones into believing that your failure is not due to systemic discrimination, it's due to the fact that you're not intelligent enough or you're not working hard enough. Do you see that? So Dr. Umar is a billionaire, and you've been trying to get your business off the ground, it ain't popped yet. You've been trying to get your corporation off the ground, it ain't popped yet. You done opened up 10 businesses, they all done flop. You need me as the billionaire to come and say, fellas, it's not your fault. They designed the system to not work in your behalf. But because I love being rich and I love my proximity to white culture and lifestyle, I don't tell you it's not your fault that there's a game set up and there's only going to be a few Dr. Umars. I tell you the problem is yours. Obviously, you didn't do your business plan right. Obviously, the reason why the bank didn't give you the business loan.
Yeah, so this is a question I've had from my dad. My dad leans right. Now, there's an answer for. There's a question for every conservative. A lot of people say if failure happens, it must be because you didn't do enough, which to some extent is true, because no matter what barriers are against you, if you keep trying and you don't give up, eventually, even if it takes a long ass time and a lot of effort, it could take you 40 years, but eventually you will be successful and you'll get it. My question to those people would be, why the fuck does it take me 40 years and another nigga 10 years? Why is the average for my group of people 40 years, but the average for that group of people 10 years? When you control for variables, and it's still the same. What if it? Why is it not possible that it could take me? Let's say even like it's not even. Let's say even like grant or meet you halfway. That like, okay, well, it would actually, with all things considered, let's say you completely get rid of systemic racism, it would drop down to 20 years, and the white group will still have 10 years to be able to accomplish that goal. Okay, you just told me you're gonna meet me halfway and say it's 20. Why the fuck is it 40 then? Why is it that the conversation gets so bogged down and the idea of is it systemic versus individualistic, to the point to where, like, even if it is like 70% individualistic, it will still be 30% system and environment. Why wouldn't you want to get rid of that? There's no good reason to not fight against that at all. There's no good reason to not acknowledge that. Well, we can't acknowledge that it's 30%, because if we do, there's some people who are going to take advantage and just be super lazy. Okay, so we're not going to acknowledge the truth, group of facts over feelings. We're not going to acknowledge the truth because of an outcome that would happen. Then y'all get mad at the left for doing that shit during COVID? I don't understand how we pick and choose when we're going to use certain methodology. Like, no.
It's because you didn't have your numbers right. Your credit wasn't high enough. You see that? And so the black millionaire and billionaire class is one of white supremacy's greatest arguments to defend itself against accusations of racism. Because Oprah Winfrey is not going to indict the system. LeBron James is not going to indict the system. You understand me? Tyler Perry is not going to indict the system because they made their money through the system. And because they're at the top of black society, they know how powerful white folks really are. They know how unfair the game really is. They know me being here is a privilege that white people gave me. Yes, I worked hard to get here, but I would never be here without their help. At the end of the day, all of our black millionaires and billions are owned by the white power structure. I don't say that to be disrespectful, because I respect LeBron James, right? I appreciate the image of a black man with a black woman with black children who's never been in any trouble, entered the league at 17, 18 years old and never had a single scandal. He's a good example of a responsible black man. Right. I like how Jay-Z came from Marcy Projects and now you're a billionaire the legal way. I like what Oprah did coming from nothing at Tennessee State. I like what Tyler Perry did coming from sleeping in his car to being a billionaire to owning the first all-black music studio, one of the largest in the country. Even white folk go to Tyler Perry Studios to film their movies. Part of Black Panther 2 was filmed at Tyler Perry Studios. So I appreciate their rags to riches story. The problem is they can't top it off with a cherry on top. And the cherry on top is to look the camera in the eye and say, I made it. But most of my people will never will, because the system is not designed for black people to succeed. And this is how they get us. They'll promote a few blacks. Everybody else struggling. Everybody else in poverty. Everybody else coming out of prison. But they'll promote a few blacks, and because a few blacks made it, that automatically supposed to mean that we are doing better. No other group you could push that on, because every other group is based on collective group progress. Right. Black people, we are totally rooted in selfishness and meism. We don't have weism like the Latinos, or weism like the Asians, or weism like the Anglo-Saxons, or weism like the European Jews. We have meism. And as long as we have meism, a few successful blacks automatically means y'all all must do better. Like I think I saw Jay-Z do an interview.
Yeah, it always confused me when I was younger. When I thought about like people who were in gangs, it's like, this is my block. No, this is my block. Bro, it's y'all city, bro. It's y'all city. Y'all, that is y'all home, bro. Y'all are a team. How did y'all get convinced that y'all weren't, bro? At the end of the day, aren't cops locking y'all both up? Isn't it hard for both of y'all groups to find a job? When y'all band together for the sake, like, y'all care about y'all block so much, how about you better it for the next generation? Like, you don't have to fight over that. Y'all are in the same, y'all are two boats jabbing at each other when there's a big ass warship behind you hurting y'all in a certain direction. But y'all are so focused on the it's just like, bro, I don't get it, bro. Maybe because I didn't grow up in a harsh environment like that I don't know.
One time, and they said, well, what have you done for black people? And he said something to the effect, and I don't want to misquote him, I'm paraphrasing. He said something like, me just being who I am
Is enough for black people.
is enough for black people. Most ridiculous, arrogant, ignorant statement I ever heard. But that's what black millionaires and billionaires feel. Because I've made it, I'm a benefit to my race. And it's that same ridiculous black bourgeoisie illogical thinking that ushered Barack Obama into the White House, who did nothing for black people, but steal everything we work for and give it to the gays, the immigrants, the Latinos, and white
A lot of people don't. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Joe.
No, so what do you say about like selective people that selectively black, or they want to seem like they support black people, and black people are like, we're forgiving to everybody, right? We always give
Except each other.
Yeah, exactly. So how do we handle that, or should we still be supportive, or because we
Give me an example of someone who's selectively black. Give me an example of.
Like people that like kind of pick and choose.
Yeah. Oh yeah, I was saying that as far as like groups, different people. Okay, so like let's bring even a reparation situation. So there's a lot of groups of people like people from Jamaica or people from the Caribbean. They're not black, but now they're hearing that reparations is a possibility. They want to be black now.
I would argue they are black. I would argue they are African.
But they're not. Prior to that, they say I'm not black. You get what I'm saying?
Understand? Okay, I don't identify with y'all, but when there's a benefit to be obtained, I will.
Yes.
Temporarily.
Yes.
Until I get what I need to just roll off the boat.
Exactly.
Okay. Anyone who is disingenuous about their membership in African race should be rejected from it. I don't believe in part-time Africans. I don't believe in opportunistically Africans, right? Like what you're speaking of, selective Africans. If there's something that I can select that will be a benefit for me, I'll be African for a week, for a day, for a year until I get it, and then I'm not African anymore. I reject all of them. Okay. Whether that's a Jamaican African or an American African. Because you got black folks right here who are the offspring of our enslaved ancestors who don't identify as being black. For me, blackness is a two-pronged test. First of all, are you biologically African? And are you psychologically African? So if I look at some of my Puerto Rican African brothers and sisters, some of my Dominican African brothers and sisters, many of them are biologically black, but they do not psychologically identify with the race at all. Many do, but more often than not, they don't. And so for the ones who do not identify, I don't accept. I don't believe in begging, pleading, or forcing people to be African. You follow what I'm saying? It's an honor to be God's original people. It's an honor to have the strongest DNA. It's an honor to be the oldest people, the most creative people. It's an honor to be who we are. We're God's first children. We are the chosen people. So I'm not forcing nobody. If you think being ultra light skinned is a benefit, run with it. You understand? If you think speaking Spanish makes you better than black people speak English, you run with it. Or if you're an American Negro like Supreme Court Justice Clarence Thomas, who goes out of your way to support the white power structure at the expense of African people, you run with that. You follow me? Anybody who wants out, I'm letting them out. Because the worst thing you can do is force a black person to be black when they don't want to be. Because the minute they get a chance to stab you in the back, they're going to do it 2 times. You follow me? So anybody who don't want to be, you're free to leave. And let's deal with the people who are 100% 24 hours a day.
If you say it's our aunties, our grandmas, they're gonna forgive them. You get what I'm saying? So it's like, okay, let them back in. You get what I'm saying?
But the issue. But don't you think let me go back. Let me take a step back. For me, there should only be one reparations movement anyway. I don't support the tribalistic approach to reparations, where the American Africans got their own fight, the Caribbean Africans got their own fight, the continental Africans got their own fight, the Australian Africans got their own fight, the Brazilians got their own fight, Central American Africans. We all came from one place, and there should be one organized system for reparations. The reason we don't have a global approach to reparations is because everybody favors the tribe over the race, and that is why Pan-Africanism is so revolutionary. Because we're the only ones to say that being African is more important than being a Jamaican. Being African is more important than being an American African, a descendant of a slave. Being African is more important than being a Brazilian. Until you elevate the family above your nationality, they will never get what we need. You have to have a unified approach for something as important as reparations. I'm gonna be honest with you, and this is something a lot of us are not looking at globally or locally, and that is what we are demanding for reparations. You normally only get through an act of war. If we get all that we are entitled to, it'll be the first time in human history that one group of people received from their oppressors that type of a settlement, that type of a resolution without no bloodshed. People go to war for less than what we're owed in reparations. And I'm gonna be honest with you, I believe it's gonna take war for us to get it.
So what about?
They will give you reparations, but it will not be anything near what you were entitled to.
Because I'm familiar with the U.S. paying obviously the Native Americans,
the Japanese,
the
European Jews.
Exactly.
So they give reparations to people who they haven't even harmed, like the Afghanis, the Ukrainians, and everybody else.
Right. So how should reparations be paid? And why do you think that? Because there was a poll recently where they asked non-black Americans or non-black people if black people deserve reparations, and overwhelming.
Reparations should be paid because the United States government made that decision to say, hey, we're going to compensate black people / African Americans, whatever you want to call it at the time in the 1860s. The United States government said, we are going to do this. This is our agreement. Lincoln was assassinated. Then President Andrew Johnson came in and said, yeah, fuck all that. We're not doing that. So if your point of view is, in my opinion, this is the best argument for reparations, and this is all me. One, well, it's not all me. It's a combination of stuff plus myself. One, the United States government said, we will do this thing. We are agreeing to do this thing. And then they didn't agree, and then they didn't follow through with that. I don't know about you, but for all my conservatives out there, all my red pill people, all my alpha male people, all a man should do what a man should do. If a man says I'm gonna do this, he needs to be a man of his word, and you respect it, right? So if the United States government says, I am going to honor this agreement, and then they back out of it, they're not someone of their word. You owe that to the person because you agreed that you would do that. Full stop. Now, if the counter argument to that is, well, hey, that was the United States government of back then that agreed to that. You cannot punish the United States government in the present time for that, because none of the people alive today are responsible for that. Fine. But then the argument you must accept at that point is the United States government can do anything and agree to anything, can agree to any compensation, and as long as they wait long enough, it doesn't fucking matter and they don't have to honor it. You have to say, yes, that is exactly what I'm saying. You have to say that. You can't pussyfoot around and be like, well, as long as it doesn't affect what I think shouldn't be affected today, that's as far as the argument goes. No, fuck you, that's dishonest. It's either we need to honor what we agree or we don't, and we can just walk away from any agreement whenever. You gotta pick one. You cannot only pick it when it's convenient.
Well, they said no. So why do you think the non-black people said, these are non-black people? Yeah, non-black people. Why do you think they don't think that black Americans deserve reparations? And how would you go about giving reparations to black Americans? Good question. First of all, why does the opinion of an Asian matter at all? You were not an enslaver. You were not enslaved. You understand me? What does the opinion of someone who had nothing to do with my tragedy, why does their opinion even matter? I'll tell you why it matters. America wants to create this illusion of a multicultural society where race don't matter. And America knows because everybody wants to be here so badly, they don't have a problem shitting on black people to improve their relationship with the white power structure. So if you ask the Asian, do black people deserve reparations? Of course not. You ask the Arab, do black people deserve reparations? Of course not. You ask the European Jew, who got reparations? Do black people deserve reparations? Of course not. But we should not be surprised. If I don't value black life, why the hell would I care about you receiving compensation for unpaid labor damages and harm? They don't value African life. So of course they don't give a damn about you getting no reparations. You understand me? Because they're not approaching this question from an issue of justice or perspective of justice or equality. They're approaching this question from a perspective of racism, bigotry, bias, and discrimination. Nobody wants black people to get anything because they want to take your place. You understand me? The Asian don't want you doing better than them in America. You understand? The Arab don't want you doing better than them in America. The European Jew don't want you doing better than them in America. The Latinos don't want you doing better than them in America. So of course if somebody put a microphone in their mouth and say, should black people get something that you're not going to get? Why would they say yes? They prefer us to be punching bags. Absolutely. And my question is, well, it's none of your business. Right. This is an issue between black people and white people. What the Chinese man thinks is irrelevant. What the Latino thinks is irrelevant. What the European Jew thinks is irrelevant. What the Arab thinks is irrelevant. You're not the enslaved or the enslaver. Who the hell cares what you think about it? But because we're so multicultural, the power structure can use those non-black opinions against us because they can say, since you see the Latino as your brother and sister, since you see the Arab as your brother and sister, and we are all Americans, because black people love it. They love that Americanism, which is another reason why we're not going to get reparations, because the white man knows you would rather be an American and get reparations. If you got to choose between the two, most black people want their red, white, and blue flag more than anything else, right? And so as a result of that, the power structure can then say, since you consider yourself to be a part of the family of America, most of us don't think y'all should get reparations. So why don't we put it on the next federal election and see how many Americans think black people should get reparations? And then they can just block out the whole thing and say most Americans don't think this is a good thing for the country. You see? And you know how they were able to do that? Because we started identifying with this country more than ourselves. We should have never bought into this American citizenship garbage. We should have never allowed that. Just like we should have never bought into people of color. We should have never bought into minority. We should have never bought into disadvantaged communities. All of these are labels that clump you in with all non-white people that allows the government to take care of their needs and never take care of yours. And nobody even see you not being taken care of because guess what? Your issues are being smothered by Arab issues, Latino issues, Chinese issues, homosexual issues. So nobody even realized black people still suffering because you allowed yourself to be defined in such a way that other groups were included with you. That's the worst thing you can do as a people.
Yeah, that's another argument I heard against, like, when people use the term people of color. People of color is like, in a way, you're bringing acknowledgement to issues that a lot of people of color deal with, but you're mashing them all together. Like, they're different depending on the type of person of color you are. You're going to have different problems, and of course, because of different problems, you're going to have different solutions. Putting it all together just muddies up the process. And if you make a positive impact on any one of these groups of people of color, now it's going to be like, well, we made progress, bro. Shut up. We're making progress. Shut the fuck up. Like that. Like, you're going to immediately run into that.
With such a unique history as we have in this country, we have to stand up and stand out like a sore thumb. But because most black people have been brainwashed by church that being race first is a sin, right? And because most black people have a low racial self-esteem problem, the last thing they want to do is stick out. We are too neurotic about being black. We are too insecure about being black. We are too anxious about being black. We don't want to stick out. We want to blend in. And that's how that multicultural weapon was used.
What about, because, you know, right now we're having this conversation, there's a lot of words being interchanged. We got African Americans, we got blacks, you know, so some people say that black Americans have an identity crisis. We don't know if we want to identify as black, we don't know if we want to be African American, we got FBA, we got Moors, we got all these different terms to describe black indigenous slaves, you get what I'm saying? So do you think that black people in America have an identity crisis?
I think most black people in the world have an identity crisis. You got to remember, when a white man went into the Caribbean, if you were a British subject, you may have called yourself British. If you went into French West Africa, there are Africans who might still consider themselves subjects of the French Empire. You understand me? Most Africans globally have an identity crisis because we have been conquered by white people. Remember, only once upon a time, the only independent country we had on the face of this earth that was black was Ethiopia. That's the only free black country on the face of the earth at one time. And we were forced to do it, speak our oppressor's language, wear his clothes, worship through his religion, and identify with his flag. So we all had, and many of us still have, an identity crisis. Now, as far as all the different ideologies and political ideologies, here's what I say, that I don't give it a lot of attention because I think most black people know they're from Africa. So when people lie and say you're not from Africa, you're Cherokee or Choctaw, this and that, most black people have enough common sense and command of the history to know where they came from. I mean, you have DNA analysis now. We don't even have to debate this philosophically. We can find out genetically. Give some blood and let's see if the Cherokee Nation comes up on the damn paperwork. You understand me? It's not going to come up because you're an African. But again, nobody wants to be on a losing team. So look at the contradiction. We'll get mad at a Jamaican African brother or sister who doesn't identify with us. We'll get mad at an immigrant Nigerian African brother or sister who don't want to identify with us. But you got American Africans right here who will tell you they're not African. I'm a Cherokee. I'm a Native American. I'm an alien. I'm a this, I'm a that. And we don't say nothing to them. You see? So how is them not wanting to be an American African any different than a homegrown American African telling you I ain't African? You see what I'm saying? The harm is equal. So why separate it? See, as Pan-Africanists, we don't see, there's really no differences. The same isms and schisms and self-hate that we have in America, they have in Africa. They have it in the Caribbean. There's Jamaicans who tell you you're not from Africa.
They got, you know, over there, they don't believe, they have racism, obviously, but since the majority of the continent is black people, they have a whole thing called xenophobia now, like, you know, where you discriminate from another African because they live in a different country. Like, you know what I'm saying? So,
they do, but a lot of the xenophobia, and it's not justifiable, but a lot of the xenophobia is economically related because what happens is you live in South Africa. He lives in Namibia, hypothetically.
It's the classes you mean?
No, stay with me. So you are boycotting your job because y'all want higher pay. So they come to Namibia and tell you, get me 100 Namibians, come to South Africa, we need y'all to break this protest. You hungry, you got kids to feed, so guess what you do? You come across national lines and you break the South African protest, now you just gave birth to that xenophobia. Why would you bring your black ass to my country and sabotage my fight for better pay? You see that? So a lot of the xenophobia in Africa is economically related. It's the white man, again, putting black people against black people. It's the same thing they do over here. That's no different.
Right. So
that's interesting. The thing that gets me is, why would you go to? Hold on, let me hear that again. Hold on, just before I make the comment of what I'm going to say.
See, there's really no differences. The same isms and schisms and self-hate that we have in America, they have in Africa. They have it in the Caribbean. There's Jamaicans who tell you they're not from Africa.
They got what over there. They don't really. They have racism, obviously, but since the majority of the continent is black people, they have a whole thing called xenophobia now. Like, where you discriminate from another African because they live in a different country. Like, you know what I'm saying? So,
they do, but a lot of the xenophobia, and it's not justifiable, but a lot of the xenophobia is economically related because what happens is you live in South Africa. Right. He lives in Namibia, hypothetically.
it's the classes you mean?
No, stay with me. So you are boycotting your job because y'all want higher pay. So they come to Namibia and tell you, get me 100 Namibians, come to South Africa, we need y'all to break this protest. You hungry, you got kids to feed, so guess what you do? You come across national.
Well, why would you? That's the thing, though. Why would you even go to another African country to do that? If you genuinely disagree that with the people doing that, then find your own fucking people in that country. Why do you have to go to another country to break up this country's protest? You're telling me there's no... First of all, if at that point, I would say you're conceding. You're saying that no one in this country that's doing these protests are going to agree with me. I can't acquiesce to these requests. I'm gonna have to go to another country to get help to this. It's like, no, bro. Like, if the people of a certain country are saying, hey, we want to live this way now, you as a ruling class need to acquiesce or get the fuck out. Fuck you if you want to be like, no, I know all of y'all want this, but nah, bro, that's money, that's dynamics, that's like resources. Nah, fuck that. It's like, okay, just say you're a bitch without saying you're a bitch then. Fuck you, you're selfish.
National lines, and you break the South African protest, now you just gave birth to that xenophobia. Why would you bring your black ass to my country and sabotage my fight for better pay? You see that? So a lot of the xenophobia in Africa is economically related. It's the white man, again, putting black people against black people. It's the same thing they do over here with us. It's no different.
Right. So which division you think is more important to fix first? The division here in the US or the division in Africa?
It's always global, because we do not live in a isolated box. And that's the problem. People say you got to take care of the African American thing first. That's ridiculous, because you may never take care of the African American thing. So the whole African world goes to hell because we didn't fix this first. And you'll find that you can actually do a better job of fixing local issues when you tap into the global issues, because you're cutting yourself off from ideas, you're cutting yourself off from strategies, you're cutting yourself off from resources that can be put in play locally. And the thing that I always give people, why can't you do two things at once? Can't you carry water over here and still carry a cake over here? When you drive in your car, ain't you staying with your arms and using the gas and the brake with your foot? Right. Why only when we deal with politics and black solutions do people say you can only do one thing at a time? You can do both. Yeah. Every Pan-Africanist in history has done both. We focus on the global unity of the race while we attack our domestic problems. The most honorable Marcus Garvey from right here in New York City was more instrumental in a lot of the changes that came to black people in New York City than local black elected officials. And he was a Pan-Africanist. So people have this perception that Pan-Africans only care about the global agenda. Yes, the global agenda is king. You damn right. But my local issues matter just as much. Because if I'm trying to organize people to join the global fight, what better way to do that than to show and prove where I am? You understand? I'm a Pan-Africanist, but name me a school psychologist who puts some more work for our kids than me right here in America. Nobody. Historically, there's no psychologist who's ever done for black people what I've done for black people as it relates to training parents and make sure they protect their children. I'm the greatest in that area. But I'm still a Pan-Africanist. Why can't I do two things at once? I'm going to Johannesburg next month, Ethiopia next month, Guadeloupe, Jamaica. I can still be in the streets of Philadelphia protesting. I can still be in New York handling what I got to do. You follow what I'm saying? Our problems are multi-systemic, and the solutions must be multimodal as well. We just can't put all eggs in one basket and wait for that basket to sell before we get another basket. That's ridiculous. You're working on something while he's working on something, while you're working on something, while I'm working on something, while he's working on something. There is no one problem at a time. That's ridiculous.
Right. So, what would be your solution to reparations, and how should that be?
Well, for me, a couple things. Number one, the psychological cost of reparations has not been effectively quantified yet. That's being left out of the conversation. You can get more for psychological damage than you can get for unpaid labor. You feel me? 246 years of unpaid labor, that's nothing compared to the psychological terrorism that white people has reaped on our ancestors. That's in our soul, in our DNA, in our blood. I don't hear enough people talking about the psychological cost.
I never even thought about that. Psychological, especially with all the talk about mental health now, there can be a such thing, and we see it in like, not even humans, but other animals as well. You can have inherited mental health, which is also a thing, which no one wants to talk. It's like, it feels like in some instances, society wants to talk about inheritance as something that's important. As like, well, it's my people who did that, and it's mine. It should be passed on. It should be mine. Why even have like a legacy tax? What is it? Legacy tax, or like there's some tax where like a estate tax, something to where like if an older person dies and they have money and they try to give it to their grandchildren or their children, the government will tax it, and a lot of people are against that because, well, that's our legacy, that's our money, it's already been taxed. It's like, okay, fine, you understand the importance of heritage and legacy and all that, but in other areas where it's super convenient to do so, we're gonna completely ignore that and just not even like, okay, bro. Real dishonest, but hey, people do that if they have an agenda to push. So fuck y'all.
That's your biggest pay right there. And when I say pay, I don't say cash because I think cash payment is a trap. I don't have a problem with cash being on the list, but it should not be primary, especially now because you have BRICS, Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa who are about to float their own currency. They're going to tie it to the gold reserves in their countries, and that's going to drop the value of the dollar. So if the US dollar is about to plummet, why in the hell would you accept payment for your ancestors' dehumanization to a worthless American dollar? Money is a trap. But all these thirsty reparations people, all they want is some money. I mean, let's just be honest. Half the people talking about reparations just want to check. They have no vision for changing nothing for Black America.
I feel like this is what you should do. This is what, if reparations did happen, I feel like you should do a couple things. One is going to be rebuilding majority Black communities, which means if there are potholes, fix those. If there are condemned properties, fix those. It would be subsidize farmers and shit. Have like a 10-year or 15-year plan to subsidize local businesses and predominantly Black areas, so where like they can hire more, they can grow their economy, and then wean them off that over time, so that way they can take that, build that wealth on their own in their own communities, and then they won't have to siphon off the federal government. I know all you conservatives and libertarians will love that one. What else? I don't know. Do wealth intelligence, like or like wealth literacy. Financial literacy, that needs to be taught. Like a lot of things that rich parents will teach their kids won't be passed down from poor parents that teach their kids. Like they won't be able to learn and know the same skills. Teach them that. That's what reparations should be like. The goal should be to repair, not just give something back. It should be to repair what was lost. It should bring whatever the other end of reparations looks like. It should bring the African American / Black community in line with, like, we should start to see similar crime rates amongst them. We should start seeing similar graduation rates. We should start seeing similar wealth and economic rates. We should start seeing them occupy more positions of power because, like, that's what that would be the outcome. And if those outcomes aren't manifested, then I would say you failed at reparations, personally.
They have no history of grassroots struggle. They're utopian opportunists, most of them. They're not deep thinkers.
I honestly don't think Black people would be financially responsible enough to use that money. I think want to get that money right back.
Yeah. Exactly what I said. They wouldn't be financially responsible. You need to teach financial literacy and financial intelligence. Yes.
Cause and change. Which is another issue that I have with our approach to reparations. When did we come together and choose people to represent us in this conversation and in this negotiation?
Who is it though?
People are self-selecting themselves. You know why? Because we are disorganized. So before there's any reparations conversation, before there's any distribution of reparations, we have to first organize and elect the people we want to represent us. You just can't have somebody on YouTube popping up, I'm the face. That's why Black America always gets exploited. Because we are disorganized, anybody can claim to be leader. You can go out here right now and say you're the leader of Black America. Guess what? Nobody's probably going to oppose you because we are so disorganized. And a disorganized people are ripe for opportunists. Opportunists love disorganization because it gives you the right to do anything and not be held accountable for. So number one, we need to be organized. And until we get organized, there should be no conversation on reparations. Because I'm going to tell you what the white man going to do. We already know what he's going to do. He's going to look for people he can use. And he's going to give the reparations to them. And he's going to dictate how they use the reparations. Y'all follow what I'm saying? So he's not sweating this. He said, okay, this is how y'all want to handle this? No organization, no conversation. Just feel, okay, well, let me select him because I know I own him. And let me select him. I know I own him. And y'all going to use this money just for basketball and football. You understand me? It'll be a joke. A disorganized people should never go to war with an organized people. There has never been a war in history where a disorganized group of people went against an organized group of people. Show me where. We can't. And reparations will be no different. On top of that, you need an infrastructure to catch the reparations, to make sure that the black dollar circulates several times before it leaves your community. The black dollar leaves our community in less than 24 hours. So if you accept a cash payout, all you did was serve as a middleman between the Federal Reserve and every thirsty merchant in the black community breaking us financially. Because every penny you get from reparations is going to go to the Chinaman, to the Arab, to the Jew. It's going to Mercedes, it's going to Nike. And then black people say, you don't know that that's true. Yes, I do know that that's true. You know why? Because as a psychologist, the best predictor of future behavior is current behavior. So you mean to tell me we're going to radically change our spending habits with the reparations money? When you've never been responsible with your own damn money? What happened to all the stimulus checks, Black America? What we do with that for the people? What about our tax returns? What do we do with that for the people? What have we done since Dr. King's murder 55 years ago, financially and collectively to transform our reality? Nothing at all. And that's why I've said I do not believe that the current generation of African people should be responsible for the dissemination or discussion over reparations because we haven't done anything worthwhile that will entitle us to that type of responsibility. Right? So we should get our land back. All the land that was confiscated from African people between the end of slavery and the end of Reconstruction. You're talking about tens of thousands of acres. All the land got to come back. All of the inventions that black people invented, everything from the gas mask to the stoplight, refrigerated truck, the golf tee, the ironing board, all of that reverts back to us as a permanent patent. And whenever you use it, we got to license it to you, we get paid for it. Black music, all black music, only black people. One of the biggest reparations settlements we can have. Only black people can own, sell, publish, promote, or perform black music. Black music is one of America's top exports. This country makes more money off selling black talent than almost anything else she sells. If we own Michael Jackson's catalog, Sam Cooke's catalog, the Beatles catalog, think about that. Prince catalog, all of them. We have enough money to build a Black Wall Street in every city. We got to get the music. Any reparations package that does not give us exclusive control of our music, as far as I'm concerned, is a loss. Because black music is too powerful, too globally influential, and brings in too much revenue for us not to control music.
Are you referring to like the past music or current?
Past and present. past and present. In other words, Sony Records, Warner Brothers, Universal, you've made billions of dollars off those catalogs. Pass them on over now. Do you feel me? They've made more than enough money off of our deceased artists. You understand me? More than their families made. It's time to revert them on back.
What you think?
And we can't let nobody trivialize that, because how you gonna just take it back the same way white people went into Palestine and took land from the Palestinians and gave the Israelis, the European Jews, a country they own.
But I go back to the war thing. Like they shed blood for that. They were organized. You know what I mean? And was able to assert.
But that was an act of the global white power structure. The European Jews themselves didn't go over there and wage war.
Okay.
The U.S. and Britain, they did that, and the reason they did that is they wanted to have a satellite country amongst the Middle Eastern nations that they could use as a spy in a military base in case they need to go to war with Iran or Iraq. In other words, it benefited America and the UK to have Israel right here amongst the Arabs, so if we need to go to war, we can launch from right here. It was looking out for themselves, really. Or what do you see? But also, in addition to that, America's natural resources. America has like 10 major natural resources. We should get a 25% cut of the revenue of all those natural resources into perpetuity, permanent, forever.
Tax exemption. Should that be on the table as well?
I'm not against it. It's not the most important thing, though.
Right.
Because if you're economically empowered, you really don't care what your taxes are. We have to think
Native
like
Americans, don't they get aren't they like exempt from taxes and stuff?
Who is?
Native Americans.
I'm not sure. They might be.
I think that's part of it.
I'm not against it,
right?
But I don't. When you think of a reparations settlement, the whole purpose of the settlement is to empower your people, right? There's no billionaire in America who's fighting for a tax exemption because he's making enough money to pay. Are y'all following me? We gotta make sure
loopholes in the system.
They find loopholes who pay less. I agree with that. But they're not going to sleep worrying about their tax bill. Jay-Z and Tyler Perry are not losing sleep over their tax bill because they're wealthy. We have to make sure that we don't approach reparations, which is supposed to be an empowerment vehicle for African peoples, with a poverty mindset. You follow me? It's like somebody said, black people should never have to pay to park on the street again. Who the fuck cares?
Right.
You got enough revenue coming in. Who cares about that?
Right.
And if we have to be concerned about a tax exemption, then you're automatically telling me that whatever we're getting for reparations isn't enough to sustain our families. You feel me? If we got to be concerned about a tax exemption, whatever we got on that reparations list is not enough to sustain us. Because if you still got to hide from your taxes, you're not making enough money. You feel me? So that means we got to go back to the drawing board.
People have talked very highly about Dr. Umar Johnson, and I haven't really ever listened. Not because I don't want to, but I'm just not online like that. But I do like what I'm hearing. This nigga's based.
So with these big companies controlling like the politicians, how likely do you think it is for us to get our music back from these big companies?
Well, remember your negotiations with the government. So it's the government that got to go to the Jewish corporations that own our music and say, this goes to them now. We don't care if y'all like it or not. And you know why the Jewish music companies can't say anything about it? Because they participated in our slavery too. So they couldn't say, well, this was just business. No. Y'all financed the slave ships. You were the ones who paid the slave masters for slaves who showed up deceased, or missing an arm, or missing a leg, or the ones who committed suicide. European Jewish companies were the biggest financiers and insurers of the slave voyages. They were also slave owners. Okay? The Secretary of War.
Anti-Semitism, that's what they're going to say.
No, this is truth. Anti-falsehood. Secretary of War for the Confederacy, I believe, was a European Jew. He owned over 100 slaves.
So that's not enough bloodshed. You get what I'm saying? The time of slavery, all the black people that died. That's not enough bloodshed for us to get reparations the right way.
Of course it is, but here's the problem. Here is the problem. You were enslaved to give white people an eternal advantage over everyone else in the world, economically and politically, including you. With reparations, you're asking this white man to repair reparations. You're asking him to undo the unfair advantage he spent the last 500 years building for himself. And that's why I'm going to go back to my earlier point. I don't think we get reparations without war. People have went to war for less than what we are entitled to. And here's the big question you got to ask yourself. Because from a Garvey perspective, it's all about power. It ain't about equality, it ain't about justice, it ain't about Jesus, it ain't about voting, it ain't about being American, it ain't about equity. You know what it's about? The power you have to force the white man to do what he don't want to do. And here's my question. What are black people going to do if the white man gets on television right now and say, I'm not getting anything for reparations? We took a poll, and most Americans don't feel it's necessary. Enjoy the rest of your week.
Yeah, that's what I'm going to say. We're going to protest and tear up our own communities. And
the very next day, you'll be having lunch and cheese with the same white folks who said you don't deserve reparations.
That's that part.
Do you feel me? You have to understand something. We haven't had a comprehensive, sustained movement for systemic change in this country since Dr. King. No matter what people may say or think about Dr. King, he was the last leader to give us a real movement. Nobody has given you a movement since Dr. King. You've had your millionaire marches for one day. You've had your Al Sharpton rallies for one day. You had your Jesse Jackson get-togethers for one day. But you have not had a movement. Not a sustainable one, not a comprehensive one. The last time was Dr. King. The point that I'm making, black people are politically lazy and white people know it.
That's why I find it hard for us to be patriotic for a place that doesn't love or care for
But we are the most patriotic.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
You know why we're the most patriotic? Because we're the most psychologically homeless. Black people are very neurotic about their identity. We hate Africa, where we come from. We cling to America. We will go around the world and brag about being an American, although you enjoy almost no rights. Immigrants who are not even citizens have more rights than you. You have Ukrainians right now getting Social Security checks, free housing, free medical care, free education, but you have the highest black homelessness rate since the 1960s. How you got Ukrainians who are not even citizens living better than black people who built the country? And the reason it's so difficult for us to change that is black people care more about their American citizenship than they do about justice. The minute you bring up, maybe we should disidentify as American citizens, it's certainly an option. It's certainly an option. You have a whole refugee law in the United Nations that would allow us to say we're not being treated like Americans, we no longer identify as Americans, we are Africans in exile, or whatever name we want to give ourselves, but we are definitely not Americans, and we are protected by the United Nations under their refugee laws and their anti-genocide conventions. We would get more rights as refugees in this country than we do as so-called American citizens.
I mean, everybody else have their even at the location. You got Little Italy, Chinatown. There's no place.
No Little Africa. Nowhere in this country where you go where black people own the school, the hospital, the bank, and the supermarket.
Correct.
4 major institutions, not to mention manufacturing and distribution. But we are $2 trillion a year. $2 trillion a year. No institutions. Half the HBCUs are supposed to be closed in the next 30 years. God forbid that doesn't happen. But you want more money. But you want more money. To do what exactly? You mean to tell me you can't spend the $2 trillion you got responsibly? But now you want the ancestors' money so you can splurge that too. If I had a vote, I vote no. That money, none of the restitution package gets disseminated amongst Black America until Black America organizes itself and begins to act responsibly. I would say this: build the institutions with the $2 trillion that you got, and once you build the institutions, then you get the reparations. Prove that you can handle this. Prove you are responsible enough to deal with these reparations. Build some institutions. Until we get those 5 major institutions in 20 major black cities, no reparations should be disseminated because we're going to do nothing but waste it and give it back to non-blacks.
That's fair. Listen, let me get to this next topic. You know, Dr. Umar, I had a lot of conversations with people about this topic, a lot of heat debates. People want to know, can you be pro-black and date outside your race.
Absolutely.
And I got my good brother right here, you know, who's an advocate, and he says that you can be pro-black and date outside.
Impossible. You cannot. Marriage is a business. When you get married, you commit your mind, your body, your heart, your soul, and your pocketbook, your savings, your estate, your wealth. You commit that to that person you're married to. See, when you marry, you don't marry an individual. You marry into a race. You marry into a community. So I didn't marry a Jewish woman. I married into Jewish society. I didn't marry an Asian woman. I married into an Asian family. There's no way you can claim to love black people, especially as a black man, knowing that only 1 out of every 4 black women will get married in her lifetime. We have the lowest female marriage rate in the country, 25%. That means 75% of black women will never ever know what it feels like to be proposed to. And if you care about the black community, you got to care about saving the black family, because the family is the essential institution of a community. And the only way you can save a family is to build a family. You can only build a family with a black woman. Absolutely not. You cannot talk black and sleep white. And why would the original man want a member of the race that enslaved and dehumanized you to carry your seed? Why would I, after the rape and the lynching and the slavery and the Willie Lynch and the Jim Crow and the police brutality and the economic apartheid and the gentrification and the AIDS and the Ebola, the West Nile, the COVID, the genetics, the eugenics, why would I want to take my original seed, God's seed, and put it in a cave-dwelling organism? Why would I want to do that?
Mike enjoys
That's gonna come off as incredibly racist towards white people. That's definitely gonna come off as incredibly racist towards white people. The only thing I'll say is, for people that got super offended when he said that, I feel like when it comes to like white people, like they're the ones that have like Neanderthal DNA, really. As far as like, I doubt there are any white cave dwellers today, or no, at least not many. But it's kind of like, the weird thing is this is what I'll say. You've had history and history of history of black and brown people getting treated like shit, being made fun of, being the butt of jokes for the longest time. And here we are, it's 2024, and you only started hearing stuff like this out in the open for like what? Not even 2 decades talking about white people, and and at the same time, it is the worst thing and it is the end of the world. It's just like, if that's the case, black and brown people must be super fucking resilient to be able to take all that hate that's been going on for centuries, and once y'all get even a fraction of that hate for 2 decades, now it's like, okay, now we gotta figure this shit out. It's like, okay. That's more so where he's coming from. Like, it was never a problem. Racism and all these other things weren't problems until like brown people, like no white people, we're gonna make it your problem until you do something about it. That's what it feels like happens. But
I want to incubate my son, my daughter, in the womb of the people who have destroyed my people in this world.
Now, let me say first, when I made this argument, I wasn't necessarily talking about white women. I mean, there's other races out there,
but they hate you just as much.
But what I'm saying, all right, so you said just earlier that there are black people among us that are not for us. True. So with that being said, there are people of other races that are more for us than there are our people.
Describe for us, please.
When you go to protest for black rights and police brutality and stuff, and you see other races that out there and there are black people that would never be called. I mean,
okay. So because I'm just or a Caucasian showed up for a George Floyd march, right? That means they give a shit about black people.
I'm just saying.
Let me ask you this. According to the Pew Research, they said 1 in 5 protesters during the George Floyd protest was black.
Okay.
4 out of 5 were non-black. Right. At least 3 out of 4 were white. So the George Floyd protests were mostly white people. If white people cared that much about black folks, why didn't that woman who got Emmett Till murdered, why was she never arrested? If white people care that much about black life, why all these police that's going around killing black folks are not being held accountable? If white people care that much about black life, why don't we see it in the political and economic realities of black people? You know why they showed up to the George Floyd march? What? To dissipate the power of black people and to redirect the focus of those marches. White people outnumber black people 5-1. So if you let them in, they automatically take control by virtue of their numbers and redirect it. And so Nancy Pelosi, the Democratic Party, turned the George Floyd march into a damn celebration for Joe Biden. Joe Biden goes to the Democratic Party. We got nothing out the march whatsoever because we let it get diluted. Right. You have to keep it all black. The minute you let white people in, because you can't control how many join. There's more of them than us here. You can't control how many join. So the minute you let them in, they now have the power to remake this into whatever they want. And because most Negroes who participated in the George Floyd march made it multicultural, every time we get on the microphone, this is not just about black people. I'm so tired of hearing that shit.
It is though.
It is about us. Yes. But if you notice when it's about us, it can't be about us. Yeah. See, when the Mexicans shut down.
There's gonna be a lot of people who hear this and be like, he's advocating for segregation. And to some extent, that's true. But like I said earlier, segregation in and of itself doesn't tell you if something is wrong or right. You need to dig a little deeper. What if it turned out that we had a segregated movement? Not a movement for segregation, but a segregated movement. And every time we desegregated that movement, it reduced the power of our movement by 90%. Would you still say, yes, I'm sorry, stop segregating. You're gonna have to let your movement get reduced by 90% every single time. Like after a while, be like, okay, then you're all. Do you acknowledge that you're saying we're never gonna have this change then? Because that effectively that is what's happening. Do you acknowledge that that is the effective reality? No. I was like, all right, bro. Then it's not saying that it's good. It's not saying it's ideal. But if this is the only way for it to move forward, if every other group of people is banding together to do this, it's just like you can't call it racist the moment that black people do it. Like every other culture and race and group and ethnicity can do it, but when black people do it, now all of a sudden it's this thing. It's
on the highways in California. Nobody tried to multiculturalize that. You understand me? You're not welcome here. Absolutely, this is our thing. When the European Jews, this is our thing. But soon when black people do it, we gotta multiculturalize and do what? Kill the focus of it. Oh, and nobody wants black people to be free, and they damn sure don't want you to be equal, and they definitely don't want you to have more than they do.
So let me help my good brother out, right? So some of the talking points when I do have these conversations with other black men or black women is that, you know, procreating is part of being pro-black, right? Procreating with another black person. So some people will say,
before we get into that, okay, what would be your description of a pro-black person? I hate the term pro-black, okay, because I never heard of a pro-Mexican or pro-Jew. This is how messed up we are. Not you for saying pro-black, but for you to have to define a black person as pro-black. Do you know what that means?
Right.
That automatically means by contraindication that most black people are anti-black. Do you feel me? If I walk in and you say he's pro-black, this is what people say when they see me. It'll be 1,000 blacks. He's pro-black. Do you know what you're saying about everybody else? You're fucking coons. Do you see what I'm saying? We're the only people. We're the people who are for us are the minority. Think about that. You have to describe people who care about black people as pro-black. No other group has to do that. And it speaks to how much most of us are anti-ourselves.
I don't necessarily think that means you're anti-black, because usually when I think the word pro, usually the most extreme of something, right? This is why we got pro-life and everything else. When you put pro in front of something, that means the most extreme. I think people confuse being proud to be black with being pro-black. I think people are proud to be black.
I don't see how one can exist without the other. What? If I'm proud to be black, I'm pro-black. I'm for my people.
Yeah, but some people might say, like when you look at the definition, it might say only supporting black-owned businesses or only supporting everything all black. So when you say pro, it's the most extreme. I'm only buying from black people. I'm only reproducing. I'm only loving black people.
It would be impossible to only buy from black people because we don't manufacture and sell everything that somebody needs in order to survive. For me, pro-black means always putting the best interest of my people first in any situation or any decision that I have to make.
Okay.
You follow what I'm saying? You ain't got to be super this, you got to be a black superhero. But I'm going to put my people's interest above anything else in front, above the church, above the mosque, and above other minority groups. My people come first. That's all it means to me. And you ain't got to be extreme with it. You understand me? So people see me when I walk out on the streets, white people stop and talk, Arabs stop and talk. I got people follow my work of every race, and I will respect them as human beings. But when it comes to the struggle, none of your interests matter before my own people, because my people's interests will never matter before yours.
That's true. It won't matter.
Most black people love ain't love for most white folks. Everything white people do has a political purpose. Everything white people do has a political purpose.
Part 2.
Ain't no love is love white. Would we be considered racist if we only date within our race? No, that's what you call race loyalty. And you get racism as a group system of exploitation, discrimination, oppression, bias, where one group seeks to deny all members of another group their fair share of resources, opportunities, and
I feel like the original definition of racism was similar to classism, to where like if you were to talk about, oh, is this person a racist, you would be like, okay, like compare it to, is this person a classist? And when you look at it that way, it's just like, okay, well, there's a system in place that benefits a certain class versus another, or a higher class versus the lower class. Sorry, 1 second. Good. Thanks for the one, dude. Okay. Fuck, what was I saying? Fucking shit.
most white folks. Everything white people do has a political purpose. Everything white people do has a political purpose. Ain't no love is love white. Would we be considered racist if we only date within our race? No, that's what you call race loyalty. And you get racism as a group system of exploitation, discrimination, oppression, bias, where one group seeks to deny all members of another group their fair share of.
That's what I was gonna say. Jesus Christ, this shit is like all over the fucking place. Yeah, like it's one thing to look at. There's racism. Racism can manifest in different ways, but there are some people who say, okay, that's not racism. That's somebody being racist. And if racism is only defined as a ism, as a system, as the way culture, society, and businesses and economics and government run, you look at it that way. If you view it from a non-individualistic approach, not how it affects individuals, but as an individual actor enacting it, that would be more so what he's talking about here.
Of resources, opportunities, and privileges. You know why you can't be a racist? You don't own a damn thing white people need in order to live. White people need you for nothing, but you need them. Whose schools our kids go to? Theirs. Our money in whose banks? Theirs. Who's building the houses we need to rent and buy? Them. Who's shipping our stuff around the world that we need to order to live? Them. You follow me? They don't need us. We need them for everything. We are as dependent on white people today as we were when slavery ended 157 years ago.
1 second.
And black people got to be careful about raising the importance of other people's issues to our own. Because by doing that, you reduce the quality of your own fight. Right. Because nobody else has been through what you've been through here. Everybody in America showed up as an immigrant. We're the only people who showed up as imports. Why would you dare make the gay struggle equal? Why would you dare make the Arab or Asian struggle equal? Ridiculous. When those Asian women were murdered in Atlanta, which was a tragedy, and I didn't have a problem with the president making a law against it. But my problem was, you had about 8 to a dozen Asian women get murdered in one night. As a result of one night, the president and vice president flew down to Atlanta and met with the Asian community. He passed an executive order almost overnight. A congressional bill came, anti-Asian hate, unanimously passed. Almost overnight. My issue with that, one Asian tragedy, they get a personal meeting with the president and vice president. They get an executive order. They get a federal law that makes it illegal to even use a racial slur. We've been here 400 years. You ain't never flew down and met with us face to face after no tragedy. When that damn devil walked into that supermarket in Buffalo, New York and murdered those Africans, when Dylan Roof walked into that church in Charleston, South Carolina, murdered those Africans, we didn't even get a face-to-face meeting from the president of the United States, who was black at the time, Barack Obama. But this is what you do for the Asians? And then you sign an executive order? And then you sign an anti-Asian hate? Where's the anti-black hate?
I don't want to sound dumb, but, you know, they would have to deal with their people. Who do we have that would support us?
I agree with you. The reason they responded to the Asians the way that they did is
they got somebody
Asians,
home.
Absolutely. You have China, you have Japan, who have countries who have political power that America has relationships with that they can't afford to lose.
Exactly.
And you will have to answer. There will be political, economic consequences for letting our people get mistreated in your land. We don't have that. And the reason we don't have that is because we have not helped to build a single African state into the power base we need her to be so she can speak out for us. We have used our money to empower all these nationalities and use almost none of it to empower Africa, the very continent we need to do what you just said. Be strong enough to be a diplomatic voice for American Africa.
But this is why I asked you before which one is more important to fix first, because if we had that power behind us, wouldn't it be easier for us to make moves over here?
If we had that power in Africa, absolutely. But we're not building the power though. In other words, we should be in Africa right now. I'm sending you to Ghana. I'm sending you to Nigeria. I'm sending you to Namibia. I'm going to go to Ethiopia. We're going to sit down with the president. Listen, we are $2 trillion people. We need you to be able to speak up for us. What are the economic slave chains that America has around your economy? What are the economic slave chains America has around your economy? And what could we do with our education and income to weaken those chains so one day they can fall? Africa would love to do business with us instead of the World Bank or the International Monetary Fund or the French government or the Belgian government or the German government. They would rather do the business with us. But the problem with black folks, we are comfortable and content being American slaves. We're not looking at the global ramifications of our irresponsible behavior. We're not looking at the global needs of our people. We are content with this America the way that it is. We are comfortable being treated like 21st century slaves. Because if we were not, with the resources we waste every day, we would be going crazy. Go down your social media feed. Does it look like Black America's in a crisis? Go down your YouTube. Does it look like Black America's in a crisis? Go to your Twitter. True. Go in, if you did not know how racist America was, and you went to Black Twitter, Black Instagram, Black TikTok, Black YouTube, could you tell? No. Don't it look like we live in the best times of our lives? Because black people are like overgrown children. Slavery arrested our psychopolitical development. Slavery arrested our psychopolitical development. The slave system turned us into eternal children in this country. What do children do? They spend their money on the things that they like, and they beg their parents for the things that they need. Is that not Black America? $2 billion on Air Jordans every year, $4 billion on liquor, $30 billion on hair and beauty, nearly $1 billion on chicken, turkey, beef, and pork, multiple billion on video games, multiple million on children's cologne. Children's cologne. Check this out. We spent about $21 million on children's cologne a year. Wow. You know, baby Polo, baby Versace. Yeah, they got children's cologne. But half the black boys in America in 4th grade can't read on their grade level. That's a fact. Half the black boys in America in 8th grade can't read on their grade level. We spend $21 million on cologne. I don't excuse nothing another race does to my people. Because as a human being, you should be able to practice decency whether you're dealing with a billionaire or somebody who's dead broken homeless on the street. You understand me? Definitely. But we have to look in the mirror too. And look at how we make it easy for people to disrespect us. Because how does the people in your condition have the time to engage in this type of tomfoolery over here? Do you feel me? If I'm Chinese looking at Black America, how do I make sense out of this? Y'all can't care about yourselves. Because as much as you talk about reparations, and as much as you talk about the next presidential election, look at the money you waste. Imagine a Korean walking to a black community meeting.
That shouldn't be an argument against reparations from other people. Like, reparations should be like, is something right or wrong? That should only be the conversation. I mean, like, from the point of view of other people, as far as, like, outside of the black community, is it right or wrong? Because if it was the right thing to do, none of the things like, well, black people don't know how to spend their money, like, none of that would even, it's the right thing to do. Like, let's say, I don't know, for anything, there could be downstream effects, negative downstream effects on anything that you do that's the right decision, but you wouldn't just not do it. Well, it could end out bad, so I'm not going to do the right thing. Like, you would never do that, but it's also true that you do need to look at yourself and be like, what am I doing to be self-destructive and destructive to my own group?
On reparations, a Korean, and stand up and say, can I ask y'all a question? Why y'all in here arguing over reparations when y'all done turned my people into $1 trillion nation? I make $30 billion off y'all people a year. $30 billion a year. How much have we given the Koreans over the past 30 years? What's 30 billion times 30 years? Are you talking about reparations? You see that? But black people are in denial about our self-hate. I tell black women all the time, if you would just stop hating the way God made you, you can take your $30 billion a year and build an independent school for every black girl out here. You could stop child sex trafficking. Black women could wipe out child sex trafficking for black girls by taking some of that $30 billion on here. But guess what? How I look is way more important than the condition of my people. Black men, same thing. We could take the $4 billion on liquor, the $2 billion on Air Jordans, the multiple billion we spend on vacations, on money we spend on these damn non-black women. We could take that money and build black schools for black boys.
Clubs, like, I want to know. We can't. I mean, I won't say we can't change that, but that's we're surrounded by it. It's like every block has a liquor store. Every block has sneakers. That don't mean you have to partake. I agree with that.
Where is the discipline?
It's so hard for the people that don't know better.
Discipline. We do know better. We do. Even the most politically uneducated black person knows there's something better I could be doing with this money. Do you feel me?
I agree.
We are comfortable in our oppression. And the reason we're comfortable in it is the white man has allowed us enough of his useless amusements to content us with our oppression. We got the cell phone, social media, NBA playoffs. We have enough. See, black poverty ain't the same as African poverty. It ain't the same as Caribbean African poverty. It ain't the same as Brazilian African poverty. Our poverty is damn near middle to upper class in most other places. Do you understand me? And so because we don't have it as bad as other people, we think we win when we lose. We think we win when we lose.
Is that why, when Africans go to the Caribbean come over here and be like, yo, you know what? Y'all got it easy. Like, you know what I mean? Y'all just being lazy.
Compared to what they come from. And when they come, they take advantage of whatever they can do. So they'll work at the taxi, they'll work at the airport security, right? And they'll save that money and they will send it back home. Many of them come over here to hustle and to send the money back home. And I don't have no problem with them doing that. You understand? But what I do need the African immigrant brother and sister to understand, America will give you opportunity that she will never give me because you are not a threat. You can be deported whenever they feel like it. True. You can be stripped of your American citizenship or your green card whenever they feel like it. They can strip me of my citizenship, but where do they send me? Nowhere. We are the only people that cannot be deported. And that's why America can't stand us, even though she's the reason she can't get rid of us.
So I know you said earlier that you don't want to beg anybody to be a part of the movement.
Yes,
right?
or the race.
Right. So, but it just seems like a lot of people are ignorant to what's going on here. So it wouldn't be begging, I just think they need to be educated. You know what I mean? Like,
okay, I think they're ignoring it. I don't disagree totally. You have Negroes and you have coons.
Okay.
The Negro is completely ignorant. He would respond to what you just suggested. Take a Negro who think white people are everything. White women are beautiful. White people are more intelligent. Black people are lazy. He's a Negro. He's been miseducated. You educate him, you can bring him back into the revolution. Right? He was just a Negro. He didn't know. But then you got the coon. The coon knows that the white man ain't better. The coon knows that black people are the original people. But he's paid and financed to intentionally mislead his people. The Negro I can work with because I can educate him out of his situation. The coon is dangerous. The coon has stabbed me in my back the minute I turn my back. And that's why many of our African leaders from around the world have been betrayed by members of their inner circle. Patrice Lumumba, murdered by a friend. Thomas Sankara, murdered by a stepbrother. Malcolm X, murdered by people he trusted. Dr. King, set up by people he trusted. When you look at the black struggle globally, because you got to look at all of our heroes and heroes, not just the ones here. Many of them were set up and sabotaged by people they grew up with and who they trusted. Kwame Nkrumah was overthrown in Ghana with the assistance of his college roommate at Lincoln University of Pennsylvania. The State Department found his roommate, sent him to Ghana to help overthrow his roommate, who was the first democratically elected president in Africa post-colonization.
That's like the Fred Hampton story I've seen recently.
Right. Now, that informant wasn't a friend of Fred Hampton, but to your point, he weaved his way into his trust, sold him out, gave the FBI a drawing of Fred Hampton's apartment, drugged his Kool-Aid. You understand? So when you get in this movement for black liberation, you don't have no friends.
I have a quick question for you that may be personal. Do you feel like, since you're a big impact to the black community, that you're in danger?
I'd say this. I get death threats on a regular basis. I know the FBI and CIA tapped my phone. They've been doing this since my first trip to Africa 2005. There's about 6 people who come around me on a regular basis who I'm pretty certain are paid agents. Some of the women who have expressed interest in me over the past 6 months, I definitely believe that they are paid agents. But I'm gonna say this to you. When I look at Malcolm and Martin, and I listen to their friends who survived it, they often talk about how those 2 great black leaders, 2 of my heroes, got to a point in their life where they were so spiritually and emotionally exhausted from the threat of death that they felt they secretly wished for it to come to get it over with.
Because like always looking over your shoulder kind of
They got tired of it.
Right.
Dr. King got tired of it. Malcolm got tired of it. And I think they asked the Lord, just make sure when they hit me, they don't hit my daughter and children, my wife and children. You feel me? I don't ever want to get to the point where I'm that fatigued from the threat that it takes away my commitment to the struggle. Now, they never lost their commitment to the struggle. But they basically died before they died, if you understand what I'm saying. Because once you psychologically exhausted with the threat of death, there's nothing else to live for. I'm still struggling, but I'm not enjoying my life. My wife can't really enjoy me. My kids can't really enjoy me because my mind has become beaten down with the prospect of death. Remember, they bombed Dr. King's house twice. They bombed Malcolm's house the day before the week before he died, right? I don't ever want to get like that. So I discipline myself. I practice traditional African spirituality. I try to stay as good as possible. I need to do a better job, but that's my walk. The biggest thing that insulates me, though, is I believe I was born to do what I did, what I'm doing. I don't believe I was born to be nothing else but what I am right now. And because I believe that I'm on a God-given mission, and because I believe that the ancestors are helping me as much as possible to achieve the goals that I have in mind for my people, which is ultimately liberation for all African folks, if I die in the work, it was my destiny. And if I don't, it wasn't. You know what I mean? So for me, I'm content with whatever happens. But my comfort and peace of mind comes from knowing that this is the destiny I negotiated with God in heaven before I incarnated. So it don't really bother me.
So let me ask you this question, right? Just to go back to the dating outside your race. You once said that dating interracially is a form of self-hatred.
Absolutely.
Why do you believe that?
Absolutely. Because why do you want to stare in the face of a member of the people who have committed the greatest human atrocities against your people? These are the people.
Is that only specifically to white people, or do you mean if they date an Asian woman or Indian woman? Is that still
Well, I got 2 answers. If we're dealing with white people, why would you want one of them after what they've done to us and continue to do? Because your white girlfriend's still a racist. She still doesn't value black life. You understand? That white man Serena Williams was married to, he don't value black life. You understand? That white woman that took $1 billion from Tiger Woods, she don't value black life, right? I can give you countless examples of people I've met in therapy who were called the N-word by white husbands and white wives. You understand me? White people who have sex with you, didn't slave masters sleep with our mothers and grandmothers? So just because they land in the bed with you, what makes you think that they shed their racism? They don't. White people are racist. All white people are racist. There's no exceptions. They may not all be bigots, but they're all racist. They all want their people to dominate unfairly the resources, the opportunities, and the privileges of this society. So every white person.
What about people that just say love is love, right?
Who believes love is love?
I mean, that's most people's answer.
That might be most black people. Love ain't love for most white folks. Everything white people do has a political purpose. Everything white people do has a political purpose. Ain't no love is love white.
Would we be considered racist if we only date within our race?
No, that's what you call race loyalty. And racism is a group system of exploitation, discrimination, oppression, bias, where one group seeks to deny all members of another group their fair share of resources, opportunities, and privileges. You know why you can't be a racist? You don't own a damn thing white people need in order to live. True. White people need you for nothing, but you need them. Who schools our kids go to? Theirs. True. Our money in whose banks? Theirs. Who's building the houses we need to rent and buy? Them. Who's shipping our stuff around the world that we need to order to live? Them. You follow me? They don't need us for shit. We need them for everything. We are as dependent on white people today as we were when slavery ended 157 years ago. So, in my opinion, if you talk to an integrationist and say, how far have we come since slavery? Oh, we come very far. We got a black president, now we got a black vice president, we got a black Supreme Court justice, we got about 10 black billionaires, we got about 100 black millionaires.
You should change it.
Because their definition of progress is based exclusively on superficial assets. Are you following me? And that's the integration. Now you come to me, the nationalist, the Pan-African nationalist. How much progress have we made since slavery? 0. But Dr.
Yeah, that would be a good thing to. That would be a good thing to ask, like, left-leaning and progressive people. Do you think? Well, depending on how progressive they are, they would say we haven't made zero progress. But I don't know if they would. Just, I'll just say white liberals are just a different. They're just white liberals are just a subset of liberals that are just like. No, I'll say white progressives. I won't even say white liberals. I'll say white progressives because they are crazy. Yeah. People only define success as far as money and clout and fame. Then I guess black people came a long way, and the battle was won, basically, right?
How can you say that? Black people got master's degrees, doctorate degrees, houses in white neighborhoods, we own our own business, we got millionaires, we got tech companies. Here's my question. To what extent are we now in a better position to protect and dictate the lives of our children today than we was when slavery ended? Let me ask it another way. When slavery ended, we owned 1/2 of 1% of all the wealth in America. Guess how much we own now? Just 1/2 of 1% of all the wealth in America. What the fuck has changed? Nothing at all but the appearance of things. Right. The only thing they did when they ended slavery is change the way it looked. They traded in slavery. Before the 13th Amendment, we were owned by individuals. We was the property of individual slaveholders. After the 13th Amendment, we became property of the government itself. We are slaves of the state.
So
still not free.
Let me ask you a question, because
in other words, if you walk out here right now and a police officer pulls you over and takes your life, God forbid, unjustifiably, how is that any better than you being on the plantation picking cotton and the overseer just decides to get off his horse and blow your damn brains out? 157 years apart. Was there any difference in the power dynamic? No, nothing at all. We are exactly where we were. Power is the measuring stick, y'all. Not education, not income, not billionaires and millions. How many black people on TV, Obamas and Kamalas? That's irrelevant. How much power do we have to force white people to leave us the hell alone? And do we have any more now than we had in 1865?
I don't see it. Moving on. Ask question.
Obamas and Kamalas is what a bar.
So, because a lot of people say that Obama got in office and he did nothing for black people. Do you think he had the power to do anything when he was?
I'm gonna ask a question before that question. Do I think he had the power?
Yeah.
Yes and no. Major changes, he didn't have the power. Right. Minor changes, he did. For example, Barack Obama could have got us more black teachers. Barack Obama could have did something about the special education exploitation of our children. He could have done something about the suspensions and expulsions. He could have fought for better schools and more black educators, because everybody agrees that the schools are a problem. Everybody agrees that Obama didn't do nothing about that. You follow me? He could have done something about black homelessness. He didn't. Now for the black middle class, he threw them a couple bones and allowed them to buy a house and that kind of shit. You consider that progress, right? But overall, did he systemically change anything for black people? Not at all. Did he systemically change anything for gay people? Hell yeah. Hell yeah.
But don't you think it's easier for one to do that because of the power that they possess? Because of, there's white people, Asian people that's in that community.
Okay, possibly. But here's my question for you. Let's say Obama had no power to change nothing. Let's just say that. Then why would you vote for him for your presidency?
I was ignorant to how that whole system worked. When I first voted, I just turned 18. So as I'm learning more, I realized that it goes through a vote and you need certain seats, people in these seats to push bills through. He didn't have that. Even Biden now, where we voted in these seats, he's still not doing nothing for black people.
But you know what the difference is? Presidents have executive privilege. Barack Obama could have signed executive orders to do things for black people that he did not do. Remember, Biden gave the Asians an executive order before Congress gave him a law. He gave the Native Americans an executive order before Congress gave him a law. You follow what I'm saying? Donald Trump gave the Hispanics, the Latinos an executive order before. You understand? Obama could use the power of his pen. And here's my one thing against Barack Obama. My one thing, you're right. I'm not going to slide him for not changing anything. I'm going to slide him for not even trying. Do you see the difference?
Definitely.
You the president of student government at college. You didn't get nothing done. But guess what, brother? I salute you, because I saw you fight for me. You feel me? You didn't get nothing done, but I saw you fight for me. Every time I turn on the television, Barack Obama talking about homosexuals. Like they're the only people in the country. That's all he talking about. Middle class white people, homosexuals, women, and immigrants. That's all he cared about. Black people got no attention from him. But that's why the white man put him in there. When Obama was running for office, I'm one of the only scholars of public stature that said when he's done, we're going to be worse off than we was before he got in there. You go to my I did a lecture at Black and Nobel bookstore, Philadelphia. It's on YouTube. Go watch it. People still watching now. They say, Dr. Umar, everything you said in the Obama.
There is an argument that that Obama, but there was an opinion that it kind of had Obama by the balls, to where if he did anything for the black community at all, it would just be immediately written off as a black person, now we have a black president, and now he's doing racist policies to help his black people. Like the optics on it, even if he's right, the optics are just so bad to where it's just I don't know what you would. I don't envy that position at all. But yeah, so it does some shit.
And this is why he was running. Everything you said about him, it has all come to pass. Why? I'm not no genius, but what I do know is every time we get elected officials, the condition of black people gets worse. It never gets better. Rarely do we do better when somebody black gets elected.
You don't think he was personally hand-selected, especially after the George Bush situation?
Yeah. They selected Barack Obama to make the black community in America safe for homosexuality, and they needed him internationally without African support because America needs Africa's resources. So he was a stooge in the public. He knows it, but he did it willingly. I'm sure he has trouble sleeping at night sometimes. You know what I'm saying? But my point again, if he has no power, and if you claim your vote, see, both things can't be true. Either your vote is important, or Obama should have never been elected because he ain't got the power to do nothing. You see that you can't have a vote. You can't say my vote means everything to me, but I'm gonna use it on a man who can't do anything for me. It can't be both ways. I'm gonna be honest with you, and I don't blame Barack Obama. To his credit, He never said he would do nothing for black people. Do you understand?
Face value.
When Jesse Jackson ran for president 84, 88, he said he would do something for black people. When Al Sharpton ran, he said he would do something for black people. When Barack Obama ran, he made sure he didn't mention black people. Even in his presidential address, he wouldn't even mention Dr. King by name. He just said a preacher from Georgia. He wouldn't even say his name. Obama said as far away from black issues as possible. So to his credit, he didn't lie to us. We projected onto him this messianic complex that failed us. Because guess what? You know what? Do you think Joe Biden would have ignored black people if we did let Obama do it for 8 years? Do you think Donald Trump would have ignored black people if we did let Obama do it for 4 years? For 8 years? You will never get another president's attention anymore. Because the whole world watched black America catch hell and give Barack Obama a pass for 8 years. The worst thing we could have ever done was publicly say it was okay.
How do we bring
to not do nothing and just be black?
How do we bring value back into our vote?
You have to organize it along racial lines.
I thought it was disrespectful when Joe Biden, when he was asked by Charlamagne, why should black people vote for you? And he just like, well, if you don't vote for me, you're not black. Like that wasn't an answer. He just like,
it was disrespectful. But you know why? And he didn't get no flack from me.
He didn't.
But you know why he was coming up to say that? Because the Democratic Party has owned the black vote since 1933. That's right. This is 2023. So in another 9 years, we would have voted Democrat for a century. What have the Democrats done so great that we own our vote for 100 years, brothers? 100 years. 100 years. You see that?
Even President LBJ, Lyndon B. Johnson, said when he was writing, doing the Civil Rights Act and writing it into law, he even said we will own the black vote for generations. He even said that, or at the very least, that quote is attributed to him. And I've actually looked into it myself, but he did say that yes, by doing this, we will secure the black vote for centuries or whatever the fuck, or generations. And this is where a lot of conservatives, especially like Candace Owens and other black conservatives, get the I left the plantation. Now, granted, to say I left the plantation because I left the Democratic Party and then you signed up you throw your eggs into the basket of another plantation, I don't know how effective that messaging is. I would call Republicans just the Democrats said they wouldn't do anything for you, right? Come over to our team. We know we ain't gonna do shit for you. Like that's how I view Republicans when it comes to that, because they're never gonna do anything. Republicans aren't even lying about it either. They say, yeah, we want to get rid of these social programs and shit. We do not want this. They are honest when they talk about helping you and how they say they won't.
Now, to your question, get out the Democratic Party, get out the Republican Party. Black people need to become independents, and we need to run and finance our own independent candidates. So when you become mayor of New York, when you become governor of New York, when you become a city council or state rep, you're going to do whatever the black community tells you to do, because you don't owe nobody nothing. You ain't take no money from the Rockefellers, you ain't take no money from Chase Manhattan. See that? You ain't take no money from Morgan Stanley, you ain't take no money from Walmart, you ain't take no money from Hyundai, you ain't take no money from McDonald's. You are a free candidate. The problem with our elected officials is 99% of show up in office already enslaved by the dollar of another man.
So
we up there celebrating, he's the new mayor of New York City, like the guy y'all got now. Ain't he a former police officer?
Yeah.
What we vote for him for? He's a damn cop. No disrespect that he might be a nice guy, but you fraternal order of police.
His color's blue.
So thank you. So what we vote for him for? Because black people let it be
an independent party win them, because if
you don't need to win. In fact, you don't even need a party, you just need an independent political union. In other words, let's say we're a numerical minority, right? We can run an independent, we never gonna win because whites got more votes than us and Latinos now got more votes than us, right? We don't have to win. We're gonna leverage our votes. We're gonna have a political town hall meeting with all the major candidates: Republican Party, Democratic Party, Libertarian, Green Party, right? You say this is New York City, we got 4 million black votes. And we put them all in one place. We are not split. Do not divide the black vote. Put it together. We're gonna ask y'all some questions. After y'all leave, we'll talk about y'all behind y'all back. We're gonna have a big community town hall debate. But when we walk out of here, we agree that majority rules. And whichever one of y'all we vote for, guess who's gonna get the votes. And if you do not deliver on what you promised, very next election, you're gone. They're gonna have to deliver. Can they survive without your 4 million votes? Hell no.
That's why they say save us for the end and start absolutely shit to make us happy.
Here's what y'all need to understand. Nobody wants an organized black vote. Let me say that again. No black governor candidate wants an organized black vote. No black U.S. Senate candidate. No black U.S. rep. No state rep. State senator. City council. Nobody, black or white, in politics wants an organized black vote. You wanna know why? Because you now got the power to hold them accountable. If we was organized, your mayor would have to go to war with the police department on our behalf. He would have a choice, or he's gonna be unseated. Do you understand me? You think he wants y'all to be organized? These handkerchief head ass black politicians who don't fight for us and these governmental systems, do you really think they want your vote to be organized? You will make them turn their slave master into an enemy.
Do you think that's why they give women and trans people so much leverage when it comes to separating them from actual black man or black family?
Yes. I do think they want the black female vote. She's the biggest constituency in our community, right? Brothers don't vote, brothers in jail, brothers know the vote ain't gonna mean shit until we organize it. So yes, they would rather have a black female vote than a black community vote, hands down. Because black women vote more than black men. And that's why we need our sisters to come back into the fold and say, you know what? We're not voting as women. We voting as black people. And we voting with our men. Do you know how powerful that would be? The black men and black women stop the dumb shit on social media and say we want to fight because we got a common enemy, white supremacy. And we're going to put our votes behind a candidate who offers to do the most for us. That would be revolutionary.
So speaking of that, I've seen a video of yours where you said that feminism has conditioned black women to view black men as the enemy.
It has. Feminism was financed by the CIA. Gloria, what was her name? Gloria Steinem, I think she was. Mother of modern feminism, because traditional feminism goes back to the 1800s, right? With Susan B. Anthony and those white supremacists. But Gloria Steinem was a CIA agent. They financed her. Her first feminist magazine they paid for. The CIA brought feminism into the white household to get the women out the house, and into the black household to turn the black woman against the black man. To scapegoat us for problems caused for her by white supremacy.
So, obviously, a big thing, obviously, we spoke about the gender wars, earlier. Obviously, there's a lot of conversation nowadays about, the value of what a woman brings and the value of what a man brings in a relationship. And now there's a lot more rhetoric from our women that we hear is, I'm strong, independent, I don't need no man, right? So,
that's pain speaking, right? Because most black women know they will never get a man. A black woman can have sex whenever she wants, right? Because she's beautiful. She can have a bed mate, but to have a soul mate, she may never get. I have 2 daughters, 11 and 20, right? My oldest will be 21 this week. Statistically, right? There's a strong chance my daughter could be one of those. I hope she's not. She could be one of those who never get a husband because only one out of 4 gets a husband. You see that? So when a black woman says, I don't need a man, that is a reaction to the reality that I may not get a man.
So why not preach? Because I understood, you're obviously against interracial relations when it comes to black men, with white women,
with all women.
Tell niggas need to step the fuck up.
You should only be with a black woman.
And you will say, well, if you can't find a good woman in America, there's
somewhere. Absolutely.
So why not teach that same rhetoric to white women? Like,
I do.
You feel
I know sisters all the time go there.
So
I know sisters who married. I just spoke with a sister. She invited me to the wedding. She's married a brother from the continent.
So, but instead of saying they will never
I'll
get
take
married.
sisters in Africa who married brothers they met in Africa.
Right.
So
I think there's obviously plenty of black men and black women.
So what I also tell black women, if
get
you're going to go get you an African man from the continent, you have to understand that the way in which you talk to black men in America will not be tolerated over there.
Why the fuck is it not tolerated here? That's what we're trying to tell them.
Well, over here, I want to say this to us though, because we try to act like the way sisters treat us doesn't have a history that we are not at least partly responsible for. Let's be honest. The black woman has had to hold down the black house by herself, although imperfectly. She's had to do it by herself since the mass incarceration of black males began in the 1970s. You understand me? Most of our children are raised by a single mother right now, and it has been that way for about 50 years. So when a sister says, I don't need a man, because she couldn't find one strong enough to hold her down, or when you meet a woman and you say, sister, I'm strong enough to be a man, you ain't got to work or you ain't got to pay the bills or whatever, pull back, I got you. And she can't do it because all the other men before you who disappointed her. So what I'm saying is black men, we got to be patient with our women because we created that personality. We created that, and then we want to act like we didn't play a role.
We have to be held accountable for their poor selection.
No, you have to be held accountable. No, you have to be held accountable because they have a poor selection. See, what you're saying, you're selecting a poor mate. And what I'm saying is they don't have much to select one, so of course you're going to end up with a poor mate. And why is she going to end up with a poor mate? Because we as black men are not raising black boys to be the men.
True.
We are not. They are killing themselves right now. What we doing about it? Unemployed black males, what we doing about it? Pants sagging, weed smoking, what we doing about it? Black men are not raising black boys to be the men.
Well, hold on now. I lost a little weed, bro. I don't know you lost me there, bro. I was a little weed, bro.
Our community needs. That is 100% our fault. What I'm saying is she got a right to be angry with us. She got a right to be angry with us. We have not been on our job as black men. If the men are the providers, when have we been providing for our community? I'm not speaking to you individually. Yes, you may be a damn good father. You may be a damn good father. You may be a damn good father. But guess what? What are we doing for the community? What are we doing for the children who don't have a father? You don't think the black woman got a right to be angry when she's been raising 2/3 of the kids by herself for 50 years? And the minute she raised her voice, we say she's not humble enough. She had to become masculine to survive the rape, the molestation, the domestic abuse. Are you telling me you can't see how we created that?
I understand that, but she needs.
If we were loving our women and taking care of our women, do you think she would be like that? That personality has a history.
If she's picking Pookie and Ray Ray instead of
you're making her a scapegoat.
No, she's picking a scapegoat.
No.
There's good quality in it that they ignore.
Why is there even a Pookie in the selection? No. I'm gonna tell you why there's a Pookie in the selection. Because black men have abandoned black boys and have allowed social media, white media, athletes, and rappers to raise them. That's why she with Pookie. If we never allow Pookie to develop, she would not have a Pookie. If we're going to be men, the first thing we got to do is take responsibility for why our women feel the way they feel.
I can hear that.
I'm not saying that they're right to disrespect, because even if a woman disrespects me, right, that still don't give me a right to disrespect her because she's still the queen of the community. Even if she's not acting like it, I'm going to give her that respect. But when I hear brothers talk like this discourse we have now, we act like we don't understand. No, there's reasons for that shit.
I don't understand. Women are so valuable. You know what I'm saying? Like, I think women ground men and help them, propel to the next level. I think men get further in life with a woman, right? But if I'm a hardworking man, but I'm only looked at as resources, and then she's ready to jump on Tom, Dick, and Harry because he got flash, he's shining a little bit more, his access to money is quicker than mine. It's kind of hard to have that.
Well, no, one, I agree with you, but that's not all sisters.
No, it's not.
And if you're constantly running into that type of woman, then the problem is you, because you're attracting a certain low vibrational energy. Why is
not
that?
That same energy for women? You just again, you have
we have a conversation as men.
Yeah.
I got plenty of interviews with all women where I check them too. Right. But as a man, you should not be concerned about what I say to them. As men, we should be concerned of what we're going to do to produce a better generation of black males for tomorrow. That's the only. That is where we should be focused.
Women bring the choice of life, right? We understand that, right? I can't have a child unless a woman agrees.
She can't carry one if you didn't put it in her.
I agree with that 100% too, right? But whether or not, if you want that child or not, she can still make that decision. It's only
if you don't put a seed in her, nothing else happens. And no woman can make you put a seed in her. So the original act was the responsibility of a man.
True. I mean, all right. So did black men willingly leave the household, or was it the system that was
systemic?
All right. So if we give them grace for them having to do it without us, was it our fault? How we not getting that same grace and that same respect?
I'll tell you why. Because black men, as the leaders of the community, now
we can't be leaders.
Here's the question. Here's the question. Because the argument y'all make feeds into the feminist agenda. Okay. It's an argument that says I don't want the responsibility. I'm gonna leave it shit, right? I'm gonna fall back and let her run everything. That's what the feminists tell. They say, look at them, making excuses for why they can't be better men, making excuses for why they can't make better men. You understand? Your argument feeds the feminist narrative. That's
not what we make excuses for.
I'm saying I am the better man, but I shouldn't be held responsible because you want to choose a Pookie and a Ray Ray. That's not me. I work too hard in my life.
What I said, Pookie and Ray Ray shouldn't exist. And the only reason why Pookie and Ray Ray exist because we're not in the community making those boys the men they need to be. Do you see that? She don't get a Pookie if you didn't allow a Pookie.
But she got an Eli. She ain't come to Eli. She went to Pookie. And that's what we're trying to.
She wouldn't have had a Pookie if we didn't allow one in my life. She wouldn't have had a Pookie if we didn't allow one. We men supposed to make the break the boys.
Right. We as men is holding other men accountable for the same thing that you're talking about right now.
What are we doing for the young brothers in the street? So
what you mean, mentoring them? I mean, he's a great father.
That's good. But that's individualism. What are we doing collectively as men to change the trajectory for black boys in the streets right now? Nothing. We're being talking shit.
Yeah, I mean,
it's not going to get better unless we put hands on deck. The reason the athletes and the rappers are the role models is the professional black man moved out the hood. Where the dentist at? He ain't in the black community no more. Where the lawyer at? Where the business owner at? Where the city council person at? We abandon black boys and then we blame black men for poor choices in mates that they should not even have to make if we did a better job raising our boys the right way. At the end of the day, if I'm gonna call myself a man, the ultimate responsibility for reconstruction of the black community rests with me. Yes, they have a role. Yes, they have responsibility. But as a man, as a leader, to say I can't fix this shit unless she changes, that's not the definition of a man.
I think we're on two different accords. I don't think we're saying that. What I'm saying is I'm capable of being that leader, that provider. I worked hard in my life. You know what I'm saying? I should not have to. But I only feel like we tell black men that we have to now deal with masculine women with children.
Why is she masculine? Because she had to raise the kids alone. Not one woman, brother. The whole community.
You mean to tell me the only woman I can look forward in my life is a masculine woman that has kids by other men?
No,
That's what I have to look forward to?
but I'm telling you, mistakes made by black men systemically gave rise to the conditions that allowed her to be masculine and made her end up with a man that you consider to be less than what he should be. And I'm telling you, black men are responsible for her being masculine because we have not helped her raise them children. And when I say help them raise them children, I don't mean you as a stepdad. I mean you as an active member in the community where we go to every single parent black mother and say, how many sons you got? Two? How many sons you got? Two? Well, guess what? That's your son's big brother. That's your son's big brother. He taking him to school. He doing the homework. He gonna spend a couple hours with him every Saturday. He got his own kids too. But he's gonna make time for you. She got masculine because she had to become masculine in order to deal with the rape, the abuse, the domestic violence, the disappointments that men had in her life, and also raising those kids and have to take care of herself all at the same time. The black woman has been the be all in all in our community for half of a century, and now we want to turn around and say because she didn't do it perfectly enough or remain feminine enough, when she had to absorb our responsibilities plus her own. That's insensitive and disingenuous.
I don't believe it. I guess I do understand what you're saying.
I think you have to tell me something that we've done systemically to combat that. You said me and her. I don't care about her. Women and men as a group in the community. You understand? Right. We gave birth to that. You see? So you say she had a couple kids already because she met men. She probably thought they was good. Some of them they left her. You don't know that, brother. You're making assumptions about her. Would you make the same assumption if she was a white woman?
Yes, I would.
So you said.
No, come on, man. Come on. Listen, like I said, I feel like as a black man,
because black men they outside they race more than every other man put together. We, y'all three, yes, okay.
Yeah,
I can just prove that. I know you personally.
Even if we look at the numbers, black men marry black women at 87% rate, where black women marry outside of their race, or they marry outside at 92%.
Black women do not. No, you're wrong.
Percentages are wrong. That's not that much.
Black women do not marry out the race more than black men.
I'm not saying that, but the percentages black
women have one of the highest, fastest growing interracial marriage rates. But her interracial marriage rate pales in comparison to what black men have been doing interracially for 4 or 5 decades. You understand? She don't even come close to what we're doing interracially.
Black fathers are in the home more than any other group of race.
Okay,
so that has no value.
It does have value, but we're going to put that up against the other statistic. 2/3 of our kids are being raised by women. 2/3 of our kids are being raised by the women. And like I said, when I say being raised, I'm not saying it needs to be a father. I would like a father in the house, but I know it's not enough of us to go around. We are not even being accountable to the boys in the hood. And we're complaining about the women. I argue with women who are making babies with the irresponsible men that we didn't raise correctly. That's bullshit. All right. That's whip-ass weak man shit. Take responsibility for our shit. Stop scapegoating them.
Yeah, I could agree to that.
Base. Oh my god. Yeah, this is heated. And this Umar is shutting these niggas down, bro. It's just like, let's be charitable. Let's say they're arguing from the other point of view, but if you want to argue from the other point of view, you can't have it both ways. You can't be like, I'm a man, I'm a leader, but look at what all these other women have done. That's not how a leader doesn't talk about the failures of another group or another person. All they do is, this is the situation, this is what the fuck we're going to do to move forward, and this is how we're going to be successful. That's it. You don't talk about, well, what the woman could have done, because that's not the way a leader talks. It's not the way a man who's in charge, is leading the charge, is going to. That's not how they communicate. That's not how they talk. So it already comes off as blaming another person. It always comes off as excuse making. Well, I don't need to work as hard because this is the circumstances. It's just like, fuck the circumstances. You need to strive ahead.
Say this, look at all we could be doing better, man. Half the black boys in 4th grade can't read. What black men doing about that systemically?
Not enough.
I'm doing about it. I'm doing school for 2 of them. But systemically as black men, what are we doing about that? Nothing. Black boys are the most unemployed teenagers in America. What black men doing about that? You kept talking about? We let them raise right before our eyes, and then we want to criticize us and ended up with one when we should have made sure there were none.
So we all got choices, just like if I choose to live a lifestyle.
That's part of choices. No, it's not. We have to deal with this systemically. He brought up a question earlier, and he said, did we make these problems on our own?
Sure, this person, yes, I understand that every individual has choices, yes. But let's say there are a total of 5 choices, and 4 of those 5 choices are bad choices. Dr. Umar Johnson is saying, why don't we work on taking those 4 choices down to 1 choice? So 1 out of 5 is bad and 4 out of 5 is good. And the other guy is saying, why can't the woman just choose the 1 out of 5 that's good? Well, let's even say that every woman did choose that. There's not enough of those men to go around. So you're either saying to that, at a certain point, you're either saying women either be single or be ready to be blamed for your decision of dating the ain't shit nigga. That's what it comes down to.
Or was there some systemics involved? It was systemics. Okay. In 1970, they shut down the factories. They took out the industrial building jobs. 1980 dropped off the crack and the AIDS. 1990, the Bill Clinton crime bill. There's systemic factors at play. You totally divorce your analysis from any systemic factors at all. You ain't mentioned one. You can talk about her and Bookie and Ray with the kids. You ain't say shit about the systemics. That's exactly what white folks want you to do. That's what white folks want you to do. Ignore what I've done to your women and scapegoat her. Because that's what she's doing to you. She's ignoring what the system did to you. And she's going to scapegoat you. We're both scapegoating each other.
Okay, that's fair.
Your analysis is feeding the gender wars, not solving it.
Listen,
I don't mind us holding the women accountable. I don't mind us holding the men accountable. Yeah. But we're going to hold the system accountable as well. And if we're going to hold the system accountable, that also means we got to make our own systems too. Black men have not been manly in quite some time when it comes to raising boys.
How would you suggest that black men take on the role of leadership,
especially when there's an attack on black masculinity,
without women willing to listen to us? You get what I'm saying? How do we prove our worth or take back the leadership boys?
You want the women back? Take care of these damn boys. They run in the hood, killing people at will, flunking out of school, following the lead of the gangster rappers. There's a whole bunch of stuff we can do that ain't got nothing to do with the women. Boys and men. Do you understand? Deal with the boys and the men. Leave her out of it and go straight to the boys. And you'll get her respect back. Give them jobs, give them education, give them training, give them your time. They not getting none of that from black men. You don't give a shit about black boys. And then we get mad at her for ending up with one later in life. It's ridiculous. Like create the product and get mad for her for ending up consuming the product.
She could consume whatever she wants. I'm just saying, as a black man,
it's not about her consuming whatever she wants, brother. Because if we're trying to fix the black community, everybody and everything matters. It's not an individual. You're an individualist. You're not thinking as a community. Your whole analysis is based on me and her. Step out of that shit. It's the systems at play. You understand?
Right.
Multiple black men screwed up. Multiple black women screwed up. You understand me? Look at the systemic nature and say, what system do we need to create as black men to prevent the Pookie and Ray Ray from coming into existence?
Or I, as a black man, can just look for a woman that is healed, that is leading in her femininity, that doesn't have a child by another woman.
That doesn't solve community problems. We're talking about community solutions. That's individualism.
That's fair. Let me get to this last topic before we get up out of here. I do want to talk about your school because this is a great transition. You know, how difficult was it to build your school? And obviously you had the detractors and the haters saying that the school didn't exist, or you were scamming.
What I could say is, and I know he's not going to, you could just say, I'm not concerned with the group effort. You could say that, but I have a feeling it won't go so well. Okay, yeah. Pause.
And people. So, what was your biggest, I would say, disadvantage or hardship about going about building a school?
First of all, this water was good. It better not be FBI water. I'll take all these pictures. Okay. Frederick Douglass Marcus Garvey Academy. First thing I want to say to your listeners is, please donate to the Academy. Get on your Cash App, $FDMG School. Get on your PayPal, paypal.me/FDMG Academy. You can mail check a money order in to FDMG Academy, P.O. Box 9634, Wilmington, Delaware, 19809. You can get that information on my website, drumarjohnson.com. You can also text message me for that. And for my parents out there who have an issue with your children, learning disabilities, autisms, ADHDs, IEPs, 504s, white teacher racism, psychological evaluations, pre-referral intervention plans, behavior intervention plans, any issues you're having with your children, educational mental health, you can reach out to me. 215-989-9858. That's 215-989-9858. Frederick Douglass and Marcus Garvey Academy. The idea had been with me since I was a psychologist with the School District of Philadelphia. The idea began to take form in 2014 when an associate of mine gave me a phone call and told me that the historic HBCU St. Paul's College was for sale in Lawrenceville, Virginia. He said they only want $2 million. I said, a whole HBCU for $2 million? 118 acres. I went down there, told them I need the school for our boys. The white people at Motley's auction in Richmond, Virginia. And they said, if you can get us $500,000 in about a month, we might get work with you. So we started fundraising. As soon as we started fundraising, my detractors attacked it. They called Motley, tried to disrupt the sale. In 2015, a year later, we started a GoFundMe. They sabotaged the GoFundMe, said I was spending money on my own. So they stopped the GoFundMe, even though I supplied GoFundMe with all the account statements and gave them permission to speak to the branch manager to verify the information. GoFundMe didn't even check it out because they wanted to shut me down. They didn't want to support a black initiative. So then we learned in 2017, I want to say, 16, that a Chinese corporation bought the St. Paul's College. I couldn't believe it.
In the process of you doing it?
Yeah. I couldn't believe that black people let Chinese people buy a historically black college built by our ancestors, coming out of slavery. My father Russell, who was friends with Booker T. Washington and George Washington Carver. Chinese owned now. So once they bought the school, I said, okay, black folks are donating. We've always got a lot of donations. They're just low amounts. Quantity versus quality, right?
Yeah.
Quantity low. But should I say the quality of the donation low, but the quantity vast?
Yes. Okay, get you.
So, a lot of 10s, 20s, 50s, 100s, but you're trying to buy an institution, that ain't quite enough. Right? So anyway, we said we just want to get us a day school. So I used up all my frequent flyer miles flying all over America. I thought the school was going to be in Detroit because Detroit had a couple Catholic schools in great shape that we could afford. There's around the $300,000 mark. I said, we don't end up in Detroit. Like the city, I'm ready for Detroit. Roman Catholic Church went sell them to me. Then we had a school in Philly, Roman Catholic Church went sell them to me. Then we was going to lease a school in money earning Mount Vernon, New York. Clean Catholic school. White man said, I got to call Rome. I said, what? He said, I got to call Rome. I said, you got to call the Vatican. He said, yeah. I didn't know this. He said half the Catholic schools in America are still managed directly from the Vatican.
That's crazy.
Did y'all hear that?
I didn't know that.
That's what else he told me. That the Roman Catholic Church is the second largest owner of real estate on the planet Earth. White
Directly from the Vatican?
Rome said we can't get
Why?
The Roman Catholic Church refused to lease the school in money earning Mount Vernon, New York. In other words, the school could have been open years ago. We kept on getting set.
Is that because, do you feel because you are a black man trying to purchase that?
Dr. Umar.
Yeah, what he's trying to,
Remember something Napoleon Bonaparte said during the Haitian Revolution? When Napoleon said we got to crush the Saint Overture on Jean-Jacques Dessalines, one of his subordinates said, Commander, why are you so interested in destroying the Haitians? Is it to prevent them from destroying our investment on the island? He said, we must stop and crush the Haitian Revolution to forever prevent the march of blacks forward into the world. The Haitian Revolution wasn't about the Haitian Revolution. It was about white supremacy. They can't let me succeed because they don't know how far I will go. You see that? When white people see a fire, they put it out. You feel me? Who is this black man coming up here who can afford to pay this type? What black man is thinking about opening up a school for black boys independently? Now you might do LeBron James, public school, you just get some money to, you didn't buy, you didn't build it, you don't own it, you don't control it. Puffy, get you a charter school, Jalen Rose, get you a charter school. I'm not doing that. It's independent, we own it. Right? Then I went to Detroit, tried to buy a public school. They didn't show me none of the public schools in good shape. Chicago couldn't get none of the public schools in good shape. That's when I realized there must be a national thing out. Right. You don't get no school. You feel me? We had the money and they still wouldn't sell them. So then finally, I come back from Benin, Togo, and Ghana, 2017. Remember the Great North American Eclipse, August 21st, 2017? Which is my birthday. Nat Turner Day, Haitian Revolution Day, George Jackson Revolution Day. I'm on LoopNet. I see the school in Wilmington, Delaware. So this school is brand new. I go to it on my way down to Nat Turner, came back from Nat Turner, went to Cuba to get my initiation. When I came back from Cuba, I finally got into the school. I walked around, I said, you know what? These schools are modern, they're in good shape. Did my research, found out these schools only 10 years old, too low. They wanted $2 million. We only had $500,000. But that was August and September of 17. We bought the school February of 19. So for 18 months, I stayed on. Right. Can we get the school? Can we buy the school? Can we get the school? Buy the school? And then one day I said, can y'all sell it to us? He responded, give us what you got. I said, oh, I talked him down from $2 million. Right. We got the school 2017. I'm happy, jumping for joy. Little did I know, the black contractors was not going to do us any justice. We got robbed, we got scammed, man, our own people. Which is unfortunate. Very unfortunate. Then one day, last September, I said, you know what? I have to use white folks. I waited 3 years to try to get my people. Got to school in 17. We got to school in 19. I saw it in 17. We got it in 19. This is 2023. Right? So February of 19 to 20 to 21 to 22 to 23. 4 years. February, March, April, May, June, July, August, 4.5 in August. I decided to call up a white man. HVAC. He had both units on the roof in 2 days. Crane truck and everything. We already bought the units. We had them custom made. But they've been sitting for a year. Brand new. Sitting. Because all the black HVACs tell me they won't come do it. Never did. So I called a white man to do it. He gets the units up right before the festival. I start scratching my head like, damn. You know, brothers for 3 years. White man did this in 2 days. So then I asked the white man, I said, you know any plumbers? He said, I got a plumber for you. Boom. You electrician? Boom. Security? Boom. Fire company? Boom. Boom. Wednesday, I go to the school to get the final HVAC repairs done. HVAC is on. We got air, we got AC. Got to do some final stuff. We get the inspection. Once that go through, we done. I got to call the city, find out what we got to do to get out certificate of occupancy, because plumbing is repaired and inspected, HVAC repaired and inspected, fire security repaired and inspected, everything. The only thing left is HVAC. And of course, we got to close up the holes and paint and do the floor. It's superficial. Beautiful. But all the systems, once we done HVAC, we done. The sad thing is, those white men did in 4 months. 3 months, really. Well, black men couldn't have me doing 3 years. It's the self-hate. I give it up on our people, though. We go across the street to the Frederick Douglass High School, which is 4 times bigger. I still want to find some black contracts. I'm not giving up on people. But I also have to face reality. And the reality of the fact is we are so psychologically damaged that most of us find it almost impossible to do right by another black person. And these white folks, they didn't like me. Do you feel me? They didn't like me. But they did the job and did it right. It hurt. Like, damn. They just did it with no problem. Just came in, knocked it out, cheaper price and everything. If I would just went with white from the beginning, the school would have been done, but I couldn't do that because that's against what I stand for. So I had to try to use our people.
So with this being an independent school, does that mean you can implement your own curriculums? Like, so what kind of curriculums are you going to plan on teaching at the school?
Well, you got to have math, science, language, and social studies. That's required. Right. And then on top of that, we're going to have agricultural and agronomical science, dietary, nutritional science. We're about to buy some farmland right now. We also going to have political and military science. We'll be teaching African martial arts, weapons training too. There will also be spiritual and astrological science. I practice your spirituality. We will teach it. The school will be a bona fide independent parochial academy. We must have a religious instruction, spiritual instruction. There will also be dietary, nutritional, agricultural, agronomical, spiritual, and astrological, military and political, science of the black man, woman, and child. We're going to teach the boys how to be men, how to be gentlemen, also how to be men, how to be fathers, how to be leaders in the community. And then financial and economics. Investment, real estate, stocks, all of that. We're going to have guest speakers every month for the boys from different industries. They're going to work on their own business plan. And when they graduate from the school, we're going to give them their grant for their first business.
Well, I noticed in China, they are actually teaching their boys, they have masculinity classes in a sense, right? Do you think there's a need to kind of have a masculinity course for our young black boys?
I don't know exactly what their masculinity course entails, right? But our science of the black man, woman, and child will likely cover that.
Okay, that's fair.
We believe in the divinity of the black man and the divinity of the black woman. So that's why
we might need some classes for some grown adult men to be taught how to be a man.
I agree with that.
College or maybe some
need
some help. We're going to have some stuff for the men too once we get the boys up and running. Because although FDMG is a school by day, it's a community university by night.
So this is all boys school?
It's going to be all boys for the first 3 to 5 years. It's going to become girls. All boys and girls.
I'm volunteering us anytime you ever need us to meet, even like speak or do something that you may need, something that you may not have time for, something you think that we can fit to help. We're definitely going to be a part of it. Just it's going to tight out.
I'm looking forward to it. Not just for the blessing it will be to our children, but also to the community. There's very few places that we have where we can meet unencumbered by other people. I speak more than any other scholar in the world, black, right? I'm the most requested black scholar on the planet for 13 years straight. I can count on one hand the amount of places I've been in the world that we own. Most of the time, we're in something owned by Arabs, white people. They flicking the lights on, cutting the lights off. I gotta get out. You feel me?
Definitely.
Like that. The only place that we own is the black churches. But the black churches don't want you in there talking politics because they already in somebody's pocket downtown. You feel me? So the one place that has space and a microphone for us to organize and strategize, the black church, they don't want us in there to organize and strategize. I want to FDMG. We have enough space where we can do conferences and everything. Once we do the Frederick Douglass High School, which is across the street, once both schools up, we are undisputedly the largest independent black school independent campus in the country, and the only independent black school with 2 buildings, 2 legitimate real schools, not no church, not no basement, not no home, real school.
Get all the pebbles from these dudes. Yeah.
That's dope, man. Like, listen, before we get up out of here, because I understand you're a busy man, I do want to ask you one question. It's a short question. I seen that you posted a female rapper by the name of Suki Hani. She has some choice words for you in her song. You know what I mean? What would you say to our good sister about that?
Sister Suki Hani. I never heard of the queen before a supporter of mine sent me the video. Where she said, I'm not going to use her words, but where she said if I wanted to spend some private time with a man, it would be Dr. Umar. Right? And then at the end of the video, which wasn't on my Instagram, but it's on my Facebook and TikTok, she says, if Dr. Umar met me, he would shoot a shot because he sees that I'm a beautiful black African conscious queen. I could use some guidance. I got a little bit of daddy issues. She was very humble. Right? You understand? Yeah, I didn't know she was from Wilmington, Delaware. That's what school is, right? Yeah. I would be open to meeting with her, right? To see where her head is. Because first, it's always politics before Punani for me. So what can we do together to build a community? Now, obviously, her content isn't something I could endorse, but it seemed to me that if she's willing to follow my lead, that she might be ready to make a transition, right? From the raunchiness to righteousness. And so maybe she'll take all her followers and bring them into a more conscious lifestyle. Maybe. I don't know. That would be a conversation that we would need to have, though. But if she decided to turn the corner and leave that content alone for something that is more conscious and more positive for our daughters and sons, I would work with her. And I think we could do a whole lot together, too. But she would have to turn that corner because I couldn't endorse the current message.
Listen, if anybody could do it, you could do it. Like, again, appreciate you for pulling up. Again, let them know where you can follow you at.
TikTok and Instagram and Twitter at Dr. Umar Johnson. Facebook, Dr. Umar Ifatunde. TikTok, Prince of Pan-Africanism with a K. What else is out there? I think that's it, right? Facebook,
YouTube, right?
I don't have a YouTube.
Okay, you don't have YouTube?
All those are fake pages.
Oh, wow. Come on. Before you go to, you gotta hit us with the I beg your pardon. You gotta hear it. Come on. You gotta hear it.
I beg your pardon.
Appreciate you, man. If y'all enjoyed the conversation, make sure you hit that like button, subscribe. If you're not subscribed, join the membership, man. There's a lot of behind the scenes. You might get, you know what I mean? It's a great episode. Cop the merch as well. DailyRapUpCrew, man. Appreciate you.
Y'all ain't bring me no shirt.
No, we got you one.
We got you one, definitely. You know what I mean? And we got to send something to the school. Like, we do all that.
No doubt.
Charles, I want to compare notes on free will.
Oh, one of my favorite things to do.
That was on the free will. Okay. Go on. Oh, a roller coaster of content.
Here's my take. It is true that at some level of resolution that we can observe, causality is absolutely true. Given these initial conditions, this is what will happen afterwards.
That's the physicist.
That's physically speaking. So if you take it to its logical conclusion, then there is no free will because everything is predetermined by things that
everything has an antecedent.
Whether you know it or not, something is causing it to happen.
Something precipitated the thing that caused the thing that made
it's always going to happen. But there is also stochastic uncertainty in the universe. It's built in. There's randomness. There's unpredictability. Chaos. Yeah. And so you have to ask, I think, if you're a physicist, what level of chaos actually affects you to the extent that you could actually make an instantaneous decision based on other stuff that's not necessarily in your past experiences or what you have just seen in your current environment.
Right? But within all those past experiences and your current environment, despite the fact that if you're introducing an element of chaos so that you've never experienced this ever before, your experiences that you have had would then inform your decision about the thing that you've never experienced.
Inform is the word. Is it inform or dictate? Right. Or require. Right. That's the thing. Yeah. Let's say you're in a room with a whole bunch of audience members. You tell a joke. Right. It falls flat. In that moment, you have many things you could do to turn it into a laugh point. True. Right. You hear silence and you're like, oh, that was good. And then we're laughing. So it makes sense.
Is this mic on? That's the old one.
You know, what do? Do you have the freedom to choose one of several choices that you had designed from your past that you prepared to deal with that eventuality? Or is the choice made for you already?
But if he was less experienced, he might not dig out of that hole as effectively or efficiently.
Exactly.
But if you've been in 100 cases where you had a joke bomb, you have data on how to pull out of it. So statistically, you have a chance to get
and it happens instantaneously. You don't even realize that it's happening.
It's in the moment.
Like,
Did you have free will to know?
See, that's right. So now that would be interesting because here you are in a place where your instinct, your training, and your desire,
10,000 hours, whatever it is,
will, as a reflex, cause you to say this, and this, and people go, wow, that was great. Look how he turned around.
So, Charles, can I say in that comment that he preloaded his neurosynapses so that in that moment they all tripped.
Right.
They tripped meaning triggered to go to the solution to that problem.
Right. Same is true. But then I wouldn't have free will at that point. It would just be a response. What I would have is a response to a situation, not necessarily. I wasn't really choosing that.
It chose it for you.
It chose it for
you have 5 choices, and then your system chooses one of the 5
in that moment.
In that moment, right? And so in that moment, you are not exercising free will. Did you set it up, though, with free will in the past so that you could react this way deterministically, but you actually were in control of the circumstance? Right? Here's another physical example of that. A football player is trying to sack a quarterback. The quarterback jukes left. The person trying to sack the QB doesn't have enough time to think about whether to move left or right or up or down. It has to react based on years of training and practice and experience. So in that moment, that action is not free. But in the setting up of that moment, if it was free enough, does that constitute free will? From a physics perspective, it might not. Then again, from a psychological point of view or from a biological point of view, it might.
But what good are you if you're not landing on one side or the other? I don't need you to, it could be this, it could be that, and I'm right both ways. Whichever the actual answer is, I was right.
Well, he's saying I don't really have the free will to make that decision. I'm going to be right or wrong.
Let's just ask an opinion. In my opinion, I would like to have free will exist in this universe, even though philosophically it can be argued that it does not exist.
Are you happy with a world where you perceive free will even if it isn't?
Maybe. This has to do with the movie Arrival, right, starring Amy Adams, where if you know how your future is going to turn out, would you like to live your life anyway? Right? And the answer is yes, I would. But I still would like to think that the future is not yet predetermined.
No, but it's different. I'm not saying it's predetermined and you know it. I'm saying, would you still be happy with life if some alien said, look, dude, your life is predetermined, there's nothing you can do about it. Keep on believing you have free will, and then go back to the planet.
You're a puppet on a string.
Puppet on a string.
That's free will. I'm a free will puppet on a string.
What I would say in that case is, and I would hope that the knowledge that I have that puppet on a string circumstance allows me to circumvent it. I can find a way. It's fate, right? You've seen so many Greek mythology stories where you try to avoid the fate of whatever the gods have.
The act of avoiding it makes it happen. Like Oedipus, for example. Right.
Would be the most egregious example. Sorry. So the bottom line is, yes, I would still be satisfied with trying to do something different because even the illusion of trying to do something different is in itself a form of free will. Physics-wise, though, that's the challenge, right?
Yeah.
So Neil, if you had to right now decide that free will does exist or doesn't exist, what would you prefer?
My thinking over the recent years, because I didn't used to think about this at all, my thinking over recent years is leaning towards the absence of free will for practically everything we think and do in our lives. And I base that on the fact that over time, things that we have done as people in our species at one time was you were totally to blame for that, or something you did, or something we've learned, no, this person is more susceptible than you are to addiction. There's a biochemistry there. This person cannot just be made the life of the party because they're on the autism spectrum. They don't control that in a way you might think they should, just because you're the life of the party. As you add up all of these things, let's go back to epilepsy, where before that was even a word, you were occupied by the devil. Did you do something bad? Or, well, you knew it was not, everyone knew you were not in control of it. But today, no one is saying, do you have the free will to not have an epileptic seizure? Of course not. Do you have the free will to not be depressed? The person who's ready to jump off the bridge, in that instant, do they have the free will to not jump off the bridge? I don't think so. And the more I add up and explore the human condition, I'm forced to conclude that the direction we are headed is that we are all products of an absence of free will, and as a result, society needs more compassion for people who do not otherwise fit in.
See, I have the exact opposite position in my own mind. I feel that it is because of the absence of free will that you see in most behavior, that it is that 1% of free will activity that moves us in the right direction, bends us toward compassion, takes the arc of history toward justice.
But then, going back to what Neil just said, there are people who actually suffer from personality disorders, that suffer from brain disorders, where they can't do what you just said. They can't express compassion.
There was a day when no one even thought to analyze it that way, as a brain disorder.
Exactly. Now, if they can't, you can. You can show that person compassion or understanding, and therefore free will as an entity exists.
So if you're drawing a line that I have seen be in constant motion over the decades and over the centuries, that line that you're saying, they don't have free will, but I do, I don't know that I can...
See, I have free will over some things and not over others. Now, someone can see me and say, that person needs help in this way and has the free will to help me. I see somebody else who needs this help and free will. Together, it is a network. It's not that an individual...
So you have to draw the line for every individual and even perhaps for society. Does the criminal who's born in poverty have free will to not be a criminal? If most of the people in prison came in below the poverty line. So there's some sociological force operating there
So
where we are less susceptible to that force.
I think that's a great question, analogy. Let's say this. Say those folks who have been branded criminals by our society are incarcerated.
Yes.
We can then, who we're fortunate enough not to face those same circumstances, we're not incarcerated, can look at these incarcerated people, and instead of saying we must keep them away from society, welcome them back.
So that's called restorative justice.
Yeah, and that's a free will example of the exercise of free will.
Of society.
Toward individuals who may not have had the options, had the life experience to recover from a bomb joke.
I saw an old movie where there's a guy who was a junkie, right? And he needed help. But they said, no, the cops came and arrested him because he was a junkie. Today, you wouldn't do that. You would say the person needs help.
When I think about free will, well, there are a lot of things like, how do you determine that you could have made another choice? One, you can't prove that. Like, after the choice is already made, like, you can't prove that you... It's more so like something that, like, well, of course I could have made another choice. Like, I wanted to get pizza tonight, but I wanted to get pizza tonight, so I got pizza, but I could have just as easily got a cheeseburger. Like, it wasn't like I could have just chose that. But at like the same time, it's kind of like you can't. There's nowhere to actually know that, which is why they keep talking about, like, well, when it comes to physics, when it comes to free will, as far as the physics, with respect to physics, there's no way you can prove that you can go back in time to do something like, yeah. I feel like I feel like that almost has to be an aspect of free will, because there's something about the human condition that makes like the majority of people act a certain way, or there's a reason why advertisements work, or like peer pressure works. Like, that aspect of peer pressure or social pressure or advertisement pressure or whatever, those pressures and the way they affect people, that aspect is the non-free will part. But the ability to be able to stand against it, wouldn't that be free will? Because at the end of the day, you shouldn't be able to stand against any of it. Or unless you're saying standing against like pressures in and of itself is also like determined, like you were going to stand against it anyway. But I feel like, can you say that is true for 100% of people? That they all 100% of people that stood against any pressure in particular, all did it like in a non-free will way? I don't know. I don't know about that.
Even if that person robbed somebody, that person needs treatment. And the people who cannot shake whatever it is that afflicts them tells me that free will cannot be as free as we think it is. Do you remember the shooter in the University of Texas at Austin? I remember that. Okay? Yeah. There's a movie they made out called The Tower, where he left a note saying, I just want to kill people. Something must be wrong with my brain. Please, when I die, look into this. And there was a tumor putting pressure on part of it. In fact, that's how we learn anything about how the brain works.
And this person had the free will to write the note. He had the free will to write the note. So he did not have the will to resist shooting. But that's the line that you were talking about is a partial one.
Why isn't that line always in motion as we learn more and more about how the mind works? Okay, so then maybe it's a line of convenience today, but tomorrow we're going to find out, oh my gosh, that person has no real free control over the behavior, over their personality, over their tendencies, over the treatment of others.
It's not a line of convenience. It is, in your words, a perimeter of ignorance. When Newton said we couldn't explain certain things, God must have done it. Of course, that's a God of the gaps. Of course, that delineates what we don't know. The line you describe, I hope, is in fact that perimeter of ignorance which we slowly are moving toward and moving so that we do understand what the true nature of free will is.
So this is where people will push back. Most people are concerned not about the actions, but the consequences. So what they're thinking about is the punitive response to someone who does something wrong. And is a punitive response a deterrent for somebody doing something wrong or doing something wrong in the future?
Especially if they don't have the free will. Right. So this, the other side of this entire analysis is how does society interact with people who are being brought into the circle day by day? We're learning what we have control over and what we don't biophysiologically.
But yeah, but at that point, it's kind of like free will kind of collapses in on itself, because then everything is explained away by... Everything becomes explained away by pressures. Oh, well, no, I just chose not to kill that person. Well, no, you didn't. Your parents raised you not to kill. Society told you if you kill, you would have went to jail. So how much of you actually made the decision that you wouldn't be killed? Like, at that point, it's just like, it becomes like self-fulfilling, and like, it feels circular. It feels like everything could be viewed in the terms of, I was pushed into this decision, or this decision that I was going to make was predetermined. But at the same time, you could also look at it the other way. That like every decision, oh, I decided to go up and use the bathroom. Like, let's say I had to use the bathroom, but I'm in the middle of a video game. I could choose to just like turn the game off and go, like, or pause the game and go use the bathroom. I could choose to finish the level I'm on and then use the bathroom. Like, how do you know is what I'm saying. Like, there's no way. Like, a lot of the times it's just like, I feel like free will does exist because, like, in environments where people would act predictably, you have to explain all the people that didn't act predictably. And if you just say, well, 100% of them were going to act the other way anyway, it's just like, in the same way that you can't prove that you would have made a different decision, you can't prove that I don't know, you can't prove on the other end that for sure they only did that because of the pressures. Like, there was nothing that they chose to do on their own. Like, I don't...
Intellectually, emotionally, white people need anxiety meds. Or do they have the freedom to not
they have
be
children?
able to?
That is why I'm taking them every day, and I got 3 reasons that I take them every day.
Some kids need them because they have parents.
No!
I'm just saying.
Very nice.
Okay, so Charles, if we're going to exit this conversation, if we find a point of agreement, it's that this perimeter of ignorance, we recognize inside the perimeter there are forces operating against free will.
Yes.
Our physiology, our neurochemistry, and physics.
Yes.
That surely that perimeter may grow, but it's possible that there's a limit to how far it will grow, beyond which we have to admit the existence of free will.
Yes.
Okay, I'll give you that.
There
Very nice.
we are.
That's a great
It doesn't have to be absolute in one direction or another.
It's a bit more fluid. Okay.
I'm okay with that. There's uncertainty.
Yeah, it's almost like one of those things that the way the human mind works and the fact that there's a feedback loop when it comes to consciousness, it's almost like it's almost like you're making a problem out of nothing. It's like saying, hey, let's look at this quarter as this is the tail side is its own thing and the head side of the quarter is its own thing. Which is the quarter heads or is it tails? And it's just like it's both, right? And it's just like, no, which one is it? You gotta pick one. It's like it almost feels like you're making a problem out of nothing. I'm not even sure if I should watch the other 940. I thought it was 848. Holy shit. I don't even know if I want to watch the other free will argument. Maybe I'll save that for a different day. How long have I been streaming? Give me credit. Hold on. 2.5 hours. Yeah, we'll call it. Actually, we'll continue for now, and just until I get these fucking items, I guess. You know.
Certainty in the universe. I embrace it.
I'll tell you this much. I've been married for 20 plus years. I do not have free will.
On that note, Chuck and Charles, thanks for helping us with this explainer.
Awesome.
On the perspective, let's call it. But emergent perspectives on free will. Neil deGrasse Tyson for Star Talk, yet another explainer in the universe. Keep looking up. All of a sudden, I said to myself, is everything in society explainable in this way? And then I realized, oh my gosh, if it is, then our entire moral code has to shift. This is Star Talk. Neil deGrasse Tyson here, your personal astrophysicist. And I got Chuck Nice with me. Chuck, how you doing, man?
I'm doing great, Neil. Thanks for asking.
Okay, Chuck Nice, a professional stand-up comedian, actor. Here's a subject we haven't yet tackled.
Okay.
It's the subject of free will.
Yes.
It came up in the edges of...
I was going to say, we've tinkered around the edges.
This is the edge.
A couple conversations with Brian Greene, a couple conversations with Hedda Berlin, a couple neuroscience conversations.
Well, we got another neuroscientist here, Robert Sapolsky. A neuroscientist, biologist. He's a professor of biology, neurology, and neuroscience, and neurosurgery. Can you be any more neuro than...
I think that's all the neuros. I think that's all the neuros.
Or neurotic, that's at Stanford University. Best-selling author of 8 books, right? I have one in my hand right now. Came out just months ago.
Wow.
Determined. The Science of Life Without Free Will.
Wow.
And that's going to be a major subject of our conversation today. Welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me on.
But before we continue here, let me just tell our audience, you captured so much of this life's profile in a memoir that you write. Just tell us briefly about your memoir. Then we're going to pick up the free will.
I feel like the feedback of human consciousness is what creates free will. Like, if it weren't free, if free will is like what can an organism choose to do or not do, I feel like the level of consciousness is going to come into is going to really separate that out, because the ability for humans to look at themselves and say, this is what I am feeling, I recognize these thoughts, these are the thoughts that I'm having, I'm able to look at my own view, I'm able to analyze myself, my thoughts, my emotions, my body, and adjust my behavior accordingly. If free will exists, I should not be able to do that. And unless literally every action, even the analysis of my own actions is free will, is or it's not free will. Even making the decision, I don't even want to say making the decision to adjust or to change my life accordingly is also free will. It's And besides, if there's no free will, if there isn't actually, like, fact of the matter, no free will, I don't see how you can hold people accountable for certain actions. Like, I don't see how you can do it, because it's like they could, if you're saying they could not have made a choice otherwise, you're essentially punishing someone for something they couldn't do anything else. This is the only path they could have walked, and you're saying you walked that path, you're punished now. It's like, well, I couldn't choose anything else. So, like, from birth, I was destined to go to jail. That's not fair. But I didn't have a choice in it. I was just going to go to jail no matter what. It's just like, yeah.
Will, oh, sort of one of my not even marginally scientific books that I cranked out. It's called A Primate's Memoir, and basically just stories of the 30-odd years hanging out with both the baboons, but sort of places there in East Africa. I was there for one coup attempt. I was there for one civil war. It was, so, you know, an interesting, colorful place to be a kid from Brooklyn who knows nothing about the outside world. So that was a fun thing to write.
Well, I'm glad you documented that, because if it's a story that others will never have or can't even imagine, that's got to be in print somewhere so that we can act with it. Yeah. So tell me, so this is a fascinating birthplace for the ideas that maybe we're not entirely in control of our own behavior. So how did this rise up to become your central focus when thinking about free will?
Well, actually, just to undo all of that, I already didn't believe in free will. I was 14 when I had this incredibly epiphanal night where I suddenly decided there's no free will. I also, as long as I was at it that night, decided there's no God and there's no purpose, and it's just a big, empty, indifferent universe. It was interesting stuff going on the days before.
Were there mushrooms involved in this?
No, but there was religious trauma instead, which I think is a much more effective way of messing with your head. So it was a wonderful sort of clarity of, oh, I get it.
You became nihilist. I think that's that word applies.
Nihilistic. Yes.
So I have not believed in free will since then. So all baboon ecological physiology and all rat, monkey, mice neuroscience did was just add more factoids to, like, we're just machines, we're biological machines.
Wow.
All right, so give us the central points of your thesis then. You can't just say, well, I don't think we're free will anymore. Give me some foundations for this.
Well, it's this basic deal where, like, somebody does something and you wonder, like, why that happened, why they did what they just did. And, like, if you want to unpack it, part of the answer to that is because this was going on in this part of the brain a second before, while this part of the brain went silent, or that sort of thing. But you're also asking, wow, well, the person hadn't eaten yet today. They were sleep deprived. They were happy. They were stressed. They were in pain, whatever.
What's the hungry judge effect? That reminds me.
I love it. The hungry judge
I remember
effect.
something like 10 years ago, like if you get convicted before lunch, your sentence is higher than after lunch?
Yes, exactly. It was this classic study preceding National Academy of Sciences. They looked at every parole decision made in this judicial county or whatever over the course of a year, like 1,000 of them, looking at what predicted the judge letting the guy walk versus sending him back from more jail. And the single best predictor was how many hours it had been since the judge had eaten the meal.
Oh, I thought it was definitely how black the guy was standing there.
Oh, well, that's after we get over the one that explains about 99% of the variability. Once that's sorted out, the other extreme is
another variance in the force. Okay. So that's shocking and disturbing, just simultaneously.
Yeah.
And so presumably the judge is thinking the judge is making the right decision in that moment. But in fact, they don't even know.
They don't know if they're being influenced.
They can't even, if you were, maybe you could correct for it.
By the way, that got challenged for its statistics, and they responded adequately, and it's solid science, and it's been replicated. Do not go and apply for a home loan in a bank if the person you're talking to hasn't eaten for 4 hours. Other versions of that. Interestingly, the more hours a medical resident has gone without sleeping, if they're white, the more implicit bias they show on tests by the end of their sleep-deprived lunatic work period. So yeah, that's what's up with the judges. All sorts of stuff like that. Mild effects, these are not, but they're just part of this picture of stuff going on underneath the surface. So that's like how many hours it's been since you've eaten. But then you got to figure, like, what hormones been doing in the last 24 hours, because they're marinating your brain and having influences. And then you got to figure, what have the recent months, years, decades been like? Did you get traumatized? Did you find God? Did you find love? Did you lose either? Because that changes the brain.
And by the way, the food thing, that became an entire commercial line for Snickers candy bar.
Yeah, really?
Are you hangry?
Oh, what a great way. And the most amazing thing is it makes sense. Like, blood glucose levels are low when you haven't eaten, and it turns out the part of your brain...
crabby, they're all in a car on a road trip, and one guy's just completely crabby. And actually, it's usually some other famously crabby famous person, right? So that's who they turn into. And then they give them a Snickers bar, and then they're back to their normal self.
That's, finally science influencing commercial America. So reasonably, and it makes perfect... you're looking at this guy, he looks nothing like you, he's got a background that has nothing in common with you, and you're deciding, is this a person who has reformed
I could definitely see that being like a class action lawsuit. The fact that you have, like, you shouldn't be able to, like, well, yeah, we've shown that because these judges were hungry, we received harsher sentences. That has nothing the fuck to do with my case. Why are you giving me a harsher sentence, bro? I know you're not doing it on purpose, but, like, what the actual, like, that is insane that someone's sentence, like, that's fucking insane. The only thing to get around this is don't get arrested. That's...
It takes some work to see the world from this person's perspective. It takes some work to try to think about how they turned out to be different from who you are. It takes work, brain work, and the most expensive part of your brain is the one that you're working at that point. And if your glucose levels are low in your bloodstream, what the hell? Let's just go with an easy answer. It's very mechanistic, and it's exactly what you say. You sit the judge down at that point and say, whoa, that's really interesting. Remember just after lunch you paroled this guy, and this guy just now did the same thing, and you set him back for another 50 years in jail. What's up with that? And they'll quote freshman year philosophy. They're not going to say, because I was mildly hypoglycemic and my frontal cortex was
delusional in their own intent.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, so the big takeaway here is, if you are ever before any judge, make sure that you offer them cookies.
Exactly. And the other advice is, find a way to mention that it's your birthday. There's even been a study showing judges give slightly shorter sentences if they're aware it's the defendant, not if yesterday was or tomorrow was.
It's gotta be today.
Terrible social conflict. Conflict number 1, we need to protect society from dangerous, rapacious people. Conflict number 2, be nice to people on their birthday. And somehow it balances out, and you get a slightly shorter sentence.
Interesting.
By the way, I fully embrace everything you've said, and I've done some recent amateur thinking about free will, and I want to share some of those ideas with you. But they will fully resonate with everything you said thus far. But I have to bring in sort of the physicist's perspective of free will, where if every action has a preceding action to it, you just take that all the way back, so it's no longer in your consciousness, right? And then something set those series of synaptic trips in sequence, and then you end up saying something or doing something. So the physicist's cause and effect argument. How does what you say dovetail with that, or are you saying something slightly different philosophically?
Actually, very similar. And behavioral sciences, biology, whatever discovered made this major discovery recently, by which I mean somewhere in the last couple of centuries, which is something happened because of what came just before that, and that happened because of what just, and that whole deal. I freak out when we've gotten anywhere near the Big Bang because I understand zero about that. But at the very least, and how do you turn out to evolve into the sort of species you are? Yeah, you look at everything, and it had a deterministic root.
Yeah, but okay, so there is the physics, physiology, philosophical argument that you just gave, and I don't think there's a good argument against it. And let me just expand a little bit for those catching up. The concept of chaos is not just disorder, all right? You can there's certain chaotic systems where you set them into motion with certain initial conditions, and you'll get a result, and it's a repeatable result with causes and effects determined from start to finish. However, if the system is truly chaotic, an arbitrarily small shift from those initial conditions can produce an infinitely different result at the other end. And so what it means is you can't realistically predict a future based on the starting parameters you give because of how sensitive the future is to those starting parameters. So
like a hurricane.
Yeah, exactly.
Like a hurricane.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's why weather, you can't really predict weather more than like a week in advance. It goes completely chaotic. So all they can do with the hurricane is give what the models all say, and you pick the middle one and work it from there. But every day you get closer to that, the models converge because it's less chaotic. So my question back to you, which you've surely gotten this before, is, okay, philosophically you can say what you did was predetermined, but the way we experience life, we feel we have free will, and isn't that good enough?
No, and not only isn't good enough scientifically, it's an awful thing for how life is for lots of people to believe in free will that isn't there, because you give somebody a sense that they had control over how things turned out. Forget predicting the future. It changes society. It justifies an awful lot. Well, put it this way: once you buy into my deal that there's no free will, and when you look at all the biological stuff going on, from like when you were single fertilized egg cell and everything thereafter, when you look at all that stuff, there's no free will there. That's
when you were born. No.
Yes, because that actually has a huge influence on stuff. There's not a crack anywhere in that edifice in which you could push in something that is completely free of the last centuries of science and how we understand the world to work. So that's great. If you buy into that, you suddenly realize there's something very wrong in that we run the world on the notion that it's okay to treat some people way better than average for things they had nothing to do with, and other people way worse than average for things they had nothing to do with, and then slather on nonsense about this being a just world afterward. And what getting rid of the notion of free will is about is saying, actually, that stuff you had no control over. Ooh, I had no idea.
It's not just an academic point, is what you're saying. To be debated in journals, it has very real consequences in our social cultural fabric.
Hello, Star Talkivers. Neil deGrasse Tyson here, your host of the Star Talk podcast. I'm here to announce that we just opened a brand new channel on YouTube called Star Talk Plus. And that's where we're going to bring all kinds of innovative content that doesn't quite fit on our flagship channel, but that will involve experiments in what we create, what your reaction might be to what we create. It's going to be our skunkworks, as it were, to borrow a term from aerospace. So I look forward to sharing all of this new content with you, and check it out if you have a chance.
I get what you're saying, and I agree with it. I'm not sure if I'm completely there with the total no free will, just being honest. And so explain to me this. All right, so here's why I agree with you saying. I have a friend of mine, Dr. Mike, had a patient who tried to sell their baby, okay? And they were a drug addict. So, and his...
These are your friends? Just want to be clear.
No, not the drug addict.
Sorry, who am I sharing a podcast with here? Okay,
so anyway, said to me,
wow,
that they could not help doing that. And I said, you got to be out of your gourd. Like, what kind of hippy-dippy, commie, liberal crap is that you're saying, look, this person tried to sell their child. And then he gave me all this information on how drugs hijack the dopaminergic system and how your dorsolateral prefrontal cortex and your nucleus accumbens and all this crap comes together. And basically, you have no control over what you're doing.
Your tree has been hijacked.
Yes, you are just responding to these things, this cascade that's happening in your brain. And it's really kind of like a neurosynaptic response to something that says, hey, go do this because we need this. And you'll do anything.
So you're agreeing with Robert. I thought you started
I am. Okay, now, that's why I agree, because I did all the reading and it makes perfect sense. However, here's what I want to know. What about just your regular everyday decisions? That has nothing to do with this outside force coming in and hijacking a system of your brain. It's just, I want vanilla ice cream right now. I just want vanilla ice cream. So what's...
I want pepperoni on my pizza.
I want pepperoni on my pizza.
Because Robert, these are... I'm going to see this movie tonight instead of this other movie.
Right.
These are the power we have over our lives. Small examples that they are. All right. This is the power over our lives that gives us this illusion that we have free will, and we're perfectly content thinking that. You're saying there's some physiochemical, biomolecular thing that makes me choose strawberry instead of vanilla tonight.
Yeah, which is also saying there's this cultural thing, which is also saying how you were raised and what lullabies were sung to you have a that it's all one of the, okay, let me give you a sense of this with the drug guy. if you happen to make a really stupid, rash decision and pick the wrong womb to spend 9 months in, and your mother was very stressed during the pregnancy, as a result, your brain would develop fewer of those dopamine neurons. And as an adult,
Okay, so this is an epigenetic thing going on.
Epigenetic, exactly. A part of the brain called the frontal cortex has to do with reining in your like imprudent urges and stuff. By
You picked
age
the wrong
5, yeah, your mother's socioeconomic status by age 5 has already influenced the rate at which this part of the brain has developed.
Wow.
Every step thereafter, and it's just one piece leading to another to another. Okay, so something like you pick vanilla instead of strawberry, or what we're caught in there is exactly what we're alluding to. You sit there, you make a decision. You have a moment of intent. You're consciously aware of the intent. You know what the outcome's likely to be. Most importantly, you know you don't have to do this. There's alternatives, and that sure seems like free will. And that has nothing to do with free will, because the only thing to ask at that point is, so how do you turn out to be the sort of person who would want vanilla over strawberry? If that's
You know what I'm gonna do, Robert? Next time I'm in an ice cream shop, I'm gonna say, let me see, do I want vanilla? No, I want strawberry. Then, right when they're ready to scoop it out, I walk out and say, I don't want any ice cream at all. That would totally confound your entire theory.
No, not at all, because how do you wind up being the sort of person saying, screw that with trying to say this is how I'm going to show them or whatever.
I'm gonna show you.
If you wound up exactly like your parents, there was a certain absence of free will. If at some point you said, oh my God, shoot me if I wind up having anything in common with my parents, I'm going to do just the opposite. It's the exact same absence of free will, and any version of that. You just happen to be someone who decides, ooh, I have a theory what this researcher is up to, this psychologist. I'm going to intentionally tell the opposite because I've got authority figure issues, or because I'm cranky today and my underwear is too tight, or who knows, whatever the impinging, what made you who you are at that moment.
Okay, Robert, so first, let me just preface also saying I completely agree with you. And all my recent thinking aligns with this, and I want to share it with you, just so I can hear you say, Neil, you're like right on cue. I want to be able to hear you. I need that encouragement. But if this is an hypothesis that is strongly supported by observation, what would have to happen for you to say, I guess my hypothesis is wrong? Because if anything anybody says or does, you count as evidence in support of your theory, then the theory isn't testable. And if it's not testable, you're accepting everything as evidence. Oh, he did that, I'm right. They did the opposite, I'm still right. You chose a vanilla, I'm right. And if you're right for everything, how am I going to know if you're ever wrong?
Here's how you falsify it. Show me, and at this point, like everyone goes, oh, prove to us there's no free will. Prove to us there's no Easter Bunny. Prove to us that, like, there's, until you turn around, there's somebody creeping up behind you. Oh, they disappeared. That absence of proof of absence, that whole deal. And by now, the onus is on people saying there's free will, and this is what would falsify all of this. Show me a neuron, or a network of neurons, or a brain that just did something, and show me that it did that completely free of its history. It wouldn't matter what the
in quantum physics, that happens all the time. I mean, you have particles popping in and out of existence. There's no known cause for it. It just is, right?
Yeah, this is where I get conniptions. When quantum physics is wonderfully relevant to quantum physics, it's got squat to do with free will issues, because it's like, what did this physicist at MIT, Max Tegmark, has calculated.
We're friends with Max. Go on.
Okay, he's got 23 orders of magnitude that an indeterminate subatomic effect would have to scale up to influence the behavior of a molecule. It doesn't scale. It
I did not know
weird.
that.
Yep.
Very, very important. I did not know that. That should shut everyone up who's trying to explain consciousness with quantum physics.
Exactly. And because if they find a way where somehow magically it bubbles up, what you've just explained is a mechanism for randomness, for random behavior, not like the moral system you've had since you were in your diapers and the consistent.
So even if we went there, it's random, okay? And it's still not really in our control because it's random.
Exactly. And that's not what we're looking for. We're looking for, you get to somebody's funeral, and what do? Is they trot out their oldest friend who gets to say, wow, even when we were in kindergarten, they were already like this. Consistency. You're not going to get consistency like that. You're not going to get like a stable moral compass or something out of quantum randomness. And everybody
randomness.
You get randomness. Exactly. That's where the issue
best explanation I've heard ever.
So are you saying neurologically? Because I'm still stuck on the vanilla ice cream. I mean, I appreciate the quantum physics, but I'm trying to figure out yes and no, up and down. So are you saying that our brains are ramped up with intention before we even enter the circumstance to say vanilla or chocolate? There is something happening neurologically that has already put us at that precipice and then pushes us to that place.
From stuff that went on a second ago to back when you were a fetus and everything in between, and that's exactly it. Because all you are, okay, here's my embroidery this on doilies. We are nothing more than the biology over which we have no control, and its interactions with environment over which we have no control, and that's why we are who we are. Like if I go into a supermarket, I'm not going to buy cheddar cheese. How come? Probably because some of the genetics of my taste buds, but also because when my wife and I first got together, because I had been a vegetarian in college, and thus all you ate was like large blocks of cheddar cheese because they had not discovered vegetables yet at that time. Like this, and she said, "Oh my God, that's a saturated fat. It's incredibly bad for your health." And I was changed as a result. And what we know is the biology of it even involves like change the makeup of my gustatory receptors in my tongue as to what tastes good now. All of this stuff, all of these pieces come into place, and the challenge winds up being, show me that this person would have done the exact same thing. If they had different genes, they had a different fetal life, if they got raised in a different neighborhood by different parents with different culture, all of that, and if they had had a different breakfast this morning and all that stuff. And
I just get this compliment from you. So here are my recent thoughts. Okay.
Here we go.
Okay. Because I was following the free will argument, and the arguments were just not enlightening to me. This every neurosynaptic firing has a precedent, and that you'll do things that you will make up the reason afterwards for why you did it, but in fact it was predetermined. Fine. Okay. You can argue that philosophically why that must be so. But I came to the same conclusion differently, in a more restricted sense. I asked myself, the person who is depressed, chemically depressed, do they have the free will to not be depressed? If you look at culture, one by one, things people have done in the past have fallen by the way the person is not accountable. Okay? Now, an early one of these would have been epilepsy. Okay? The devil got you. It's not your fault to bring the priest. Okay? We got that. But if I'm old enough, maybe you're old enough, the Skid Row bum, the drunkard. All blame was placed on that person. No? Okay, we find out that alcohol is addictive, and when you're addicted, you can't get off of it, and there's a homeless community where circumstance had put them there, and so society has changed in its response to this. Okay? The people who are who are depressed and on the brink of suicide, we're not saying, oh, just cheer up. No, we're saying there's a neurological problem, they're not in control. And the person, the instant before they jump off the bridge, do they have the free will to not jump off the bridge? And as I went through this mental exercise, more and more of society ended up folding into this mindset. And I got more and more depressed. Not depressed, angered. I got angered by it. And you find out, was it 70% of people in prison grew up below the poverty line? So poverty is correlated with being amazing.
The problem is poverty.
Do they have the free will to not have committed a crime and end up in... So then I thought, might this explain everything? But the bully in the yard. Do they have the free will? The person who wants to invade a country, is that their testosterone? We all grew up saying can't have female leaders because they have hormonal shifts and we don't know what they're going to do. But men don't. But men have testosterone, okay? And with testosterone, violence is... I checked this. At an intersection, okay? If someone cuts you off in an intersection, someone says, you, how did you do? Chances are it's a guy, okay? With testosterone out of control.
Not in my neighborhood. we got some rough women around here.
So the men historically have not been honest about what role testosterone plays in their proclivity to commit violence, for example, okay? And so all of a sudden, I said to myself, is anything in society explainable in this way? And then I realized, oh my gosh, if it is, then our entire moral code has to shift. It has to, it's not a matter of punishment, it's a matter of nurturing and understanding. So let me pivot now to you and say, if we agree, and I think we do, that you're right, how does society need to change?
Massively. Totally. Because when you think this...
The compassion machine has to be put into effect, and you're not getting that in conservative politics, right?
Yes. Exactly, but if you're really going to test it, you got to see if somebody's willing to feel compassionate about how Donald Trump became the person who he is, because it's the same issue there. And if you really follow this out,
I mean, being the best of the best of the others. How did this happen? I don't know. I believe God chose me.
Wow, that's scary. That's really good. Blame and punishment make no sense. Praise and reward make no sense. Meritocracies make no sense. Criminal justice makes no sense. Feeling like you have earned anything makes no sense. Hating somebody makes as little sense as hating an earthquake. All of that. That's the only logical point you can get to. And I've been thinking this way since I was 14, and I can actually function this way about 3 minutes every other month. Because it's incredibly hard. Yeah. But I've done it in some ways. I don't believe when there's a lightning storm that some old woman with no teeth at the edge of the hamlet caused it with her witchcraft. That one's easy now. Right. I subtracted response to that one. That
was not the case. Right.
Exactly. And when you and I, Chuck, you appear to be too much of a youngin for this, but when we were both young, if when we were in elementary school, if you had the kid sitting next to you was just not learning how to read, and they just weren't paying attention, and you know what the attributions were then. This kid, they're not motivated, maybe they're not so smart, they're a little lazy, they just don't pay.
And in a slow class with a short bus,
Exactly. And then people discovered, there's this biological thing called dyslexia, like the architecture of one layer of your cortex is screwy, and as a result, you flipped closed loop letters around, and just in our lifetime, we have learned that's not a lazy kid. We've done that one. That one didn't take 300 years of getting rid of witch burning. That one, or people have figured out in our lifetime who you love is a biological phenomenon. Is not some I had no idea biology had to do it. So we're slowly getting better. And at each one of these steps, we figured out schizophrenia is not caused by mothers who unconsciously hate their child. Autism is not caused by mothers who are incapable of love. It's a neurogenetic developmental disorder. We figured that one out. And hundreds of thousands of women who spent their whole lives being told by every expert out there that they were the cause of their child's schizophrenia. Suddenly, this isn't depressing. This is liberating. Every time we've done this, it's become a more humane place.
Yes. And even and of course, I remember seeing a film from the early 60s. Where someone was addicted to drugs, and it was drama, was addicted to drugs, and he said, I'm a junkie, and I can't stop it. But the resolution of that story was the cops came and arrested him. Today, that's unthinkable, right? If someone says, I'm a junkie, I can't stop it, you don't arrest them, you help them, right? And that's a compassion.
Wait, what country are we talking about here?
Exactly. Well, if you say that from your men's club where you had a little bit too much vodka, then they send you to a nice expensive rehab program. If it's out on the street corner, maybe something different.
Have you ever wanted one of your questions on the universe answered? We all have questions about the universe. Black holes, quasars, quantum entanglement, wormholes. There is no end to the depths of cosmic curiosity. Well, the entry level of Patreon membership with Star Talk gets you just that. I think it starts at $5 a month. You have access to the question line that reaches our Cosmic Query programming. And not only that, we produce a special Cosmic Queries installment just for Patreon members.
So if you weren't the director of the Hayden Planetarium, what do you think you would be doing?
Right, it would have to be another universe. It wouldn't happen in this universe.
Okay.
I'd be a songwriter for Broadway musicals.
Ooh!
So that's the entry level, and the perks ascend from there. There's a level, in fact, where we send you an autographed copy of one of my latest books. Right now, it's Starry Messenger, Cosmic Perspectives on Civilization. And it's signed with my fancy fountain pen with purple ink. So I invite you to just check the link below, and all of that money goes to our ability to experiment with new ways of bringing the universe down to Earth. So thank you for those who've already joined, and we welcome others to participate in this grand adventure for what it is to bring the universe down to Earth. As always, keep looking up. Someone is self-aware that they need help, but we don't deny them help. I mean, this is an evolution of our cultural response to people who are not entirely in control of their own fate. So,
I get it. I mean, I don't disagree. I think what scares people is they start thinking about the consequences of this. And because I was just thinking about, okay, so what about responsibility and what do you do when people can just do what they want? But then it just popped into my head while you guys were talking. What if I were able to do anything I wanted? Anything. If you told me I can go out and do anything I want with no consequence, what would I change? And the truth is, very, very little. I would not go out and kill anybody. I would not start doing drugs. I'd pretty much still be the exact same person I am right now, even if you gave me the ability to do anything that I wanted. It wouldn't lead me down this path of, and now I'm just going to become the most decadent, most evil, baboon-like person that I can possibly become.
I mean, like the laws are the only thing preventing you from
right. It's not just the laws. It's my place in society. It's my commitment to being a citizen. It's all these other things that make me me.
Okay, so Robert, we can split the kingdom here by saying there are forces that are societal and cultural, and then there are forces that are purely biological and physiological. And yes, there's overlap. I get it, but if we're going to prevent religious factions from killing each other, I refuse to think that that's biological. This is a trained thing from birth, where your religion is better than someone else's religion, and they're the wrong religion. And so there's a kind of a brainwashing there in not accepting the diversity of what exists around us. So maybe if we can't change the biology, we can change the culture. How far will that get us in a world with no free will?
It's going to make a spectacular place to live in about 600 years. It's going to be long. It's a long. First off, I'm obliged to, or I have to give up my pedantry license to say, that's a false dichotomy between culture and biology. It's one and the same. Like your mother was from a collectivist culture versus an individual.
No, I say there's overlap. There's overlap, of course. I'm not denying that, but what I'm saying is, what has to happen in this world if we cannot change our physiology to make it safer for us all and more of a utopia that you have imagined? Change the educational system? Let everybody free from the prison system?
No, of course not. Of course not. You can't have dangerous people running around, but we've figured out ways to deal with dangerous people who are damaging for reasons out of their control and to protect society from them. Here's a great example. Your kid is sneezing. Your kid has a nose cold. And what you do is you keep him home from kindergarten tomorrow because there's a preemptive law. Please, if your kid has a cold, don't send him to them, get everybody else sick. You quarantine, you constrain your child's behavior, but you don't then tell them that they can't play with their toys that day because they're a rotten person for sneezing. You subtract responsibility out of it, and you still can protect. And we do that in all sorts of airline pilot. Airline pilot is taking antihistamines because of their cold and it makes them a little drowsy. You can't work. You can't fly for X number of days if you're taking antihistamine. We can build a world in which we protect people from damaging folks, and hopefully along the way recognizing how people became damaging, and while subtracting out responsibility and moralizing and sermoning at them. And because you could see biologically where things went wrong, and you can see where culture comes in. Okay, so a great example, the schizophrenia thing. People started figuring out in 1950, scientists, that schizophrenia wasn't caused by bad mothering, it was caused by neurochemistry, and it had zero impact on psychiatry and family members of people. It had no impact at all until something amazing happened in the 1980s. Phil Donahue was the Oprah of the time. It turned out he had a relative with schizophrenia, and he invited on this very persuasive biological psychiatrist who did something amazing. He held up some of the first brain scans that were just being published at the time, showing structurally there's differences in the brains of people with schizophrenia. And whoa, look, you can look at the picture of it, and that was the transformative moment. So you could say, okay, so why do we have a culture where it took someone like Phil Donahue to have us rethink this? Why do we have a culture where it takes Caitlyn Jenner appearing on the cover of whatever magazine that was for people to say, oh, this trans stuff, sometimes people just feel like they're a different sex than what their biology, and why'd we wind up being that kind of culture? Why'd we wind up having a culture in which, certain values are glorified and other cultures exactly how were you raised? Depending on what culture is a difference. How many seconds the average try before your mother would pick you up? Were they training you to be tough, or were they training you to feel sick? And just each time that happened, your brain got constructed a little bit differently. And at each one of these steps, it goes on like that. And how do you, what makes somebody an ex-white supremacist? What went into that? All of these things can change, and the cultural changes and the biological changes are totally intertwined. And what we're getting at here is the worst conclusion to come out of this with is, there's no free will, nothing can change. Things change enormously. All you have to do is understand where the buttons are, and where the levers are, and where the irrationality is, and where the post hoc rationalizations are to explain something that in fact was a pure gut instinct that makes no sense at all. And how do people get that way? And how do you get people that way to stop being that way? And
just because a post hoc explanation is you see something happen and you after the fact account for why it happened without real evidence for what actually caused it. And so you have a post hoc accounting, and there's been a lot of that in the history of civilization.
So if I'm hearing you correctly, you're kind of saying, let's look at these social ills and maladies with an eye towards restoration and compassion, and restoration as opposed to punitive measures only, which is what we do now. We just go, we're gonna punish you, and that's it. And normally people go to jail and come out worse criminals.
Better trained.
They're trained to be criminals.
Yeah, exactly. And you can use punishment and you can use reward as instrumental tools, because that's a good way to make organisms change behavior. But the notion of them being virtues in and of themselves are ridiculous. And it makes no sense to hold somebody responsible either for the fact that their unbelievably awful upbringing resulted in someone with a really impaired capacity for empathy and feeling somebody else's pain, or the fact that somebody's really privileged upbringing produced somebody who gets really good SAT scores and knows how to write a 5-paragraph essay and get into a prestigious college. In both, there's no intrinsic virtue in how any of us turned out, and there's no intrinsic earned or entitled. And that's hard as hell to subtract that out. And what I've seen is, that's really scary in terms of saying, we're going to have criminals running around in the street, what are we going to do with criminal justice? It's going to be a lot harder for people like us to instead say, I actually haven't earned anything with my work ethic. I actually haven't earned anything with my good SAT scores or my corner office or my amazing salary. It's going to be much harder to undo the meritocracy end of it, because anyone who's sitting and listening to ridiculous stuff about cosmology and stuff, they're one of the lucky ones. They learned how to read. They're probably not homeless. We're the lucky ones. And if there being no free will means, bummer, my CV maybe isn't as impressive as I used to think it was and doesn't indicate I'm a much better human than average. And we're the ones who, we're in the subset where we are treated better than average in society. When they come out with the vaccine.
I worked hard for this.
Exactly. You had that roommate who no doubt went out and got falling down drunk.
You could argue that the existence of free will gives people cover for not fixing systemic issues. Because the more free will there is, the more responsibility you can blame on the individual for not being successful and not being where they need to be. But the more there is, that where we determine that actually no, a lot of this was predetermined and you just don't really recognize it. A lot of people are going to view that as, well, fuck, I guess I can't. They're just going to only view it as, I don't like that because that means we can't blame or we can't look at individuals for the things that they do. And it's just like, wouldn't that be empowering? Can't we just alter everyone to the point to where like we're making better decisions? Because let's say that no one had the free will to like rape a kid. You would never be like, well, man, this whole free will thing is being attacked. You would never say that. You will only look at the outcome of it and be like, yeah, okay, it's good that this shit isn't happening. Well, I don't know. Why not look at it like that all over?
That Saturday and you studied instead and you earned this, and yeah, you learned something different. Your brain did gratification postponement differently because of this, that, and the other thing.
Here's something I do tell people. People say, how do you write so many books? My answer is, I probably watch less football.
and why? How'd that turn out? I watch less football than average because there was one stage where I decided that bullies would like me if I memorized every stupid factoid about the Green Bay Packers because they were in ascendancy at the time, and that turned out not to work. Yeah, and that turned out not to impress them in the slightest. They didn't get, and okay, so football is not the route towards I lost interest in football. That's why I don't watch football, because like knowing Vince Lombardi and his like golden rule or whatever. But yeah, all of these things come from somewhere, and we turned out who we are. And for most people, we're claiming they're responsible for stuff that can turn out very well that they in fact have no control over.
By the way, I watch football because I have to support anything that keeps what could be murderous barbarians off of the streets of our country. Because I don't know if you've seen these guys, but they are scary. And the fact that we give them lots of money to run into each other instead of us is fine with me.
Just a couple more sort of points to close this out. So you would say then that people might have a susceptibility, a biophysiological susceptibility to addiction, to joining cults, to belief systems, and there's a certain
to working hard.
It might not be the right word, but a certain unaccountability to that. That's a fair statement, correct?
Yeah, and other people wind up with a proclivity for feeling other people's pain, or being able to look past superficial explanations, or reflect on things and respect the process of reflecting on things. And yeah, the good sides, the bad sides, it's all how we turned out, and it's stuff we had no control over.
Okay, so if people read your book, Determined, okay, it just came out a few months ago, do you really think it would take 600 years to reach that? I mean, if I look at the pace of social cultural change, it's faster than that. I would like to believe that the depths of compassion that a society without free will promotes is something that would come to us much sooner than that, than 600 years.
Well, maybe I'm more pessimistic than you. We figured out, witches don't control the weather, and it's a bummer to burn old women at the stake. Yeah, we sorted that one out. It was 50 years ago. We figured that out. We're kind of figuring out that there's a biology to obesity, and people who have trouble feeling a satiation signal, and it's not because they secretly hate themselves. They've got screwy receptors for some satiation hormone, and they're hypothalamus, and we're doing that stuff all the time, but we got a long way to go with it. And, as I said, I think this way all the time, but I can actually act on this for 2 seconds at a time. Somebody cuts me off in traffic. I think they are a vile human who deserves to burn in hell. Someone tells me, like, ooh, nice sweater, and for a few seconds afterward, I think I'm intrinsically a better human than average as a result, and then think about it a second time, and a fourth time, and a 10th time. And when you next feel like judging somebody, do that. And when you next feel like you earned the right to be at the front of the line for the next vaccine, think about it a second and 10th time as well. And baby steps.
Well, for those only listening to this podcast, our guest Robert has a full-up Santa Claus beard. So
nice.
Given your
hypothesis,
would you make a good Santa Claus or a bad Santa Claus? What kind of Santa Claus is this man going to make?
You kind of look like smart Santa. It's because the hair. You got to remember Santa. You have the professor hair and the Santa beard, so you're more professorial Santa.
All right. It's just that Santa says, were you naughty or nice? Did you deserve this gift?
That's right.
This would be the worst Santa ever say, no,
you're Oprah Santa. It's like you get a gift and you get a gift and you get a gift.
Yes, I'm Santa biological, and in fact, I don't care because all I care about now is if my parents were still alive, they'd be totally irritated by the fact that I have this beard still. That's why I have a beard, not because I want to seem like a good Santa, because it irritated the hell out of them in the middle 1970s. And sure, that works.
Operating on it.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, so I'm going to end on a question to you that might short circuit your brain and steam will come out of your ears, like every episode of Star Trek where Captain Kirk outsmarts the computer. Okay, so if I tell you that I don't agree with you, that we all have free will, then I'm not in control of the fact that I am telling you that all have free will. It's predetermined that I think that everyone thinks we have free will, that we have free will. That's predetermined. There's nothing we can do about it.
Yeah, until you get it. Until somebody
persuades you.
Yeah, like somewhere along the way, you figured out the kid sitting next to you having trouble learning to read. There's this thing called dyslexia, and you changed. You changed as a result, and like your brain changed. When you look at somebody who has like a lot of spelling errors or whatever in their writing, and like they mentioned somewhere, I got a learning difference, whatever. A part of your brain that would have had some aversive responses and told another part of your brain that has something to do with judgment doesn't activate anymore.
Social enlightenment.
Okay. And social enlightenment turns out to be neurobiology, and neurobiology turns out to be different social behavior. It's completely intertwined. Like, thank God.
So you can't cure people who think there is free will. It's not their fault.
Exactly. We pray for their souls, but still.
All right, dude, Robert, this has been a delight. This book, oh my gosh. Some people write books just because they can write a book. This one has the power to shift the center mass of civilization in ways that it's already moving in that direction. But
free will is one of those things where I feel like it doesn't even matter if we talk about it. Does it really matter? Like, are people gonna? This is more like high-level philosophy here, and I don't know if people are really gonna change and adjust their lives based on that at all. Especially when you have people that are just like, I'm just completely against philosophy out of hand. Like, yeah, I don't know.
But maybe too slowly, and with a deeper understanding that you're providing us all, perhaps we can achieve this utopia much sooner than I don't have to wait another 600 years. Analogizing today to the witch burnings of 600 years ago. I'd like to think we're on a faster track than that.
Let's hope so.
Robert Sapolsky, thanks for being on Star Talk. Chuck, always good to have you, man.
Always a pleasure.
This is Neil deGrasse Tyson, Star Talk. This is an edition on free will, a long overdue conversation. Thanks for listening.
Sam Harris, welcome to Within Reason.
Yeah, great to be here. Great to finally meet you.
Yeah, it's been a long time coming.
Yeah.
Now, a number of years ago now, on your now deleted Twitter account, you seem to profess to be able to prove the existence of objective morality using a kitchen stove. Do you still think that's the case? Do you stand by this thread that now doesn't exist anymore? I have it written down. I thought that maybe we could sort of go through it, because you've a couple of times now referred back to it and said, hey, I think this still holds up as a way to prove the existence of objective ethics.
Yeah, it's been years, or at least a year since I saw that thread, so I'm not sure I can, perhaps I can improve on it now in conversation. But yeah, no, I think the argument for objective morality, we can talk about what objective means in that context. I think it's, I'm confident in it. Yeah, I'd love to hear your reason why not.
Yeah, well, I found the thread. I had to sort of go into the depths of Reddit to find a copy somewhere that someone had saved. One of the things I suppose admire about the moral landscape is that a great deal of the new atheism movement has been criticised. We can talk about new atheism in past tense these days. I don't know if you agree with that assessment, but one of the things it's criticised for is that it sort of knocks down this grand structure of religion and fails to erect anything in its place. The moral landscape was at least an attempt to do that, so that's one thing that I like about it. I suppose, do you agree with that assessment of new atheism?
That it's passé, or that
it's something of the time gone by?
Well, I think it was, I never felt that it was more than it was, which was mostly just a publishing phenomenon. The four of us had published books in quick succession, and that is me and Richard Dawkins and Dan Dennett and Christopher Hitchens. And then people began to treat us like a four-headed atheist, as though we agreed about everything, which of course we don't. But we agreed about most things relevant to the debate around reason and faith and science and religion. Modulo a few positive things I would want to put in place of the sort that you just referenced. An objective construal of morality and value, right and wrong, good and evil, and also a contemplative life. I mean, I used spirituality in scare quotes in my book, Waking Up, trying to revive that term. I think that was pretty quixotic. I don't tend to use the term spirituality myself anymore, but what I meant to say is that there's a clearly an understanding of the furthest reaches of human well-being that we can arrive at ultimately, whether we have it in hand now, that is deeper than culture, that's not parochial, that's not merely a matter of anyone's invention, but it actually speaks to some universal truths about the possibilities of human consciousness and even beyond, conscious machines that we build them, etc. So all that relates, I think we're going to talk about the moral landscape, all that relates to questions of value as I construe them, and how a completed science of the mind could ultimately understand them.
And the moral landscape is something of an attack on relativism. This idea that seems quite popular among secular ethicists, that there's no way to, I suppose, objectively measure different value judgments against each other. I think it's clear that everybody values something, even if just subjectively. You need to have some kind of motivation to do essentially anything in the world. The interesting question is how we can measure these against each other and determine which one's actually true. And the big selling point of the moral landscape is that this is something we can do with science. So I think the thread would be a good place to start, because this is something of a summary. Sure, I suppose we can go through and see.
I don't think that's possible. Because scientific truths existed before humans came along. Whether we had access to them or known what they were is a different question. But the idea that, I just don't think objective morality didn't exist until humans came along. So it's kind of like, how do you even have an objective if that is the case? It didn't exist until humans came along.
Who caves in.
Yeah.
So you begin by saying, let's assume that there are no oughts or shoulds in this universe. There is only what is, the totality of actual and possible facts. Second, among the myriad things that exist are conscious minds, susceptible to a vast range of actual and possible experiences. So far, so good. We've got a world of stuff. In that world are conscious minds that can experience things. Number 3 is where it starts to get, I think, controversial. You say, unfortunately, many experiences suck. And they don't just suck as a matter of cultural convention or personal bias. They really and truly suck. If you doubt this, place your hand on a hot stove and report back. What do you mean by suck?
Right, so this is a kind of a funny way of hand-waving toward my argument that I refer to in the book and elsewhere as the worst possible misery for everyone. Right? I think you have to grant, the only thing you have to grant really from my argument for objective moral truths to get off the ground is that a universe in which every conscious being suffered as much as it possibly could for as long as it could, that universe would be bad. That would be worse than other states of a possible universe. Worse by any measure of worse that makes sense. And the moment you move away from the worst possible misery for everyone, things get better, however incrementally, and better by any construal of that word that makes sense. If you're not going to grant that the worst possible misery for everyone, I mean, it's worth lingering on what those words mean. It's the worst. It's nothing possible that's worse than this, as far as the character of conscious experience. And it's for everyone, right? So there's no story you can tell yourself about how we all get redeemed after this, or we learn a lot of good things that we don't learn this way. There's no silver lining. So this is a perfect hell, insofar as that's possible. If you're not going to grant that that's bad, then I don't know what you could conceivably mean by the word bad. I mean, there's no application of that term that makes any sense to me. So and whether or not you want to judge it as good or bad, whether you want to even entertain those thoughts, if you found yourself in that state, given what it is to have a mind, and given what it is to have a conscious experience of anything,
you'll be disposed to move away from the truly intolerable and pointless misery that you've been granted towards anything else that's better, and everything else will be better, right? So it'll be analogous to taking your hand off a hot stove. So the simplest way for a human being in their kitchen to immediately get to the extremity of this is just, put your hand on a hot stove or just imagine doing so and realize how untenable all of your hair splitting will seem. There's no place to stand with your hand on a hot stove as a human being and say, well, maybe this isn't bad, or maybe I have a preference for this, or maybe maybe it's just subjective, maybe it's just my own personal bias which suggests that this is bad, right?
I like the way you use the phrase personal bias in tweet. You said this isn't just a matter of cultural convention, sure, or personal bias. I suppose I would agree that it's not to do with bias, but when you talk about an experience of sucking, or an experience of being the worst kind of suffering imaginable, I suppose what I want to pick up on there is the word worst. You say imagine the worst possible misery for everyone. Presumably when you say worst there, you don't mean something like morally worst, because that would just be to beg the question. Right? When you say worst possible misery, you mean something like the most intense amount of suffering, or something like that?
Well, it's bad in any way that things could be bad. So yes, I mean, there's the hot stove is one version of that. I mean, that is for creatures such as ourselves, that is a physical torture, right? And if, I would imagine that even if you had a masochist of some sort, if you just made it hot enough, it would cross into a threshold where, that would be nobody's preference. But there are other things that cause minds like our own to suffer, and so they could be ideas. It could be the knowledge that your kids are, being tortured in the same way in the next room, right? And so there's more to suffering than just extreme sensation. And one thing I should add, and I think you probably had it here anyway, is that there are two senses of the dichotomy, subjective and objective, that we should tease apart. Right? There's the ontological one and the epistemological one. And I guess I'll start with the epistemological. The epistemological one is the one that does differentiate between science and non-science, right? So if you're going to be epistemologically objective, that is to say, your epistemology relates to how we know things or think we know things. To be objective in that space is to be dispassionate, not ruled by bias and confirmation bias or otherwise. To be to use all of the techniques that we learn in science and reasoning generally to not fool yourself, or not be fooled by others, right? So that your beliefs can more reliably track truth. So without personal bias, or from my saying that this claim is not merely a matter of personal bias, is to say that it's not epistemologically merely subjective, right? And the ontological split between subjective and objective is not doesn't cut across the science non-science divide. My argument is that we can be scientific, rigorous, honest, that is epistemologically objective with respect to subjective facts. Some facts are subjective and some are objective, right? So it's an objective truth about me that my neurotransmitters are in whatever state. It is subjective truth about me that my experience has a certain qualitative character. Mm-hmm. And I think many people imagine, and even many scientists imagine, that we can't. It's very difficult to make objective claims about subjective experience, but that's just clearly not true. And we can make an endless number of clearly objective claims about subjective experience, even the subjective experience that we really can't know directly.
Another one. Come on.
And we can objectively say that in his last hour of life, Winston Churchill was not thinking consciously about how much he wishes he could get Taylor Swift tickets, right? Or he wasn't thinking about string theory. Or there's an infinite number of things we know he was not thinking. And so those are objective claims about his subjectivity. So that's just
yes, and I completely agree. And I think that's actually a really useful jumping off point here for talking about the worst possible misery being bad. Okay. Because I completely agree that there are objective truths about subjective states. So it can be objectively true that you are subjectively experiencing something. And if we think about touching hot stove, when you say that the experience truly sucks, the way that I would interpret a situation like that is that it is objectively true that anybody who puts their hand on a stove will experience immediate subjective repulsion to that experience. Now, if that's what's going on, it seems to me that the experience itself, let's say the badness of the experience, the part of the experience where I go, I don't like this isn't good, I don't want this for me, that's in the subjective side of the brain. The objective, yes, the objective thing is that subjective experience is being had. And so when we're talking about science determining value, I understand that once you grant that everybody agrees that putting your hand on the stove is bad, everybody agrees that putting their hand on the stove is bad for them at least. But once we sort of agree that that's the case, subjectively, that everyone agrees that, there are myriad objective claims that we can make about how to best avoid that kind of situation. That's fine. But I'm imagining a world in which everybody subjectively agrees that the colour blue is the best colour. I don't know what happens to our brain, some kind of pill that everyone's forced to eat, where if we look at any other colour, we're just a bit sort of repulsed by it, we think it's disgusting, maybe it makes us feel a bit queasy, right? And so everybody just agrees that blue is the best colour. In the same way that two roommates are trying to decide what colour to paint a room, and they both just happen to subjectively value blue. You can treat it as if it were the case that blue is objectively the best colour. You can know objective facts about what to buy and what not to buy when you go to the paint store, right? That's all fine. But if I were to claim that because we both just instinctively prefer the colour blue, and because we can know scientifically on the basis of that what colour paint you buy at the shop, if I were to then say that I can scientifically establish that blue is the best colour, that blue is what we should be going for, I think I'd be making a mistake.
Well, so I think if you push the analogy further, I probably don't have a problem with it. So I would acknowledge that there's a boundary, that the boundary between what we might call aesthetics and what we're always tempted to call morality or ethics when things become more important. I think that's fuzzy. And if aesthetic differences were, if you just turned up the dial of their importance, right? So if the difference between, we can say with color, I think it's less visceral for people than taste, but yes, let's just say that there was a certain color you could see that the pleasure of seeing it was so extraordinary that it just became one of the most important parts of any person's life to just get more of that color, around them, right? And let's say the color was, somehow resource constrained, right? So that, only rich people could get access to it, say. And let's say certain kids were born with a neurological deficit that didn't allow them to appreciate this color, but there was a surgery for that, or drugs they could take for that. The moment you dial up the happiness factor with respect to seeing this color, the more it edges into moral and ethical terrain. Whereas, if you deprive someone of this color, well, then you really are, this is a kind of crime against them, right? And we'd want to send you to prison, right? So, I mean, it sounds very far-fetched, but this is analogous to, you can imagine a color so rewarding that it would be the obverse of essentially putting your hand on a hot stove.
Suffering becomes pleasure. In that case, I think that we stop talking analogy, and we're no longer talking about colour as an analogy for pleasure. We're just talking about colour as balance on top of pleasure. We sort of just push the analogy until we're just talking about pleasure again. We'll get back to Sam Harris in just a moment, but first, thinking about the big questions in life can take a heavy toll on our mental health. I've certainly experienced existential anxiety before, and topics like free will, metaethics, and spirituality are intimately tied to our psychological well-being. When we are experiencing these kinds of issues, therapy is an invaluable resource for getting our heads in order. That's why I'm teaming up in paid partnership with BetterHelp for this episode. BetterHelp connects you with a credentialed therapist trained to give you helpful, unbiased advice. Starting face-to-face therapy can be a daunting step, so BetterHelp allows you to have your therapy session as a phone call, or as a video call, or even via messaging if that's what's most comfortable for you. To get started, you fill out a questionnaire to help assess your specific needs, and then you'll be matched with your therapist, in most cases within 48 hours. You can then schedule therapy sessions for a convenient time. If the therapist you're matched with doesn't feel like the right fit, which can happen with therapy, you can easily switch to a new person at no additional cost. Over 4 million people have used BetterHelp to start living a healthier, happier life. If you think you might benefit from it too, then click the link in the description or visit betterhelp.com/Alex O'Connor. Doing this will help to support my channel and also gets you 10% off your first month of BetterHelp, helping you connect with a therapist and see if it's right for you. Now back to Sam Harris. I suppose one way of getting at this is the way that you seem to always phrase this. You did in the tweet later on. You say, if we should do anything in this life, we should avoid what really and truly sucks. Elsewhere you say, look, if bad means anything, it must mean the worst possible misery for everyone. I think a moment ago you said something to that effect.
Yep.
To William Lane Craig, you put it this way: the minimum standard of moral goodness is to avoid the worst possible misery for everyone. If we should do anything in this universe, if we ought to do anything, if we have a moral duty to do anything, it's to avoid the worst possible misery for everyone. And of course, this seems intuitively true. The problem I have with this is what I would see as a charge of circularity, because it seems to me that the interesting thing you're making in the moral landscape is that in a world where people think atheists cannot say that certain things are good and bad, if you're an atheist, there is no thing that is good, there is nothing that is bad. You're saying, no, we actually can say that certain things are bad. We can do that. And someone says, okay, show me how. And you say something like, well, look, if anything is bad, surely the worst possible misery for everyone is bad. But that first bit, that if anything is bad, it seems to me that it's the very thing that you're trying to establish. That's the interesting part. So when you say, if we have any duty in this world, it must be to avoid the worst possible misery for everyone. I could say, but the thing we're trying to establish is if there is any such thing that is dutiful, if there is any such thing as good and bad. Do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah. So let's go over this round again and just notice a few more landmarks. So first, one of the things I do in the moral landscape is point out that there's a double standard with respect to how we treat ethics and morality and the possibility of moral truth, and the way we treat every other branch of science or philosophy or reasoning, where, and there's a few ways to see this. In one case, first of all, there's no branch of science or really any intellectual endeavor where you don't have to rely on something that is essentially a brute fact or something that's axiomatic. We pull ourselves up by our bootstraps everywhere. There's no foundation for physics or foundation for arithmetic even that is perfectly self-justifying, so that no one can stand anywhere else and say, well, why did you make that definitional choice? Or why, that's not how I choose to think about it, right? It's just that in physics or math, when someone does that, when they have a massively seditious program, right? When someone says, like when we at the physics conference say, physics for us is our understanding how matter and energy behave in this universe. If a biblical creationist or some other person unqualified for the job comes in and says, well, no, I want to talk about physics, but I have a different definition. I would ask you to justify your definition. How did you come to be so interested in matter and energy? Because for physics, for me, it's just whatever conforms to the book of Genesis, et cetera, et cetera. Now, in science, and really everywhere, but on questions of ethics or value, when we meet such opposition, we don't draw any conclusions from it. We just say, you can do whatever you want, but you're not part of our language game. We're not going to take you seriously. There's no temptation to take you seriously. There's nothing about diversity of opinion,
it was just
even foundational diversity
in
those areas, which suggests to us that there might not be any real ground truth to the whole endeavor. Like, there's no physicist who's losing sleep saying, Jesus, I thought physics was on sound footing, and I thought my investigation of string theory was headed somewhere, but this creationist showed up and said he didn't even agree with Arkin's rule of physics, so that must mean that there is no such thing as physics, or it's just a cultural convention, we just made it up. So there's a double standard. With moral truth and ethical truth and value-laden truth, we say, oh, you're telling me the Taliban don't think it's wrong to force girls to live in bags, and they don't want them to read, and they'll throw battery acid in their face if they decide to learn to read. And they seem to have this alternate morality. So who are we to say that our colonialist, imperialist, post-enlightenment morality is better or more true? Right? We happen to like it more. We don't want to behave this way, but we're not. There's no footing there. So that move for me is specious. The other move, which is I think we have to some degree courtesy of Hume, is this idea that there's this radical disjunction between facts and values. There's no way to describe how the universe is that can tell you how it ought to be. And so there's no even the totality of facts couldn't tell you what you should do next unless you add one of your merely human passions to the mix. Right? Now, I'm happy to bite the bullet. There's two ways to address that. And it's important to recognize that Hume did not spend a lot of time on that thought. I mean, it's practically marginalia in his work. I mean, it's like about a paragraph and a half or so, if memory serves. So he did not flesh this out, and yet many people take it as a total defeater against the whole project of uniting facts and values. One thing I would point out, there's two ways I've dealt with this. One is, any discussion of facts presupposes a whole host of values that we don't get for free, but we act like we get them for free. So value in logical consistency, value in evidence, value in elegance if you're in a mathematical field, right? Something like Occam's razors of value, right? And so you presuppose our conversation about what's rational presupposes all sorts of values, and we don't tend to acknowledge it. But if I said to you, listen, I have an amazing theory of the physical world, it just so happens, it really is amazing. It's better than anything you're going to get from Ed Whitten or anyone else. But it's a little self-contradictory. I mean, it's just like you're going to catch me saying some things that contradict the thing I said just before, and doesn't make any predictions. Right. Okay. So clearly this is a joke. I'm talking nonsense, and yet that just shows you that I'm running roughshod over some values that are presupposed in any conversation holds true scientifically. The other move I'm happy to make, I can talk really on both sides of this, is I'm happy, and this is what I was hand waving toward in that tweet thread, is I'm happy to dispense with this notion of ought and is and moral duty. Right. One thing I didn't appreciate when I wrote The Moral Landscape is how much people are hung up on this idea that for moral truth to exist, it must contain the motivational component to follow this moral truth. And in addition to the motivation, it must contain an ability to persuade others that they should follow it. Right? So if I could tell you that something is really wrong, right? It's some way you and I are living is really wrong. The mere understanding of its wrongness or its moral badness would get us to change our behavior. By definition, otherwise, how are we pretending to understand this? And I just think that's a false claim. But I'm happy. And one analogy I would give is, just imagine. Here's one case. I'm not actually making this case. But let's say this was true. Let's just say we agreed that vegetarianism is much more ethical than eating meat. And if I happen to eat meat, so I should be a vegetarian. I ought to be a vegetarian. I understand the argument. I see no flaw in it. So the fact that I'm not immediately pushed into vegetarianism proves somehow that this moral reasoning is otiose, right? It's just not. I'm not tracking truth. If I were, the dominoes would just fall. But that's just an unrealistic picture of the human mind. Right? Yeah. That's not the way human mind works. And by analogy, I would say, let's say I want to lose 10 pounds. Let's keep this in the dietary space, right? So I want to lose 10 pounds. I'm absolutely sure I understand the physics of this and how I would do it, and it's in fact true of me that I want to lose 10 pounds, right? So without any caveat, I know I'll be happier if I lose 10 pounds. I know how to do it. I just need to eat less, and I just persist in eating less than I've been eating currently, and the pounds will disappear. That's just a fact-based description of my situation, but in and of itself is insufficient to get me to go on a diet because as it happens, I want other things. I like to eat ice cream, preferably once a day, right? So and that's not. I realize that's not in harmony with my wanting to lose 10 pounds, but there's more of me than the part of me that just wants to lose 10 pounds, right? So it's the motivation persuasion piece is another part of the conversation, but it doesn't actually dispute the fact that there can be such a thing as moral truth that we can come to understand.
Yeah, that's another thing that David Hume discusses in his big debate within philosophy, whether moral facts have to be intrinsically motivating.
Right.
Maybe we can circle around to that, because I want to begin with what you said about this idea of the double standard that exists. And
yeah, I guess that's because when you're discussing what a moral fact is, all you're talking. Is it possible? Here's a question: is it possible to talk about moral facts and not? I guess you would have to assume that human beings are not moral creatures necessarily in and of themselves. Because if they were moral creatures, if there was a moral fact, they should just be motivated to do it naturally, like without them having to put effort in. They should just be like, oh well, that's the most moral thing I can do. Okay, I'm doing it, and without like even a second thought. But it's like there is a difference between what is actually right and what people are willing to do. It feels like so, yeah. And that's even on a third part. It is completely different to what is possible to convince people to do. You could tell people, hey man, drinking water is really good for you. It really is, man, objectively. Look at all these studies on how much people don't drink enough water and with all the health benefits of drinking more water. Yeah, but I'm not drinking it. And it's like, well, because you couldn't convince that person to drink water, it must not be that water is like the correct, like, yeah. Yeah.
You picture somebody walking into a physics conference and saying, I define physics in this way. And everybody at the physics conference turning around and going, I mean, sure, you can just do that if you want. You can define physics in whatever you want, but that's not really what we're talking about. That's not what people care about in this conference, so we're just not going to pay attention to you. Do you, when you publish The Moral Landscape, and there are a great many people in the academy who come out and say, this isn't allowed, like you say, most people believe in this is-ought distinction, most people think that good is something other than just well-being. Who's the one walking into the conference here? In other words, like, it seems to me that it might be more like you going into that conference and saying, I think that morality is about well-being, and everyone at the conference turning around and saying, you can do that if you want. I don't exactly have a reason why you can't just say that when I say good, I just mean the avoidance of the worst possible misery for everyone. Sure, but that's not really what we mean. And so do that if you want, but we're not going to sort of pay attention to that.
Yeah,
do you see it that way around, or do you think it's the other way around, that you're the one with the sort of definitional consensus here, that people who are challenging you are coming in and you're the one who should be saying, well, we're not going to pay attention to you?
Well, to be clear, I'm not saying that truth is just a matter of consensus, right?
Sure.
I'm saying that everyone could be wrong, one person could be right, but I'm saying that when you're at a conference wherein scientists and philosophers talk about morality, I view them as using various double standards and being lured into it, for understandable reasons. But it's like, I've been at a conference. I mean, this was actually one of the things that convinced me to write The Moral Landscape. As I did, I was at a conference where there was kind of an eminent biologist and bioethicist who took me to task for my disparaging the ethics of the Taliban, right? And she said, that's just your opinion that forcing women and girls to live in cloth bags and beating them or killing them if they try to get out, that's not good for them, right? Like, who are you to say that, right? And my point is, who are we not to say that? If we know anything at all about human well-being, and we do, we know that this is not an optimal strategy for maximizing human well-being. And then you start meeting the people who say, well, who's to say that morality has anything to do with human well-being?
Yeah, see, that second step is more interesting to me, because I agree that because we all agree that suffering is bad for us, right? And I want to talk a moment about how we go from that. I mean, if I put my hand on the stove, I'm going to want to take it away. It doesn't follow.
I mean, those arguments are essentially stupid, because if you don't agree that well-being is a part of morality, you're saying that, like, in a way, you're kind of fully conceding that I could destroy somebody's body or something, but it doesn't necessarily make me immoral. Like, actually, like, cut off limbs, cut off their head, but it's like, well, I'm not concerned with well-being. You still haven't convinced me that well-being should be tied to morality. And it's just like, then go die somewhere. Like, you're not, like, who cares then? Like, I should be able to torture you. You shouldn't care about being tortured then. You should have zero preference on whether you're tortured or not. And it's just like, and if you say, well, of course I do, you need to not torture me. Well, why shouldn't I torture you? There's no moral reason not to. So why should, he's like, hey, you know what, you're right. Well-being isn't a part of morality. Go ahead and torture me. It's like,
for me, that if somebody else puts their hand on the stove, that I'm going to have that same feeling that they should take it away. Well, we'll get that in a minute, perhaps. But yeah, sure, if we know anything about well-being, it seems fatuous to say, well, that's just your opinion, man. Who are you to say anything? You might as well be saying the same thing about physics. Sure. But the problem is that physics is a purely descriptive enterprise, right? If you define things in particular ways, you can just sort of make sure everything's internally consistent, make sure that everyone knows how you're using your terms, and all is well. If you say that good just means something like well-being, if we say that good is reducible to well-being, then I don't think you so much sort of cross the is-ought divide as just collapse the ought into an is statement. You sort of created this semantic world in which you can say, whenever I say good, just imagine I'm saying something like avoiding suffering, something like that, I can translate any moral statement now into purely descriptive terms. I can say, it's not good for you to, or it's bad for you to not allow women to vote. And I can translate that in your terminology as it causes more overall suffering when women can't vote. Now, that can be true and false. Cool. Now we can do an investigation.
Well,
But
that's
it
the
doesn't
point
talk about ethics anymore. In other words.
Well, no, again, that's why I think so much of our confusion here, and the reason why it's so well subscribed, is that we have this tradition of how we have carved up the pie of the topics intellectually, and the way we have taught ethics, and the way we've demarcated it from science, and even from the rest of philosophy, and the way we've internally divided it into consequentialism and deontology and virtue ethics. Right? I think all of these boundaries tend to be misleading. Right? I think we can clean the slate, and we could, in a purely descriptive way, which is to some degree where that tweet thread is pointing. You could say, let's just forget we even had this topic, ethics and morality and good and evil and value, and just forget about. Let's be truly naive as to what our circumstance is. We're clearly in a circumstance where there's a wide range of experience on offer, depending on what kind of mind you have. And a few things are true about this, which are clearly true, and I think clearly give us a realistic picture, a philosophically realistic picture of the space in which we are making various truth claims. One is, there are horizons past which we can't see. Right? We've only had certain types of experiences, and our nervous systems only allow for certain types of experiences, and we don't know how we would be able to navigate in the space of all possible experience if we changed our nervous systems, or we changed our minds at the level of ideas, which is also a change to the nervous system, obviously. We don't know what experiences would be on offer if the intuitions we had, which could give us this gut sense that certain things are good and bad and right and wrong, if we figured out how to change those and then felt differently about the same things, right? And then we could step back and ask the further question: what would be descriptively, what would be the consequences of that happening? And maybe it's in fact true that if we live in such a universe that if you kept your hand on a hot stove for 30 seconds, you would be ushered into the most sublime experience imaginable for the rest of your life, right? Your life would be a paradise thereafter, right? And yet none of us have discovered that because at 29 seconds we all tap out, right? Now that's just there's no reason to think we live in that universe, but if we did, then it would be morally important to figure out how to get over the 29-second hump on the hot stove, right? Now leave aside questions of should and ought and duty and good and evil. Let's just admit that we're in this. This is why I call it a moral landscape. We're in this space of possible experiences that admits of peaks and valleys, high spots and low spots with respect to anything that could possibly seem different from one moment to the next. That is valenced in the domain of, and I use well-being as a kind of suitcase term for everything that could possibly have this character, where something seems to matter. Right? So it could matter in the sense that the pain is getting reduced. It could matter in the sense that we're experiencing beauty and creativity we weren't experiencing.
Yeah, we're gonna pick this up tomorrow, y'all. This is a good spot to stop. Fuck. Thank you all for watching. If you did, appreciate y'all. Catch y'all next time. I probably won't be able to stream again till Monday at the earliest, if depending on how everything works out. So thank you all for watching. I'm gonna call it a night.